Chapter 724. Michael was busy dealing with the aftermath of the Golden Port battle. At that Northgard, he was in a room filled with sacks of grain, artifacts, food, crates of potions and pills and gold coins. Everything in front of him was his share of the Golden Port warehouse. Michael kept everything in the dark forest. "My lord," Azazel appeared behind Michael. "What is it?" asked Michael without even turning around. His mind was occupied with future plans. "Lady Alden has told Edith about you and her." Azazel's words brought Michael out of his thinking. He turned around with a frown. Since Layla wore the necklace given by Michael, Azazel watched everything that had transpired between Layla and Edith. Unfortunately, Michael had no idea Zachary and Austin kidnapped the spirit child to threaten him. "Why did she do that?" asked Michael. He followed Azazel behind to the surveillance room. With a flick of his wrist, Azazel replayed the recording of Layla and Edith. Michael watched the scene without blinking an eye. Looking at Layla argue with Edith, he was surprised. He never expected Layla to slap Edith literally. This was the second time Michael had seen her lose her calm and composure. Truth be told, Michael didn't think he could hate Edith more. Anyone with half a brain could tell Layla was not at fault with her father. It was obvious to Michael Norbert had done something to deserve Layla's wrath. But her family matter was not Michael's concern. By telling Edith what had happened between him and her, Layla had given something that could be used against both of them to Edith, a lackey of Victoria. "Azazel, go to the Rainbow Island and make sure everything's fine," Michael immediately ordered Azazel. "As you wish, my lord." Azazel knew the urgency of the matter. Hence, he quickly bowed and disappeared from Michael's sight. While Azazel was on his way to the Rainbow Islands, Michael headed for the pocket dimension to meet Eladir. Meanwhile, Gaia was in the southern continent in her Dark Queen armor. She met Corey to get a report of the Golden Port battle. Since they achieved an overwhelming victory, Gaia ordered all the crew to take a day and celebrate as they saw fit, except the crew of Big Bertha. They were allowed to do anything to enjoy their day except drinking. Michael was strict about the booze policy. If anyone in his crew got drunk, he would throw them overboard. What? Because Michael wanted them sane and clear-headed all the time. Gaia called Corey to the upper deck. She enjoyed the peace and calm of the sea around her. Winter had hit the entire world at the same time. However, the southern continent wasn't as cold as Azair or Elon. Corey approached Gaia wearing a thick fur coat. The upper deck was empty since the crew was enjoying their day on the deck below them. "How many ships have we lost?" asked Gaia. 30 to the storm and 20 to the Thusians." 30 to the storm? Seriously? Gaia shook her head. She was disappointed in the pirates. "We have taken control of almost 400 Thusian ships. But my lady, we lack the manpower to man those ships," said Corey. "I took the initiative to recruit more pirates. It takes some time, but we will have enough men in a month or two." "Good. If it wasn't for the storm and lack of crew, Corey could have captured more Thusian ships." Using the raging storm to their advantage, many Thusian ships escaped Golden Port. That was the reason they were only able to capture 400 ships. "Can I ask you something, my lady?" asked Corey. Gaia nodded. "Who were those people who fought that giant dragon? Are they our allies?" "You could say that. Were you afraid? Afraid of dragons?" Gaia chuckled. "Kinda," Corey nervously smiled. "Then I hope you can overcome your fears sooner than later." After dealing with the things in the southern continent, Gaia left for King Gunnar's castle. When she arrived at the room where they planned everything, she saw Yagner, Prince Devarius, and General Bryce waiting for her. Prince Devarius was trembling as his eyes were bloodshot. Judging by the look, Gaia could tell something had happened in Northgard. "What happened?" asked Gaia. "The farmlands and villages in Northgard." Yagner hesitated to finish his sentence. "They ravaged the places, burnt many and took some villages hostage. Then what are we waiting for?" "General Bryce, gather our men," Gaia ordered General Bryce. Prince Devarius felt somewhat relieved. A small part of his mind was expecting her to delay the attack on Northgard and focus on Thusia. But on the contrary, she immediately ordered General Bryce to gather the men. "I need to know how many Thusians were stationed at Northgard and who was responsible for the latest atrocities," Gaia said to Yagner and then turned her gaze toward Devarius. "We are not going to take back Northgard. We are going to destroy the Thusians without mercy. You have a problem with that?" asked Gaia. "I thought you would never ask." Devarius' eyes turned predatory. He followed Gaia outside to leave for Northgard. Gaia didn't wait for General Bryce to finish gathering up the men. Instead, she shot toward the sky with Devarius. The two of them flew toward Northgard. Gaia had to fly slowly to keep up with Devarius. After continuously flying for almost an hour, Gaia and Devarius reached the outskirts of Kingdom Northgard. Bordered between a mountain to the north, a wild ocean to the south, a river to the east and lush grasslands to the west, the Kingdom of Northgard mainly lived off farming, fishing and crafting. Northgard itself was mainly covered in hills and had a windy climate. The climate played a big role in farming. Although they didn't produce as much food as Suvan, they produced enough to become a self-sustaining kingdom. The kingdom's landscape was pleasant. Calm lakes, silent mountains and sapphire lakes were just a sliver of the hidden treasures Northgard had to offer, which was why the kingdom was admired among foreigners. Plus, the people of Northgard were loving towards foreigners and tend to welcome them with goodwill. They felt foreigners could empower the kingdom's well-being. Despite the snowfall, Devarius could still see dark smoke coming from the village on the horizon. This was one of the villages Booth chose to burn to the ground. I am sorry for what happened there. But I'd suggest we strike the capital before the Thusians cause more destruction, said Gaia. It took Devarius a few moments to come out of his sorrow. I used to play here, Devarius said with a heavy heart. His voice stuttered because of the sadness in his heart. Why did they have to do this? Asked Devarius. Because the Thusians wants to break your spirit. As long as you fight for freedom, they can't control the kingdom as they like. They sent a message and now it's our turn to respond. Let's head toward the capital, said Devarius. He didn't even bother to doubt Gaia whether she could fight an entire army or not. They were about to leave for the capital when she saw a group of Thusian soldiers flying toward the village. This group contained 6 men. Since each of them was flying on a sword, Gaia was able to tell they weren't at the core formation stage yet. Bastards! Devarius roared. He didn't even wait for Gaia's order as he dashed toward them. Devarius' speed was several times faster than the rest. The Thusians were startled by the sudden appearance of Devarius. The soldier who led the group lost his balance when he saw Devarius out of the blue. Fuck. Holy. The soldiers panicked. The scream of their leader was still echoing through the air. Everything seemed tiny from their view, so anyone could imagine what would happen to their leader when he hit the ground. But Devarius was not in the mood for imagination. He grabbed 2 soldiers by their necks and squeezed them till their faces turned purple. The others were too shocked to react in time. While Devarius was squeezing the life out of 2 soldiers, Gaia fired a normal iron arrow at a soldier who was trying to escape. The arrow penetrated his left thigh. Blood spurted out of his leg as the soldier screamed. Devarius didn't even blink an eye. The light of life slowly left the soldier's eyes. Among the 6, 1 fell to death, 2 were losing their lives slowly, and 1 was barely keeping himself on the sword. This left 2 soldiers unscathed. They looked at each other with pale faces. They trembled. Unlike Booth's general, these 6 were just foot soldiers. They were trained to look for any survivors in the villages and not to fight people like Gaia or Devarius. Finally, Devarius ended the 2 soldiers' suffering by snapping their necks. The 2 standing behind the dead soldiers panicked. Their minds went blank. They were about to turn around and leave when Devarius punched them with enough force to put a hole through their chests. Blood spattered on Devarius' face, painting it red. Gaia grabbed the one with an arrow sticking out of his leg. She lifted him up in the air as the sword fell down. He frantically squirmed in her hand. You have 5 seconds to tell us who did this. Gaia pointed at the burned village on the ground. 1, 2, I don't know. The soldier cried. 3, 4, Gaia continued to count. The moment the count reached 5, Gaia let go of his collar. Ah! The soldier screamed, falling down from the sky. Gaia dived down and caught the soldier in the midway. The soldier's face was drenched in sweat. Devarius could hear the soldier's heart pounding against his chest. Next time I won't catch you, Gaia threatened the soldier. It's General Booth and his men. The soldier screamed without a second thought. He ordered his men to burn some villages and take hostage a few. We were just sent here to look for any survivors. I swear I don't know anything else, the soldier cried. Ah! The soldier screamed as Gaia let go of his collar. Chapter 725, Don't lose your shit when we are in the capital. Can you do that and follow my orders? Asked Gaia. Devarius nodded his head. The 2 of them began to head toward the capital. What that bastard Booth was doing here? Devarius growled. He could have sent his men to do all this. Why was he here? Devarius pondered. Maybe he needed a win after what we did to the Golden Port, said Gaia. Eventually, after almost 2 hours, they arrived at the capital of Northgard. The capital was built amidst the gentle snows of a pristine tundra. It was truly an elegant wonder. Its grace was matched by the backdrop of modest hills, which had helped shape the city to flourish. The climate these hills brought were of great importance, but they were also influential when it came to architectural designs, as the vast majority of buildings have been built in shapes and with elements of the hills around them. The city was littered with various buildings, and their beauty was only matched by each other. Before the war, trade was at an all-time high in the capital. It had drawn a lot of attention, including King Maxim Barnes. Over time, new cultures left their mark not just on the city's people but also on the city's identity. Unlike any other cities or kingdom in the Azare continent, Kingdom Northgard and its capital had the highest number of other races. It was this multicultural identity that had truly left its mark. Hundreds of shops, inns, and ethnic restaurants offer a plethora of culinary choices. Those who would feel hungry for something else could enjoy nature, one of the many natural wonders, lakes, or peaceful grass fields. At that moment, the capital seemed gloomy. Gaia could barely see any people on the streets, which were completely blanketed by knee-high snow. Seeing the sorry state of the capital ached Devarius' heart. He saw his family's castle on top of the hill, covered in snow. He was tempted to visit the castle. We would have welcomed the Thusians with open arms. We were a peaceful kingdom, Devarius' voice stuttered. It's our fault for not being strong enough to protect our people, Devarius blamed himself. No. The Thusians were just stronger. Plus, no matter what, Maxim would have always tried to take over your kingdom, said Gaia. Why? Trade, Gaia simply said. Suvan is the fruit basket of the continent. Zilon has mines. Ithilin is an impenetrable nature fortress. Gaia didn't say anything about the existence of the cosmic stream in Ithilin. And Northgard, he targeted it for trade. A trade that would take a year through the Golden Port could be made in 3 or 4 months through Northgard. Besides, the only bridge to reach Ithilin by land is connected to Northgard. Her words made perfect sense to Devarius. Ithilin people may have accepted the Thusians and even celebrated King Maxim, but the Northgard people had rooted pride. They would never accept the Thusians. As long as they resisted the Thusians, they would continue to suffer. The only way to end this was killing Maxim Barnes. What's the plan, General Elia? Asked Devarius. It's getting repetitive. We go to a place, kill the army station there and take over the place. Rinse and repeat, Gaia sighed. So what do you suggest we do? We can't rush into the city anyways. We still have no idea where the Thusians are keeping the villagers they captured. Go get captured. The odds are the Thusians will put you with the rest of your people and try to break their spirit, said Gaia. Devarius frowned. How do you plan on finding me? Asked Devarius. He saw Gaia tossing a silver coin toward him. Swallow that. What? Devarius was taken aback by surprise. Swallow the coin. It will reveal your location to me. Don't bother to learn how that works, Gaia shook her head. She chuckled inside, seeing Devarius actually swallow the coin. The coin had nothing special about it, as Devarius thought. When she tossed the coin toward him, she also threw a spider onto him. But Devarius focused on the coin and missed the spider crawling onto his robes. I will know when you're with your people. Try not to get yourself killed, said Gaia. With a nod, Devarius flew toward the capital. Gaia noticed a Thusian patrol on the street. Devarius descended toward them. I hate patrolling in this weather. Shut up, Marcus. If you had controlled your lust, we wouldn't be here. Oh, come on. Don't blame me. I haven't felt a touch of a woman in 6 months. So bite me, like you bit that girl in the butt. Fuck you. The soldiers patrolled the streets, arguing and laughing at each other. However, their laughter was short-lived. They felt a chill as soon as they saw Devarius in front of them. Freeze! The soldiers screamed. To their surprise, Devarius raised his arms up in the air. Holy fuck! Is that Prince Devarius? It's him. Don't move. The soldiers panicked but didn't run away. Without making any sudden move, Devarius slowly knelt down on the snow. You go and inform the general. Well, take him to the special place. These were the last words Devarius heard before everything went dark. The last thing he saw was the bottom of the soldier's sword. He felt a sharp pain before collapsing to the ground. From the sky, Gaia saw the soldiers knock out Devarius cold and drag his body through the snow. She slowly followed the soldiers. After an unknown amount of time, Devarius woke up in a dimly lit room. He heard water trickling down drop by drop. He looked around to see nothing but muddy walls. The air smelled like blood and piss. He could move neither his hands nor legs. When he looked down at his feet, he noticed iron shackles around them. He shook the iron shackles, yet they didn't come out as he expected. Your Royal Highness, suddenly Devarius heard a whisper. He turned his head in the voice's direction. In the dim light, he saw a man behind bars a few meters away from him. "Shit, they caught you," the man sighed. Devarius couldn't see the man's features very clearly due to the darkness in the area. He could only vaguely see the man's torn dress and messy brown hair. "Are you alone?" asked Prince Devarius. "I am with the people in my village. Your Royal Highness, you must save us. Grandpa Eddie is dying. We can't breathe here," the man's voice stuttered. Judging by the tone of his voice, Devarius could tell he was exhausted beyond words. "First you have to relax. What's your name?" "Alex," the man replied. "Alex, relax. I am here to get you all out of here, but how?" "You're stuck here just like the rest of us," said Alex. "I have a plan, but I need you with me, all right?" Alex did not respond for a few moments. "Alex, you're with me?" asked Devarius. "Yes. Yes, Your Royal Highness. I just want to get out of here. I can't stay here for long. I am losing my mind," Alex cried. His sobbing startled Devarius. He wondered what kind of torture Alex would have gone through to make a grown man like him sob like a child. Manger boiled within Devarius. All of this suffering because of the Thusians. The hatred toward Thusians grew bigger by the second in Devarius' heart. "I'm going to get you all out of here, okay? I promise. He will come, he will come. Oh my God, he will be here soon." Alex cried out loud. He suddenly panicked for no reason. To Devarius' surprise, Alex tried to bend the metal bars with his hands. Alex was so desperate to get out as he began to bite the bars. "Who is he?" asked Devarius. However, Alex didn't respond to Devarius. Instead, he kept trying to bend and bite the bars. Devarius looked behind Alex to find another saner villager. "Alex, get your shit together, man," Devarius growled. The sound of Alex's groan was interrupted by several heavy footsteps. As soon as Alex heard the footsteps, he frantically crawled back into the darkest corner of his cell. Devarius leaned back, waiting for the soldiers to approach him. "I hope you come to my rescue again, General," Devarius mumbled under his breath. Soon, Devarius saw several shadows in the dim light. They slowly made their way toward the cells. "Here he is, my lord," Devarius heard some voices. Unfortunately, he couldn't see their faces in the dim light. A group of soldiers opened the iron door to his cell. Thanks to the torches in their arms, Devarius finally saw their faces. Although he recognized none of them, the blonde-haired youngster in fancy robes seemed familiar for some reason. The soldiers around the youngster were armed to the teeth. It was apparent to Devarius that this guy was someone important. The Prince of Northgard. "How the mighty fall," the youngster chuckled. He approached Devarius step by step. Devarius wanted to slap that smirk off of his face. "You know, my soldiers told me you surrendered yourself. Now here's my question, why would a rebel like you surrender yourself without a fight?" The youngster stared at Devarius from head to toe with his hazel eyes. For some reason the youngster smelled like blood. "I think you are planning something," the youngster exclaimed. "Now here's the deal. I don't have the time or the brain to figure out your plans. So I am going to go into the next cell and start taking heads one by one until I hear your plans." Devarius remained silent as the young man turned around and left his cell. As he said this to Devarius, he ordered his men to open the cell where Devarius saw Alex. Devarius heard the villagers groan as though they were unable to speak. "No, no, no," Alex screamed. Devarius gritted his teeth. "It'd be a good time for you to show up, Elia," mumbled Devarius. Meanwhile, the youngster chose his target. It was an old man who looked as thin as a stick. The youngster dragged the old man by his neck until Devarius was able to see him clearly. The young man unsheathed his sword from the sheath dangling on his waist. He raised the sword in the air. "Wait!" Devarius shouted as the young man stopped his swing just a few inches away from the old man's neck. "Diddle diddle." A sweet voice echoed through the underground. The soldier immediately tensed up. A smile formed on Devarius' face seeing a shadow of a girl in the walls. "Who is that?" the young man asked his men. The footsteps sounded louder and louder with the passing seconds. "You wanted to know about my plan, right? This is it," Devarius laughed. Chapter 726, We Are So Little, Gaia's voice echoed through the cave. The soldier who went to check on her came flying. He left a trail of blood on his way. Devarius saw blood splatter on the metal walls and the iron bars. The soldier didn't even scream. He looked closer at the body to see a hole in his chest. Following the soldier's body, something else came flying. The youngster reacted, quickly catching the object. But when he saw the thing in his heart, his face lost its color. A bloody heartbeat in his hand. It took the heart a minute to finally stop beating. "She is going to kill you all and it won't be pretty," Devarius laughed. The soldiers around the young man panicked. Her shadow grew closer and closer to them. The youngster lost interest in the old man. He threw him away. How did she get in here? The soldiers mumbled. Who is she? Asked another soldier. They prepared themselves for a fight. Finally, Devarius saw Elia stepping out of the darkness into the light. Blood trickled down from her fist. She crackled her neck. Nice place for a prison, Gaia said, looking around. Go kill her. The young man pushed a soldier in her direction. The poor soldier panicked. Still he obeyed his order. None of them could tell how strong she was. However, Gaia soon answered their question by grabbing the soldier by his neck and snapping it without breaking a sweat. She tossed the soldier's body aside like trash. Seeing her kill the soldier so effortlessly, the soldier freaked out. Although they had numbers, none thought they could take on the girl. Who the fuck are you? Gaia asked the youngster. She slowly stepped toward him through the muddy floor. But when she was just a couple of meters away from the young man, a cage dropped from above out of nowhere, enclosing her within. Devarius' bright grin froze on his face. Even Gaia was surprised. The iron bars glowed as countless intricate runes radiated faint red light. Gotcha, bitch, the young man exclaimed. The soldiers around him were bewildered. Gaia stood within the cage without moving an inch. She tried to grab the bar, but the moment she touched the glowing bars, they burned her hands. The golden-haired young man stepped forward with a bright smile. He walked around the cage for a few moments. He enjoyed seeing Gaia trapped within the cage. Gaia looked above at the ceiling to see several runes glistening. Bright beams of light shot from each rune, forming the cage around her. For some reason she quickly thought of Edith when she saw the runes. A bolt of energy shot her in the chest when she tried to cast a spell. Don't bother, the young man said. He was extremely proud of his achievement here. His glimmered with arrogance and pride. Despite his core-strengthening stage cultivation, he was able to trap a fusion stage cultivator. He couldn't wait to show this gift to his uncle. Seeing Gaia trapped in the cage, Devarius was speechless. The light of hope in his heart slowly faded away. You didn't expect this, did you? Asked the young man. We were expecting you. But thank you for bringing us the prince. He's a cherry on top of a delicious cake like you. The youngster licked his lips. Why are you being silent? I won't hurt you, at least not yet. After the shit you pulled in the Golden Port, could you blame us for wanting to rip you to shreds? The young man said while walking around the cage. Gaia remained calm despite her situation. Who are you, bastard? Devarius shouted. He thought distracting the young man might give Elia a chance to break out of the cage. Instead, the young man signaled his lackey, wordlessly telling him to shut Devarius up. The young man was no longer interested in Devarius. He caught a bigger fish. Are you wondering the same? Asked the young man. I don't give a fuck who you are. You're gonna die anyways. After seeing Gaia getting trapped inside the cage, the soldiers gained courage and valor. They all had a smirk on their faces. Devarius saw a soldier walking toward him, cracking his knuckles. The moment the soldier arrived in front of Devarius, the soldier punched Devarius in the face. You punch like a little girl? Devarius spat the blood out. The soldier punched Devarius again with more force behind his fist. The woman in my kingdom punches harder than you, Devarius ridiculed the soldier. The soldier trembled in a fury. He started to punch Devarius left and right without giving him time to say a word. Blood and saliva spattered out of Devarius' face. The soldier did not stop until Devarius' face almost doubled up in size. His face was swollen and became unrecognizable. The soldier massaged his fists. I hope he didn't kill him, the young man pouted. You see that? He pointed his finger at Devarius. That's just the tip of the iceberg compared to what's going to happen to you. Since you're a nice-looking girl, we might not rough you up like him. To the young man's surprise, Gaia laughed. What's so funny? Asked the young man. Almost everyone who speaks like you dies in the end. Don't you get it, asshole? You're just a cog in the machine I am going to crush. If you have any desire to live, I'd suggest you drop everything and run away from here as fast as you can, said Gaia. Noon replied to Gaia for a moment. Once again, silence haunted the place until the young man chuckled. You are indeed a crazy bitch. Open your eyes. You're the one inside the cage. Or do you think we are inside a cage because of the iron bars between us? The soldiers laughed at his joke, which made the young man laugh louder. My uncle is going to love this bitch, the young man told his soldiers. Gaia frowned. Seeing the frown on her face, the young man tilted his head. Oh, where are my manners? I am Kevin Kemper. Nephew of the one and only Booth Kemper, the Duke of Valeria, and the general of the Thusian army, the young man puffed his chest and introduced himself with immense pride. Gaia simply couldn't believe his words. She thought the cage surprised her before she heard the young man. Jackpot, Gaia smiled with excitement. The smile on Gaia's face confused Kevin. Why are you smiling again? Asked Kevin. You knocked him out and revealed your identity. That's so. Gaia couldn't finish her sentence as she burst into laughter. You so unlucky and stupid. Gaia barely finished off her sentence. But suddenly her laughter stopped. Instead, her face turned cold. The temperature in the room dropped by several degrees. To Kevin's surprise, her eyes glistened. The round pupils turned vertically slit in a blink of an eye. The snake-like eyes freaked out the soldiers. My lord, look, one soldier whispered to Kevin. He looked at Gaia's hands as violet scales appeared on her skin. Kevin immediately took a step back when she hissed at him. Gaia grabbed the iron bars. Just like before, the runes burned her hands. However, Gaia did not let go of the bars. She roared, splitting the iron bars apart. The runes in the bars flickered, radiating faint rumbling noise. Stop her, Kevin ordered his men. The haughtiness in his tone completely disappeared. Instead, he trembled in fear. The soldiers were no different than Kevin. They all inhaled the fear toxin released by Gaia. Arg! Gaia roared, bending the iron bars with her raw strength despite the runes burning her hand. In a few moments, she bent the iron bars enough for her to slide through. Kevin saw a giant cobra sliding through the iron bars for a second. But that image of the cobra in his mind disappeared as fast as it appeared. What are you? Kevin questioned Gaia. The soldiers behind him took a step backward. They no longer had the courage to face Gaia anymore. Gaia did not answer Kevin. Instead, she grabbed him by his neck and lifted him off his feet. Gaia kept Kevin in the air without uttering a word. Meanwhile, the fear toxin took full effect on the soldiers. Since the soldiers weren't even at the core strengthening stage, their bodies and minds couldn't withstand the effects of the fear toxin. They soon began to hallucinate and cry. Finally, they collapsed to the ground and crawled back in fear. Their screams echoed through the silent underground. Even Kevin's body began to shiver as white foam leaked out of his mouth. Does your uncle love you? Gaia asked Kevin. How much he loves you. He will hunt you down if something happens to me. Kevin managed to utter these words. Good. Saves us the trouble of finding him, Gaia snicked. Kevin's face slowly turned purple due to the lack of oxygen in his head. Some of the villagers who witnessed the soldiers scratching the walls to escape the place looked bewildered. They wondered who the girl was and how did she come here. Gaia didn't bother to think about the villagers. All of her focus was on Kevin. From a few meters away from Gaia, Devarius slowly opened his eyes. His head ached because of the beating he had taken a few minutes ago. Thanks to the beating he took, his vision was still blurry. However, he could vaguely see Elia out of the cage. To his shock, the youngster was struggling in her hand. No, please don't hurt me, let us go. No. The soldiers cried and screamed. Fear had completely taken over their minds. Devarius could hear their cries but didn't feel a bit of pity for them. While Gaia was dealing with Kevin, a youngster was flying in the sky as fast as a bolt of lightning. His white robes, along with his raven black hair, fluttered in the wind. His calm eyes glistened like bright stars in pitch-black sky. But behind those calm eyes, there was concern and unease. Around him was an endless ocean. Then, after flying for an unknown amount of time, finally, an island appeared on the horizon. That's the Rainbow Island, said the young man in white robes. And that's where I sensed this weird energy, another voice sounded in the air. Chapter 727. Noah hovered in the sky, looking at the Rainbow Island on the horizon. For some reason he had a bad feeling in his gut. Noah, why are you waiting here? Noah heard Andreas' voice in his head. I have some bad feelings about this, said Noah. Me too, said Andreas. That weird energy. I haven't felt something like that ever before. Noah was on his way to meet Alicia when Andreas sensed something. He immediately ordered Noah to follow his directions. Truth be told, Noah had never seen his teacher shocked like this. So Noah did not waste any time as he did what he was told to. To his surprise, Andreas led to the outskirts of the Rainbow Islands. We don't have all day, Noah, said Andreas. With a nod, Noah flew forward toward the island. To Noah's shock, he saw Narita and Johanna on the ground, unconscious. He felt some strange energy fluctuations in the air. Judging by the look of the ground, Noah could tell a decisive battle had occurred here. Noah quickly landed beside Johanna and Narita. Miss Johanna, Mas Narita, Noah called out to them. He gently shook their shoulders but they didn't respond. Noah placed his finger on their necks, sensing their pulses. Fortunately they were alive. Noah was about to retrieve healing potions from his space ring when Andreas materialized before him. Don't wake them up. I sense something inside. Let's go check first. What about them? They can tell us what happened here once we wake them up, said Noah. And might stop us from investigating the place. You know I am right, so come. Andreas gestured at Noah to stand up and follow him into the cave. Having no choice, Noah followed behind Andreas. The place looked somewhat different than the last time Noah visited. He met Layla to give her the Witcher stone. While walking into the cave, Noah noticed countless scribbles on the wall. They all looked weird and quirky like a child's painting. The further he walked into the cave, the more Noah felt the strange energy in the air. Andreas and Noah made their way forward in silence. What in the hell is that? Asked Andreas, looking at the glimmering tear in the space itself. The tear pulled both of them into it. Noah resisted the pull as Andreas moved closer to inspect it. A realm tear, said Andreas. Something happened here. No shit, said Noah with a hint of sarcasm in his tone. Noah joined Andreas in front of the realm tear. This was the first time Noah had seen one. Is it like a portal? Asked Noah. He was tempted to touch and look through the tear, but he controlled himself. No. The very fabrics of space and time itself had been torn by something. We need to know what happened here. Andreas' voice became extremely grave. Then we have to wake those two up. They can give us the answers we want, Noah suggested. Yeah, but let's look around first. I have a feeling our friend Layla was hiding something big in here. Andreas began to float around the cave. Noah lit all the torches hanging on the walls with a snap of his finger. He brought the light back to the cave. They were able to see things more clearly in the light. Noah saw candles, meditation mats, books, and a few scrolls in the cave. As he was looking around the cave, he was taken aback when he saw a cradle in the corner of the cave. This is getting interesting. Andreas floated toward the cradle. Noah followed Andreas behind. The walls behind the cradle had lots of scribbles of a child. Ouch! Noah jumped as a bolt of electricity ran through his body when he touched the cradle. It zapped me. Noah rubbed his palm. But when Andreas' ghostly hand touched the cradle, Andreas' whole body shivered. He immediately closed his eyes, feeling a powerful, strange energy around the cradle. In his entire life he had only experienced this feeling one time. He thought he had forgotten this feeling, but the answer was no. It was so long ago as Andreas almost forgot. Teacher, Noah called out to Andreas. He waited for Andreas to open his eyes. A spirit child, mumbled Andreas. A spirit child was here. Noah was no stranger to the concept of a spirit child. Andreas made Noah read thousands of books. Thus Noah knew quite a lot. Noah frowned. A spirit child was created when a male cultivator's soul walked a female cultivator, which was a forbidden act. It was equal to forcing oneself on someone. The Witcher stone, Noah mumbled. When he gave Layla a Witcher stone, Noah didn't know why she needed a Witcher stone, at least he didn't know at that time. However, recently Noah discovered a piece of Andreas' soul and helped his mentor absorb this soul piece. As a result, Andreas regained more knowledge and memories. Noah learned that a Witcher stone was to give a physical body to a spirit child in a ritual, along with some other things. Everything else could be obtained relatively easier, but not the Witcher stone. I can't believe it, Noah shook his head. He simply couldn't believe someone has soul-walked Layla. She was a fusion-stage cultivator. Noah couldn't name a single person who was strong enough to touch Layla, let alone soul-walk her. The strange energy, the scribbles on the wall, the Witcher stone, it all makes sense, Andreas said slowly. A spirit child was here. There's no mistaking it. Noah couldn't disagree with his mentor. As Andreas said, everything made sense, pointing toward the existence of a child in the cave. Search the place, Andreas ordered Noah. After learning about the spirit child, Noah doubted Narita and Johanna would be much help to him. He was sure they would hide the child's existence. Light of truth, Noah closed his eyes, casting a spell. A bright wave of light washed over the cave. Noah slowly opened his eyes. His gaze turned his head to the side, glancing at the wall. In his view, he saw a glimmer of light inside the wall. He walked toward the glimmer as Andreas followed him behind. When Noah reached the wall, he ran his hand through the wall. It's hollow. Noah knocked on the wall. Andreas heard a light thud sound. Noah gently rubbed his hand through the wall until he found a tiny hole. Noah's finger didn't fit the hole. So he picked up a quill from his space ring and stuck the quill into the hole. Noah heard a crack as a piece of wall fell down, revealing a brick-sized hollow within the wall. Inside it, Noah found a tiny book. Under Andreas' gaze, Noah opened the book. The first page of the book contained scribbles and various shapes. He turned the page one by one until he saw some words. Today Mother taught me how to read and write. She seemed so happy when I wrote my first word, Mother. Noah read the words. Sister Narita said if I feel lonely I can write whatever I want in a book and keep it safe. So here I am writing something. Noah read these words on the next page. He turned another page and saw something about the food. Noah felt bad for reading someone else's journal, especially a child's. But he hoped this journal might reveal something about the realm tear. If this child was capable of tearing the realm itself, Noah needed to know everything about it before the child could cause more harm. Today I asked Mother about father. I learned from Sister Johanna that every child has a father. Mother did not answer me. But when I met Sister Johanna later, her eyes were puffy. I think Mother scolded her. But why? Why can't Mother tell me who my father is? Noah read the words. Afterward, Noah turned the pages one by one but didn't find anything valuable. Instead he saw the child's day-to-day life, nothing interesting. I heard Mother talking to someone about a fight in a place called Holy Church. She was worried and didn't say a word. I know my mother is not a very talkative person, but this silence was new to me. I can see it in her eyes. She is worried sick. How old is this child? His words sound mature for a child who learned to read and write recently. Andreas wondered about the child. Fight in the Holy Church? Do you think he's talking about the battle between the Dark Lord and Ghost? Asked Noah. I can't say no for certain. Andreas shook his head as Noah continued to read the child's journal. Yesterday I had this weirdest dream. Before I went to bed, I asked Mother about father once again. As usual, Mother didn't say a word. She just said it's better if I don't know who my father is. I disagree. I want to meet him. I was thinking about father and I had a dream. I was floating in the sky. It was night, I think. Everything was dark. I called for Mother, but no one heard me. Then I saw someone. He was talking to a snake. Strange, isn't it? Unfortunately, I couldn't see his face. I tried to approach him, but I was unable to move my body. The snake in his hand looked right at me. For some reason, I had a feeling this snake wanted me to get away from the man. It felt so real. Now I can't help but think whether this dream is a sign. Sister Narita and Johanna always told me I am special. If I am special, is there any chance this dream is a sign? Could he be my father? After Noah finished reading everything the child wrote about his dream, Andreas had a deep frown on his ghostly face. Noah turned another couple of pages, hoping to find out more about the child's dream and his father. Okay, I know this is going to sound weird, but I had another weird dream yesterday after I asked Mother about father. The only difference this time was I saw an island. It was on fire. The man I saw in my previous dream was there with his snake. It was laughing at the burning island. Why do I have this kind of dream every time I ask about my father? Now I can't stop believing the man in my dream and my father has some kind of connection. Is this kid having nightmares or does his dreams really have some meaning? Noah asked Andreas. There are many types of dreams. Some might give a glimpse of the future and some might show us what we desire deep down. This child wants to see its father. So it might be dreaming about him. But I have a feeling his dreams have some kind of meaning, Noah said, turning the pages. I can't believe what I saw in my dreams today. I saw the man again in my dreams. This time there was no darkness. I saw him floating in the air without the snake. I wanted to talk to him, but when I approached him he turned the day into night. I'm not going to hide my dreams anymore. When Mother returns I will tell her about them. Noah read the words. He turned the pages but they were empty. We need to find this child. Noah and Andreas said these words simultaneously. Chapter 7:28 Noah and Andreas rushed out of the cave. After reading the journal they both had a grave feeling in their guts. This time Andreas did not stop Noah from giving the two girls healing potions. Noah squatted beside Narita and Johanna. He gently opened their mouths and poured the healing potion into their mouth. As the healing potion trickled down into the throat, rosiness returned to their faces. Narita groaned. Johanna managed to open her eyes slowly. The moment realization hit Johanna, her eyes went wide. She almost jumped to her feet. Where is he? Johanna didn't even say anything to Noah. Instead she rushed into the cave. Narita followed her behind. Are you thinking what I am thinking? Andreas asked Noah. The man who turned the day into night, Noah mumbled. The Dark Lord, Andreas said with a grave tone. The mere mention of the name made Andreas tremble in fear. We can't tell that for sure. As far as we know, it might just be a dream, said Noah. However, he didn't believe it to be the truth. Noah just didn't want to jump to conclusions based on a child's dream in a journal. Come on, Noah. Deep down you feel it. The question is, who is the Dark Lord to the child? Noah remained silent with a deep frown on his face. The Dark Lord certainly has some hold on the child. We need to find the child before the Dark Lord does. Where is the child? Noah turned around, hearing Johanna's roar. She dashed at Noah and grabbed Noah's collar. I just came here and saw the two of you unconscious, said Noah. Tell us what happened so I can help you. Who was here? Who knocked you out? Noah questioned Narita and Johanna. Narita and Johanna did not answer Noah. Instead, Noah saw their eyes tearing up. I know about the spirit child. As soon as the two girls heard Noah, their hearts skipped a beat. Johanna's hands fell down, letting go of Noah's collars. If the child isn't inside, whoever knocked you out must have taken it, said Noah. We need to find that child, Noah. Noah heard Andreas panic. Johanna and Narita looked at each other. They were about to turn around and head out of the island to find the child when Noah stopped them. A child is in danger, and you two want to keep its existence a secret? Let me help you. Johanna and Narita stopped on their steps. You don't have much time. Where are you going to search? Don't be stupid. A child's life is in danger, for God's sake. If Layla wants to punish me after I find the child, she is welcome to do so. Now tell me what happened here. Noah's tone became dominant. His godly aura made Narita and Johanna tremble. They couldn't resist trusting Noah. If the Dark Lord's aura made the others scared, Noah's aura influenced others to trust in him. Johanna and Narita couldn't think straight. The disappearance of the child made their minds go blank. Tears rolled out of their eyes as the two began to tell Noah what had happened earlier. Although they accepted the existence of the spirit child, they did not reveal anything about how it came to this world or anything related to its power. When they finished their story, Noah took a deep breath. If we find who attacked you, we will find the child, said Noah. We must tell the mistress, said Narita. One of you must stay on the island in case someone else comes here. I will use my contacts in the guild to find the child. No, Johanna shouted. You cannot tell anyone about the child. I will just tell them I am searching for a normal child, not a spirit child. After leaving the island, Noah headed straight toward the Ozier continent. Any plan on how to find the child? Asked Andreas. If we can find who attacked them, we can find the child. How do you plan to do that? Layla wouldn't have told many about the child. I don't believe the two men who attacked the girls happened to stumble upon the child. They knew a child was living there. So the one who took the child must be someone who knew about the child. First, I need to know everyone Layla told about the child. It can't be a long list. Those girls have no clue about where Layla is, said Andreas. But I know someone who might have. Edith, your sweetheart. Even in a situation like this, Andreas managed to find humor. Noah heard his teacher chuckle. However, Noah was not in the mood for fun. On the contrary, he was pretty serious. Teacher, what if the Dark Lord was the child's father? Noah hoped Andreas would say no. Unfortunately, Andreas remained silent for a few moments. I believe so. On contrary to what Noah wished for, Andreas agreed with Noah's feelings. Although Noah had this feeling that the Dark Lord was the child's father, his heart refused to believe so. Noah knew better than anyone what would happen to the child and Layla if the Dark Lord was the child's father. The Sky Hall and the Guardian Guild would nail the mother and child as punishment. Noah never wanted innocent people like Layla and the child to get punished because of the Dark Lord. After all, the child did no wrong. The Dark Lord is evil, Noah. No one would have chosen to soul-walk someone except him. But we must know whether Layla knew of this or not. If she knew about the Dark Lord and didn't report to the guild, she have to be treated as an accomplice. What about the child? Until we know the full extent of its powers, we have to keep the child safe from the outside world. You mean keeping the child locked up? Noah frowned. As much as Noah wanted to put an end to the Dark Lord threat, he didn't like to sacrifice innocent people in the process. He learned the cost of taking a life the hard way. To be honest, it had been months since Noah slept peacefully. Every time he closed his eyes, he could see the children crying for their parents who Noah had killed. Noah used to kill people who tried to kill him. This was a dog-eat-dog world. Only ruthless and heartless people could survive. Noah used to be one in such a world until he saw the aftermath of each life he took. With every man Noah killed, the number of orphans went up. It was one of the many reasons why Noah stopped taking lives. Instead of getting used to a cruel world, Noah wanted to change it. Even though it meant fighting the whole world, Noah was ready for it. It's the spawn of the Dark Lord, Noah. It might be an innocent child now, but soon the Dark Lord's blood within the child will corrupt it. We can't take the risk of letting tiny Dark Lord run around. But teacher, I won't let the guild or anyone hurt the child until it stays innocent. If it gets corrupted by the Dark Lord as you said, we will take care of it, Noah firmly said. I may have taught you too well, Noah, Andreas sighed, but he was extremely proud of Noah. While Noah was on his way to the Azare continent, General Booth was in his room. A bright smile was plastered on his face due to Zachary and Austin's successful mission. Booth emptied a glass full of wine in a single gulp. Got you, fucker, Booth grinned. He cursed Ghost and poured another glass of wine. Your Grace, Booth heard his maid knocking on the ground. Enter, sweetie. Booth welcomed the maid into the room with an ear-to-ear grin. He started taking off his robes, preparing to feast on his beautiful maid. But his hands stopped when he saw a wooden box in his maid's hands. On top of the wooden box he saw a scroll. Your Grace, this is addressed to you. Our runmasters checked it for explosions, but they said it's clear. Did they open it? Asked Booth with a frown. They couldn't, Your Grace. They said it requires your fingerprint to open the box and this scroll. The maid put the box on the table. Looking at the box, the lust in Booth's eyes faded away. You can leave, Booth dismissed the maid. After she left him alone in the room with the box and the scroll, Booth slowly grabbed the scroll. As soon as his hand touched the scroll, several runes glowed on its surface. Booth opened the scroll and read the words. My dead Booth, the last time we met, you gave me a gift I cannot forget as long as I am alive. So I thought I should return the favor. Unfortunately, it was nowhere close to the gift you gave me, but I tried my best and am still working on other gifts for you. I hope it puts a smile on your face. I really wish I was there to see your smile. Your best friend, Ghost aka Abras. The moment Booth's eyes fell on the last words, he clenched his fist until his nails began to penetrate his skin. Blood trickled down from his palm. Shockingly, Booth's hands shivered slightly. He slowly touched the wooden box to open it. Just like the scroll, the box lit up when he touched it. A cracking sound resonated from within as though a hidden lock had been unlocked by his touch. Booth slowly opens the top of the box. To his shock, a bloody head was inside it. Booth's eyes turned red almost immediately as he picked up the head. Kevin, Booth mumbled. He closed Kevin's eyes. Judging by the terror in Kevin's eyes, Booth could tell what he must have gone through in the last moments of his life. Booth couldn't stop his body from trembling in anger. He wanted to destroy everything in the room. Although Booth and Kevin didn't share a strong bond, Kevin was still his family. He had known Kevin since he was little. The fact that someone else had tortured Kevin, cut his head, and dared to send it in a box made Booth's blood boil. Ghost? Booth roared as the table before him and the box exploded into pieces. Chapter 729 Your Grace. The maid entered the room after a while. Booth put the head back in the box and summoned Edith. Miss Edith is waiting for you, said the maid. Good. Let her in, Booth ordered the maid. Despite what happened, Booth didn't show any anger in his tone. As you wish, Your Grace. The maid bowed and left the room. Booth silently waited for Edith, staring at the snow-covered city through the window. The people of Valeria had no worries with their guardians looking over them. Unlike the other parts of Azare, the war didn't touch the land of Valeria. Booth was a great general and even greater duke than many had expected. His ruthlessness, coupled with King Maxim's financial support, turned once ordinary duchy into an extraordinary place. Many Thusians preferred to live in Valeria more than even Diamond Valley. But Booth knew the tranquility he sees is temporary. The moment Ghost stepped into his duchy, it would be thrown into war. Ghost could attack them in an all-out war. Instead he was taking his time just like Booth did to the sanctuary. It was not an understatement to say the majority of the Thusians were terrified, including the royal family. The last time Booth met Queen Valeria, she seemed as graceful and courageous as before, yet Booth could see the fear in her eyes. The loss they suffered in the Golden Port battle was slowly taking effect. Without the Golden Port, they would face hardships in bringing food to survive the winter. If that was not trouble enough, Booth read the reports that Ghost's army was planning to launch a full-scale attack on Northgard. Duke Booth. His train of thought was abruptly stopped by the gentle voice of Edith. Come in, Booth said. He slowly turned around, gesturing for Edith to take a seat before him. I have a gift for you. I received it, but I feel like you also deserve to see it, said Booth. Is that the gift? Edith pointed at the wooden boxes. As a runemaster, she could see engraved runes in the wooden box. Yes, nodded Booth. He slowly sat on his chair before sliding the box toward Edith. She took the box in her hand. For a few moments, Edith looked around the box. It felt heavy in her hands. Finally, Edith placed the box on her lap and slowly opened the top. The moment she opened the box, a pungent stench of blood hit her nostrils. Her eyes widened as she felt a chill looking at the severed head. Ah! She threw the box in the air. With a flick of his wrist, Booth controlled the box and made it safely land on it with the head still inside. Edith's face was pale. She breathed heavily. "Guess who that is?" "My nephew Kevin," Booth said without showing any signs of anger in his tone. "He went to capture that bitch of a general ghost have with the iron cage you engraved with your runes," Booth said. He was nonchalant. Edith was not in the mood to be shocked. Rather, she was too terrified. The image of the severed head, the dead eyes staring back at her, haunted her mind. Booth gave Edith some time to collect her thoughts. "I want to see the cage," said Edith. "My men are bringing the cage here as we speak. But Miss Edith, I am having doubts about your skills. If your plan to frame Ghost as the Dark Lord didn't work, we are all royally screwed. You know that, right?" Edith did not respond to Booth for a few moments. "I still believe no human could have escaped the cage," said Edith. "Your Grace," Booth heard a soldier's voice coming from outside the door. "The cage is in the backyard," said the soldier. "Miss Edith." Booth and Edith left the room without wasting time. They headed straight to the backyard where everything was covered in snow. The dummies for the soldiers to practice almost drowned in the snow. The servers were still sweeping the snow, and some mages helped them by casting a fire spell to melt the snow. When they saw Booth and Edith, they immediately stopped what they were doing and bowed. The cage was bent and looked crooked as though it was crushed by something heavy. Edith made her way to the cage. She walked around the cage. "What happened to it?" asked Edith. "Miss Edith, we found the cage under the rubble of the underground prison. Whoever attacked our men destroyed the place completely," said the soldier. Since Booth did not tell his men who attacked the Northgard trap designed for General Elia, the soldiers assumed it was an unnamed assailant who attacked the place. They didn't even know about the death of Kevin. "That explains the state of this cage," nodded Edith. Suddenly Booth creased his brows. He slowly walked to the cage and leaned forward to inspect the two bent metal bars closely. "What is that?" asked Edith, pointing at a strange-looking scale imprinted on the bar. Booth gently grabbed the violent scale and peeled it off the bar. He raised it in the air. "A scale of a naga," Booth mumbled. The scale glimmered in the light. It still radiated a faint glow. Anyone else would have mistaken the scale for a snake or a creature, but not Booth. He was too familiar with the Nagas. After all, he spent a good part of his life in Nagaland. Hence, he knew more about the Nagas than anyone in the kingdom. How did it end up in the cage? Booth asked himself. Edith quickly conjured a ball of light. When she placed the light closer to the cage, the light illuminated a handprint on each bent bar. The handprint on the bar was several times bigger than a typical human's handprint. "You doubted my skills. And now I am doubting your spy's skills," Edith said. She didn't like the way Booth ridiculed her skills. When Booth was building the cage and asking for her help, she clearly mentioned that no humans could escape the cage for 5 long hours. The plan was to capture Elia, knock her down within the cage, and transport her to Valeria to use as a hostage. Although the Nagas and humans looked the same when a Naga was in their human form, the Nagas were several times stronger when they transformed into their true form. In their true form they became the strongest race, only next to the sea folk. Some Nagas could even fight a fully grown dragon head-to-head. In other words, humans were nowhere near a Naga in terms of strength and power. So if the Naga was trapped inside a cage, he or she could break the cage with minimal effort. The report clearly stated they captured that girl. Booth recalled the report he read. His spies were no fools to mistake someone else for Ghost's general and fiancée. Booth turned his gaze toward the soldiers. "Put the cage in the storeroom," Booth ordered his men. Afterward, he quickly made his way back to his room, followed by Edith. When the two of them reached the room, Booth put the scale inside a small wooden box. "The reports don't lie. My men captured Elia, and she was the one inside the cage," said Booth. His voice and face became more serious than usual. Shock and surprise were written all over her face. She had been surprised too many times today. First, her sister revealed that she has a spirit child with Ghost. Now, Booth implicates that Elia might be a Naga. The scale Booth found and the sheer strength required to bend the bars she enhanced with runes all suggested a human couldn't have broken out of the cage. She is a Naga in human form. "That explains her powers," said Booth. "Only a few survived Gaia's slaughter, and they spread tales that almost sounded too terrifying to believe." Booth heard those who survived became insane. Even the best of his generals lost their lives to her. He always wondered how a typical human girl like her could be that powerful. Her origin as a Naga explained a lot. Fortunately, the Nagas were a race that preferred to stay in their kingdom. One could rarely see a Naga outside their kingdom. Moreover, the Nagas kept a list of their citizens who ventured outside Nagaland. Thanks to the Nagas' cautious nature, Booth had a chance to discover Elia's identity. At this point, Booth believed even her name Elia was anything but true. "I have a few contacts in Nagaland, so we'll find out who she really is," said Booth. "I have a better way." "Give me a day," said Edith. If Booth had contacts in Nagaland, Edith knew the Princess of Nagaland herself. "You care to tell me what you're planning to do?" Booth tilted his head. "Believe me, it's better this way," said Edith. Booth did not argue with Edith. A day wouldn't make a difference. Besides, regardless of Edith's plan, Booth would send scrolls to his contacts in Nagaland inquiring about the Naga with Ghost. Edith left the room after taking the box with the Naga scale. Eventually, Booth left his room for the capital. He was ordered to meet Princess Victoria in the castle. They had to plan ahead for the upcoming battles. By nightfall, Booth arrived at Maxim Barnes Castle. He was welcomed by a group of crimson-red armored soldiers who were armed to the teeth. Powerful mages and archers accompanied the knights. They led Booth to the war room where he met Princess Victoria. "Your Royal Highness." Booth dropped to his one knee facing the princess. "Rise, Duke Booth. Please call me General Booth as you always do, Your Royal Highness." A slight smile emerged on Victoria's face. Only a few people had the ability to make Victoria smile, and Booth was one of them. He practically raised Princess Victoria with her parents. In public, Booth was a stoic general, but when they were in private, Booth was like a doting uncle to Victoria. Simply put, Booth loved Victoria more than he loved anyone in his own family, including Kevin. If Victoria's head was in the box instead of Kevin's, Booth would have gone berserk and destroyed everything in his path. Chapter 730. Booth joined Victoria at the war table, where they planned to fend off Ghost and his army. At that moment, the Minister of Defense and Minister of Finance accompanied Booth and Victoria. The Minister of Defense was an old man in his late 70s. He had a long white beard and short hair. His eyes glimmered with wisdom and power. No one would guess the old man's real age because of his sturdy, muscular body. He belonged to one of the proud families in Thusia, Hearthstone. "Minster Terence." Booth greeted the old man with a nod. "Duke," Terence responded with a nod. Contrary to Terence, the Minister of Finance was a tall, fat man in his late or early 40s. His long blue hair had few strands of white while vigor glistened in his blue eyes. "Minister Gordon." Booth nodded at the blue-haired man with a slight smile. Just like Terence Hearthstone, he hailed from a prominent noble family in Thusia. In fact, Gordon was a close relation to King Maxim. He was the uncle of King Maxim Barnes himself and Calvin Howard's father. "How is Calvin nowadays?" asked Booth. After learning that Ghost was Abras, King Maxim Barnes suspended Calvin from all of his minstrel duties indefinitely. King Maxim Barnes blamed Calvin for not doing proper research on Ghost. Instead, Calvin offered the position of Thusian Alchemy Guild leader to Ghost. Maxim Barnes was furious that they paid Ghost for almost 6 months without knowing his real identity and intention. Usually, Maxim Barnes would have sent Calvin to the gallows, but he spared his life because of Gordon. Even Calvin's own family blamed him for his incompetence. Although he was on suspension, they all knew it was highly unlikely that Calvin would return to his post again. "A mess," Gordon replied with a cold look in his eyes. He showed no empathy for his son. Calvin almost brought a snake into their home, and Gordon couldn't forgive him for that. "We can inquire about each other's well-being later," coldly said Victoria. They all nodded, bringing their focus back to the map on the table. "We have completely lost control of the Golden Port," said Victoria. "General Booth, how many ships have we lost?" asked Victoria. "Almost right 100 ships, give or take. My men are still coming up with the exact number. They'll have them on your table by tomorrow evening," said General Booth. Minister Gordon gasped in shock. As a Minister of Finance, he knew how much it would cost them to rebuild the naval army, as well as the effects of losing the Golden Port. "Minister Terence, what's your plan to retake the Golden Port?" asked Minister Gordon. "Taking back the Golden Port isn't as simple as you think, Minister Gordon," Terence said in his thick accent. "The ships we can build, but we cannot recover the loss of 2 valuable generals. We lost General Hubert and Franklin. I don't have to tell you about their achievements and contribution to this great nation. I respect and mourn their deaths, but what's your point, Minister Terence? Without the Golden Port, the survivability of our citizens through the winter has hit an all-time low. We have to take back the Golden Port," Terence sighed. I understand your concern and know how important the Golden Port is to Thusia. But taking it back costs us an immense amount of resources which we cannot afford to lose now. Terence moved the figurines of soldiers from Diamond Valley to the Golden Port on the map. First, if we want to take back the Golden Port, we have to take the troops from Diamond Valley and send them to the Golden Port. Judging by our enemy's nature, they expect us to do just that so they can take over Diamond Valley without breaking a sweat. Second, even if we send the troops to the Golden Port, the terrain is unsuitable for large-scale battles. We need a naval army which we don't have anymore. The enemies have almost thrice the number of our ships after stealing most of our ships, explained Terence. Finally, even if we have an army in suitable terrain, they cannot win against a half-immortal. I still have no idea why Ghost was taking his time instead of going all in. He wants me to suffer, answered Victoria. He wants me to feel helpless. When I met him in the Aculun realm, he told me he would destroy everything Father and I built brick by brick. That's why he allied himself with our enemies and is attacking our cities one by one. Silence fell over them. The three of them didn't show any signs of anger on their faces but burned with rage inside. They all adored and almost worshipped King Barnes. Therefore they couldn't see anyone hurting him or his family. It took a great effort for Booth to stand still instead of venting his anger on Ghost's child. To turn the tides of this war, we have to take Ghost out of the picture. Without him in the front, his army would fall apart. We can pick them one by one once and for all afterward, said Terence. The Thusians were prepared to fight many fusion stage cultivators but not a single half-immortal. By reaching the half-immortal stage, Michael completely caught them off guard. If Michael was not a half-immortal, Thusians would have destroyed Michael and his army no matter the size of it. So it's a good thing you have me. Suddenly, they heard a calm voice reverberate in the room. The room trembled a bit. Booth felt the space around him distort for a moment. A small orb of light appeared a couple of meters away from the table. Soon the light transformed into a dashing elf. Anyone would be mesmerized by the elf when they see him for the first time. The elf had a perfect jaw structure, flawless, smooth skin and icy blue eyes. His golden hair added an extra layer of charm to him. The elf wore a set of armor mimicking the appearance of a dragon. The shoulders are oval, long and enormous. They were decorated with hundreds of small leather pieces, imitating the scales of reptiles. His arms were protected by chainmail rear braces which sat well under the shoulder plates. The lower arms were covered by vambraces which had a layer of chainmail covering the outer sides. The armor's breastplate section was made from many horizontal layers of leather and fur with pointed edges and decoration pieces. It covered everything from the neck down, ending at the groin. He gracefully walked toward the fore. Everyone was able to feel the intense power radiating from the elf. Gordon's jaw dropped a couple of inches when he sensed the elf's cultivation. Half-immortal stage level 5. I heard you have a ghost problem. Yours truly is here to exorcise that ghost back to the hell he came from, the elf said with a playful tone. It was obvious the elf wasn't taking Ghost seriously. General Booth, ministers, Victoria's gaze swept across the trio. This is Lord Nelder. He's here to help us on behalf of the Guardian Guild. Victoria introduced the elf to everyone in the room. You got quite the pull to make the board put a high priority mark on Ghost. I am impressed, Nelder praised Victoria. The sooner you tell me where Ghost is, the sooner I can get rid of him and go back to my castle, said Nelder. King Gunner's castle in Edgerton, Suvan, said Terence. Wonderful. Should I bring his head, or do you have anything specific in mind? This would be a good time for any requests. Just make him suffer for what he did to my soldiers and people, Victoria growled. With a simple nod, Nelder disappeared from the room as fast as he appeared. Gordon exhaled deeply. He felt like he was being crushed by an invisible mountain when Nelder was in the room. After the elf teleported out of the Thusian castle, the trio continued their battle plans. They didn't completely depend on Nelder to take care of Ghost. How long till His Majesty comes out of his seclusion? Asked General Booth. 3 more days. I will be with him for the next 3 days. General Booth, please take care of the security. I don't want anything to go wrong during Father's heavenly tribulation. I will guard the two of you with my life, Your Royal Highness, said Booth. During my absence, guard our cities as much as you can. If everything goes according to the plan, Nelder will take care of Ghost and everything will go back to the way it was. Otherwise, we have to defend our kingdom till my father comes out of his seclusion. The three of them agreed with Victoria with a bow. Although Booth had a backup plan to deal with Ghost in the form of the spirit child, he chose not to share it with Victoria. He didn't want Victoria's soft spot for Edith to come in the way of his plan. If everything fails, the spirit child might be the only way to stop Ghost. While they were discussing their defense plan, they heard someone knocking on the door repeatedly. "Who is there?" Booth asked with a tinge of coldness in his voice. "Your Royal Highness, I have an urgent report," the soldier outside the door exclaimed. Judging by the soldier's tone, Victoria had a feeling something bad had happened. "Enter," said Victoria. After hearing her order, a soldier entered the room. His face was pale and drenched with sweat. He breathed heavily as though he was running for miles. "Your Roy, skip the pleasantries and tell us what happened," said Victoria, preventing the soldier from addressing them with honorifics. "Something is attacking our soldiers stationed at the Diamond Valley." Victoria and Booth creased their brows. "What do you mean by something?" asked Booth. "We didn't see it clearly, Your Grace. Please send backup to the Diamond Valley," the soldier pleaded to Victoria. She quickly turned her gaze toward Terence. "Minister Terence, send a group of soldiers immediately to the Diamond Valley. Before I depart to my father's place, I want to know the full story of what's happening in the Diamond Valley." Chapter 731. The people of Suvan had to stay in their homes instead of roaming outside. The heavy snowfall intensified with each second. It added a grayish foggy glamour to the entire kingdom. The mournful cry of wolves echoed through the vault-still silence of the trees. A huffing wind rose up then, stirring the roofs of the wooden homes. A tinkling sound resonated as the blocks of ice pearls dropped onto the roofs. The sound was like the glassy clinking of a champagne flute, lilting and clear. Even the cultivators felt the bone-chilling coldness in the air. The snowfall passed over us and the sound intensified. The noise of snow falling was like the fut-fut-fut that ripened nuts make when they hit the ground. It wasn't the soft, sodden, swollen drops of spring but more like ball bearings were hitting the canvas roof with force. One could also hear an occasional kerplunking sound. It was caused by the ice gathered on the tent falling to the ground in a great swash of release. Michael stared at the storm getting worse through the window in his room. The storm didn't rage only outside but also inside of him. He received the news of Spirit Child's disappearance from Azazel. The only silver lining was Azazel told him Noah was on the island and most probably searching for the child. As he was pondering everything, Gaia entered the room. "I heard what happened from Azazel." Gaia grabbed his hand, consoling him. "Do you think we should start searching for the child?" asked Gaia. Michael shook his head. "No," his answer truly surprised Gaia. She expected that even if he didn't personally search for the child, he would ask one of his subordinates to find the child. Contrary to her expectation, Michael outright refused to search for the child. "I didn't drag this battle out to leave everything in the middle. Maxim Barnes is getting closer to triggering his heavenly tribulation. I have a feeling the Thusians took the child to use it as a hostage," said Gaia. "If that's the case, we'll find the child soon," said Michael. "But what will you do, Michael? What will you choose, the child or your revenge?" Revenge? Michael didn't even take a few seconds. The hatred ran deep inside Michael to the point he didn't even care about the spirit child. No matter what, he would destroy Thusia. Since Michael told Victoria if she harmed his people in any way, he would reveal the existence of the cosmic stream to the outside world. It was highly unlikely Victoria had something to do with the spirit child's disappearance. She was not stupid enough to jeopardize the cosmic stream. Even King Maxim restricted himself from harming Michael's people in Elon because of Michael's threat. Fortunately, I don't have to choose. I fully believe Noah would save the child. Besides, I told Layla don't let the child come in my way, said Michael. My lord, our attack on the Diamond Valley is over. Our new allies safely retreated to their hideouts. Michael heard Azazel's voice in his head. Good, Michael nodded. He then turned his head to look Gaia in the eyes. You have to meet our new allies and make sure they fall in line. What about him? Asked Gaia. I'll allow him to live for now. I don't think he'd be interested in serving us. Gaia exhaled deeply. She slowly cupped his face and gently kissed him on the forehead. Just think about the spirit child's matter, okay? Seeing the child in person and making a decision is way different and difficult. I know, Michael said. He slowly leaned forward to lock his lips with Gaia's when he sensed a powerful threat in his environmental scanning map. He immediately cast the wind blast. The force of wind shot out of Michael's hand, blasting Gaia several meters away from him. As soon as he sent Gaia flying, a bright beam of energy shot through the glass and hit Michael. Thanks to the responsive shield and Michael's quick reflex, the energy beam grazed the side of his chest instead of penetrating. The side of the wall slowly crumbled down due to the energy beam's power. Gaia immediately jumped to her feet. She wanted to dash forward, Go away, Michael ordered Gaia. I'll take care of this, said Michael, slowly standing up from the ground. Meanwhile, the soldiers in the castle quickly rushed outside, hearing the commotion. An unnatural sound of thunder rumbling reverberated through the sky. Because of the storm, the soldiers couldn't see the man floating in the sky above the castle. Michael cracked his neck. Without lingering inside the castle, he dashed outside through the hole in the room. As soon as he exited the room, he saw an elf floating in the sky. Glistening energy balls danced above the elf's palms. The elf looked at Michael's chest with the torn cloth. He snickered. I need to work on my aim, said the elf. You made a mistake coming here, said Michael. The elf's half-immortal stage level 5 cultivation didn't scare Michael. In fact, Michael felt pity for the elf. He could have lived a long life as a half-immortal. Instead, the elf chose to embrace the sweet death by attacking Michael. The elf, on the other hand, did not respond. He directly shot another beam from his hand. Michael swayed his body to the side, evading the beam. But the cast walls were not very fortunate. The beam destroyed the walls. Several cracks formed all over the castle. Moreover, the soldiers were sent flying just by the sheer force of the beam. Michael was surprised. To him, the energy beam wasn't deadly. However, the mortal soldiers couldn't even withstand the shockwave created by the beam. Michael realized why everyone feared a battle between two immortals. Let me guess, the Thujin sent you, said Michael. Once again, the elf shot Michael with another energy beam. The beam created an otherworldly whistling sound as it soared through the sky. Michael felt the temperature around him rise by several degrees. Besides, the beam distorted the space around him. The lightning bolts had an even more powerful effect, but Michael hadn't felt the effects of his spell like his opponents. Michael dashed out of the beam's trajectory. You have to do better than that, Michael snickered. Instead of waiting for the elf to fire another energy beam, Michael flew away from the castle. The elf quickly flew behind Michael. While chasing Michael, the elf kept firing at Michael. Both of them used their speed spells. Soon, the elf started to fire a couple of energy beams simultaneously. Michael immediately retrieved his black shield. He turned around, blocking the energy beam with the shield. The moment the white energy beam and the black shield collided, it created a powerful shock wave. An eerie sound was several times more powerful and threatening than a thunderclap that echoed through the sky. As a result of blocking the oncoming energy beam with the shield, Michael was pushed with such force that his speed increased several times. It was like a nitrous boost to Michael's speed. His hand went numb, but he kept using the shield to reach his destination faster. The elf was relentless. Even after seeing Michael blocking his attacks, he continued to bombard Michael with the energy beams. To be honest, the elf was surprised by how sturdy the shield was. He wanted to get his hands on the shield. The elf had no idea Michael was 3 levels stronger than him because Michael paid the system to lower his cultivation level. As far as the elf was concerned, Michael was at half-immortal stage level 2. Each time Michael blocked the energy beam with the shield, he was pushed back 50 to 100 meters back in lightning speed. The shield began to turn lava orange on the edges due to the energy beam's heat. Michael's hands felt numb. Nice shield, the elf said. His words echoed through the air like a thunderclap. The unfortunate village lost their houses when Michael blocked another energy beam with the shield. Soon, Michael felt the energy in the atmosphere distort violently. As a result, the grayish winter clouds turned dark. The stormy wind blew with enough speed to uproot several trees in the forest. When he fought, this was the first time Michael had seen such an effect on the environment. He could only imagine what would happen if two immortals battled it out. Now Michael realized why everyone, including the Guardians and the Council of Immortals, feared fighting the rogue immortals. They might win against the rogue immortal, but the collateral damage would be rather grave. The elf's eyes glistened with battle lust. As Michael expected, the elf slowly lost his sense of location. If he hadn't, he would have realized they were getting closer and closer to the island of Ithalon. Victoria and Booth planned to finish Ghost by sending a half-immortal. However, Michael outsmarted them by bringing their half-immortal to their own kingdom to fight. Since Michael had taken over the Golden Port, he targeted the Diamond Valley. Seeing Michael blocking his energy beams with the shield non-stop, the elf clapped his hands together. The thunderous clap produced a shock wave pushing Michael back and making him lose his balance. The elf's hands lit up as Michael sensed the elf's energy fluctuations around him skyrocket. Additionally, Michael heard an otherworldly whistling sound in the air. Michael's grip on the shield became tighter as he knew the next energy beam would be several times more powerful than the earlier ones. The moment the elf shot the energy beam, it lit up the entire dark sky. Michael heard a thunderous explosion from the elf's hands as though several grenades had gone off at the same time. The energy beam soared through the sky, cutting the sound barrier itself. Michael quickly grabbed the shield with his two hands and blocked the energy beam because the beam was too fast. Even if he had cast the Silenes, he couldn't have evaded the beam. Hence, Michael blocked the energy beam. The black shield turned orange and flew out of Michael's hands. But before flying out of his hand, the shield blocked the beam. The beam collided with the shield's surface and split into several beams. Each of the beams went in a different direction. The beams which hit the ground destroyed everything they touched. Houses crumbled down like cookies, trees turned into ashes, and citizens of Wuxia got obliterated into nothing. The people screamed in utter fear. They ran for cover while flames engulfed the buildings. Even the armored soldiers weren't spared by the beams. The reflected beams lost almost half their power, but they were still powerful enough to kill a core formation stage soldier who also wore metal plate armor. Chapter 732 Diamond Valley was the crown jewel of Ithilien before the Thusians conquered the island. This small valley was named after its famous diamond mine. The name influenced the architects to build most of the buildings in the shape of a diamond. The city itself was bordered by a forest to the north, a large frozen lake to the south, luscious grass fields to the east, and graceful mountains to the west. The people of Diamond Valley mainly lived off working in the diamond mine and crafting jewels using the diamonds they produced. The city's tropical climate and higher living standards made many prefer to live in the Diamond Valley. Most of the veteran soldiers and retired merchants chose Diamond Valley to live their last years because of its beauty and serene atmosphere. Diamond Valley's landscape was pleasing to the eyes. Luscious fields, dramatic mountain views, and jade green fields were just a sliver of brilliance it has to offer, which was the reason the foreigners adored the city like none other. Using the diamond mines, the city prospered. It wouldn't be an understatement to say that Diamond Valley filled the treasury more than the other duchies combined, thanks to the diamond mine. Even the master craftsmen in the Ara continent preferred to work with the diamonds mined in the Diamond Valley because of their quality. Not a single mine existed in the world that could produce diamonds as quality as the Diamond Valley diamonds. However, only a few knew the secret of the mine. The cosmic stream affected the diamonds in the mine, yet no one knew this, not even the previous kings of Ithilien. Over the years, the cosmic stream slowly ran into the ground, blending with the natural diamond vein in the Diamond Valley. Hence, Diamond Valley had the best diamond mine. The importance of the Diamond Valley was the reason why Terence felt reluctant to take troops away from the duchy. Granted, the Golden Port was valuable, but the Diamond Valley was more important to the Wuxian than the Golden Port. Victoria knew they couldn't afford to lose Diamond Valley no matter why. Hence, she put herself on the line to convince Oswald to send an immortal to deal with Ghost. Of course, Victoria had no intention of marrying Oswald's son. After Ghost's death, she would just order Booth to assassinate Oswald's son and make it look like someone else had done it. Unfortunately for her, Michael also knew the importance of the place. Thus, Michael picked it as his next target instead of attacking the Duchy of Valeria. To be honest, Michael didn't expect Victoria to send a half-immortal this soon. Luckily, Michael always had a plan for almost everything. Initially, Michael wanted to draw the troops away from Diamond Valley to the Golden Port and then attack the valley in full force. To build his army and a stronghold in the southern continent, he needed millions of coins or even billions. Obviously, he wouldn't be able to make money out of his restaurants and majestic stores after revealing his identity. Looting the mines clean and then selling the diamonds would take care of the financial side for some time. Unfortunately, according to the system, absorbing the cosmic energy from the stream would result in the destruction of the diamond vein in the valley. As a result, the mines might explode into pieces. Otherwise, Michael would have taken the Diamond Valley first and found a way to keep the mine to himself. The shield hit the lake below Michael. The water sizzled when the shield fell into it. It took a few minutes for the shield to cool down and return to its metallic black. In the sky, Michael's hand looked crooked. Gritting his teeth, Michael twisted his arm with a sickening crunching sound. The bone returned to its normal state as the APD healed the broken arm in a few seconds. The elf stopped attacking Michael for a few moments. Michael extended his arm toward the lake. A rune on the shield dimly glowed as the shield shot out of the water and flew straight back to Michael's hands. Michael clenched his fist as the shield disappeared into his gauntlet. "The sky is getting darker," said Michael, looking at the stormy clouds gathering above them. "Choosing not to join the council was a mistake, pal," said the elf. "Nah," Michael shook his head. "Choosing to kill me was a mistake," said Michael. Tiny golden bolts of lightning crackled around Michael's fist. They sounded like buzzing bees. Soon the crackling bolts covered his whole body. He looked like the god of lightning instead of the god of darkness. Unfortunately for the elf, he chose to attack Michael at night time when Michael would be at his strongest. If the night was not enough, the storm made the place darker. As a result, Michael was way out of the elf's league. However, the elf had no clue how strong Michael was. Whatever. The sooner I kill you, the sooner I can leave this godforsaken place. This time the elf did not use the energy beam. Instead, he raised his arm in the sky as a trident materialized in his hand. As soon as the silver trident appeared in his hand, several lightning bolts struck the trident from the sky. Soon the trident sparkled with electric energy. "You're not the only one with the aid of lightning," said the elf. "You have no idea who I am," Michael smiled. When Michael retrieved the golden spear from his space ring, a glimmer of surprise emerged in the elf's eyes. He didn't expect Michael to possess an immortal killing weapon. But the elf did not back off. Instead, he raised the spear as the bolts of lightning dancing around his trident formed an electric shield around his body. Michael and the elf dashed toward each other with their own immortal killing weapons in their hands. The two of them clashed in the mid-sky, ignoring the people on the ground. Thanks to Zanala's effort, most of the citizens evacuated the place. The people of Diamond Valley were truly lucky that Zanali expected Ghost's attack on the valley. Otherwise, she would have only evacuated the Golden Port and left the people of Diamond Valley alone. Nonetheless, some chose not to leave the duchy and they paid the price with their lives. The elf swung his trident with deadly precision and technique. Michael blocked the trident with his black shield. He then retaliated with a kick. The lightning shield around the elf crackled, blocking Michael's feet from touching the elf. However, the sheer force of his kick pushed the elf back a few meters behind. The elf was surprised by Michael's strength. Although the elf hadn't fought a fellow half-immortal in centuries, he was able to tell Michael was stronger than a level 2 half-immortal. Michael quickly cast the lightning dash to move forward to close the gap between them. He stabbed the elf through the lightning shield. He almost penetrated the shield. The elf quickly managed to swat the spear away with his trident and pointed the trident at Michael. Several bolts of icy blue lightning bolts shot out from the trident. Instinctively, Michael clenched his fist, retrieving the black shield. The bolts of lightning bounced away but not before sending Michael flying several meters back. Before Michael could regain his balance, the elf raised his trident toward the sky. The clouds rumbled above him. Countless lightning struck across the sky. The people screamed in utter terror, looking at the sky littered with bolts of lightning. They all gathered at the tip of the trident. He turned the trident, pointing it at Michael. A single dense bolt of lightning shot out from the trident. Silenes, Michael cast the spell. Everything around him slowed down. In his eyes, the lightning bolt traveled in slow motion. He swayed his body to the side, easily moving away from the lightning bolt's path without breaking a sweat. The spell lasted for a few seconds before everything returned to normal. It took a few moments for the elf to realize Michael had evaded the bolt of lightning at the last moment. His speed stunned the elf. Suddenly, the mountain in the distance exploded. Michael may have dodged the lightning bolt but didn't stop it. As a result, it soared through the sky until it hit the distant mountain in the Diamond Valley. Michael looked over his shoulder. A huge chunk of the mountain crumbled down. The smoke created by the destruction almost blanketed everything in a mile radius. Massive boulders rolled out from the mountain, crushing everything in their path. The poor trees and buildings stood no chance. Those boulders flattened them like a road roller. Talk about collateral damage, Michael chuckled. The elf was furious. He used one of his most powerful spells, yet he couldn't even inflict a small wound on Ghost. It frustrated the elf. As pouring fuel into a burning fire, Michael's nonchalant tone and words made him even more furious. Michael cracked his neck and knuckles. For some reason, the elf felt a strange fear in his heart. He looked closer at Ghost. To his surprise, his eyes completely turned pitch black. Suddenly, he felt a force restricting him, as though an invisible hand had grabbed him. The elf noticed the sky around him growing darker and darker. The elf tried to shake the invisible force away. But before he could even move an inch, Michael appeared before him. He punched through the electric shield around the elf. The shield flickered, forming several cracks. The elf felt a sharp pain in his gut. He looked down to see Ghost's fist on his chest. In a blink of an eye, his fancy robes caught flames. But the flames didn't burn in red. Instead, they were burned by black flames. Arg! The elf growled in pain. Every fiber in his body ached. Blood trickled down from the corners of his mouth. Michael didn't give the elf any time to retaliate. Instead, he slowly pushed the spear through the hole in the shield he created using the dark flames. "I told you," Michael looked the elf in the eyes. "You have no idea what I am," Michael whispered, pushing the spear slowly into the elf's chest. Chapter 733. Michael twisted the spear inside the elf's body. The elf coughed up blood. He tried to cast a spell, but the dark flames engulfing him prevented him from doing so. Michael pulled out the spear and stabbed the elf once again. Every time he stabbed the elf, the sky rumbled. Michael would have used his Soul Eater skill if it weren't for the people and soldiers on the ground. The Guardian Guild dash. The elf's words were abruptly cut short by another stab through his chest. "I will kill them too," said Michael. The light of life slowly faded away from the elf's eyes. The golden spear in Michael's hands trembled. Countless runes glowed on its surface as the elf closed his eyes. To Michael's surprise, when the elf closed his eyes, he heard the loudest thunderclap in his life. It shook the entire sky as he saw several cracks appear in the sky itself. Bright rays of light peeked through these cracks for a few seconds before they disappeared. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a half-immortal level 5 warrior. The reward is 1 million experience points and 30,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 20,000 badass points. Michael heard the system notification in his head. He ignored the system notification and focused on his surroundings. Although he had never touched the ground or cast any spells upon the city beneath him, the battle between him and the elf had left the place in ruins. He could see the people running around screaming. Buildings were either on fire or in shambles. However, Michael didn't feel any pity for the people. The Thusians had done worse for his sanctuary. At least he didn't slaughter all of them like Booth and his men did. Michael tossed the elf's body aside. He knew they would send another one or make him their priority target after the guild heard about the elf's death. Only Michael didn't give a damn. He slowly turned around toward the mountain that received the elf's beam earlier. According to the map, that's where the diamond was located. He cast the initial and flew toward the mountain. In a few moments he reached the foothill where he saw the entrance to the mine. Stop! Oh shit! As expected, a group of soldiers guarded the mine entrance. They were all at the core strengthening stage. Normally they would have been a threat. But to Michael they were as weak as ants. Michael didn't even bother to offer them an easy way out. He raised his hand, sending a crescent-shaped wind blade. Despite the metal armor and runes, the wind blade cut through them like a hot knife through butter. Blood sprayed out of their necks as their heads flew in the air. Before their bodies could hit the ground, Michael entered the mine. The mine was lit with bright orbs of light. He looked closer at the lights and found that they'd been using diamonds to light the place. Fucking bastards, Michael cursed the Thusians as he made his way deep into the mine. Along the way, Michael met a couple of patrol groups which he slaughtered without breaking a sweat. The deeper he went, the brighter the place became. Usually, uncut diamonds wouldn't sparkle. However, the diamonds in the mine shine brighter than any normal diamond. Even without any light source, they radiated a bright light from within. Michael bent down and picked a rough-shaped diamond. It was surprisingly heavy. He could feel a tinge of strange energy coming from the stone. If he was right, this energy was cosmic energy. Typical cultivators had no chance of feeling the energy, but thanks to the system and his god's blood, he was able to do so. Azazel. Michael contacted Azazel through the earpiece. In a blink of an eye, Azazel appeared before Michael. "Clean the place out. I don't want any diamond lying around after you're done," ordered Michael. "As you wish, my lord." Leaving Azazel alone in the mine, Michael left the mine through the way he came in. To Michael's surprise, when he stepped out of the mine, he saw Zanali waiting for him at the mine entrance. Unlike before, she was in her battle armor. He was covered from neck to toe with shiny red armor. Countless tiny snakes were engraved within the armor. Her red hair fluted in the wind. Behind her, elven soldiers armed to the teeth waited for Michael. They all had the symbol of the Guardian Guild engraved on their chests. Michael turned his back on Zanali. He raised his hand as a bolt of lightning shot through the mine entrance. Immediately the cave collapsed. Huge boulders crumbled down, blocking the entrance. Michael slowly turned around. "You're coming with us, Ghost?" said Zanali. "And why would I do that?" Michael innocently tilted his head. "You harbored a wanted criminal?" Zanali surprised Michael. He thought Zanali was here to arrest him because he killed the elf. Without waiting for Ghost to respond, Zanali threw a scroll toward Michael. He caught the scroll and opened it to see the face of Gaia drawn on the scroll. It was her real face. "We have proof Elia is Gaia Ashton, the former princess of Nagaland." She is wanted for several crimes. By harboring her, you have broken the law. Michael was surprised. He couldn't help wondering how Zanali managed to figure out Gaia's real identity. However, he wasn't planning to surrender as Zanali suggested to him. Are you hit in the head, Zanali? Asked Michael. I just killed a half-immortal. What makes you think you can take me down with a group of soul-refining stage warriors? And you, I can end you in a blink of an eye, Michael snickered. Lightning bolts began to appear around Michael's hands. They crackled and buzzed like a hive of bees. We don't want to fight you. Come with us and tell us where to find Gaia. If you help us find her, I will help you reduce your sentence for killing a half-immortal from the guild. The only thing that stopped Michael from ending Zanali's life then and there was his promise to Gaia. For some reason, Gaia did not want him to kill Zanali. You have 5 seconds to get out of my way, said Michael. He controlled the wind around him. The soldiers saw the wind swirl around him violently. The force of the wind pushed them back except Zanali. Time's up, said Michael, raising his hand. A powerful gust of wind shot out of Michael's hand. A crimson-red barrier appeared before Zanali, saving her from getting blasted away. But the soldiers weren't fortunate. They were sent flying like dolls. The barrier before Zanali cracked. Michael just stomped the ground as the shock wave shattered the barrier. Zanali was taken aback by surprise when he dashed toward her. She reached for her sword, but before she could do that, he lifted her up by her neck. Guardian Captain. The soldiers behind her finally regained their balance. They shouted as they rushed to save her. Do they know you're a Naga? Michael snarled. A glimmer of surprise and shock emerged in Zanali's eyes. If you piss me off more than you've already, you won't have a kingdom to be a princess. Michael squeezed Zanali's neck as her face turned purplish. He could see golden scales flicker on her skin. Michael really wanted to snap her neck and end the feud between Gaia and her once and for all. However, this wasn't his kill but Gaia's. That was the only reason why Michael chose to let her go. He tossed her to the side before shooting toward the sky. At that moment, the army stationed at the Diamond Valley reached the mountain. They prioritized saving the mine over the people. Seeing the army in one place, Michael stopped flying away. Instead, he turned around and descended down. Get out of here. Zanali shouted, sensing the energy around Ghost skyrocket. The army cast countless spells at the same time. They all attacked Michael simultaneously. But Michael didn't even flinch. The responsive shield appeared around him, blocking all the energy arrows, fireballs, icy spikes, ethereal beasts, and swords. Michael was about to cast the ultimate ignitia to bring down the wrath of hundreds of lightning bolts upon the army when he saw a meteor soaring from the sky toward him. The meteor burnt with such intensity that it made Michael's clothes smoke. His focus turned from the army to the meteor. Michael clenched his fist, covering it with the dark flames, and shot toward the meteor. The meteor cast a humongous shadow on the ground. The place darkened. Compared to the size of the meteor, Michael looked tiny. Despite the size, Michael punched the meteor with all of his strength. The meteor exploded, sending a powerful shock wave that decimated the army on the ground. Their collision sounded like an atomic bomb had gone off. Many lost their hearing due to the thunderous explosion. The meteor exploded into pieces and they rained down upon the army. Michael grabbed 2 large pieces of fiery stones in midair and threw them at the person who cast the spell. His throw had enough force to kindle the flames more. The fiery boulders soared through the sky and hit General Zachary. Michael ignored the army as his killing intent went through the roof. He recalled the face of General Zachary. He was one of the men who accompanied Booth to the sanctuary. The moment Michael saw his face, his mind went blank as overwhelming rage occupied his mind. Michael dashed toward Zachary with lightning speed. Chapter 734. Is Ghost the Dark Lord? Michael didn't even stop to think about Zachary's plan. Zachary raised his hands as a stream of fire shot out of his hands. He hoped the first would stop Michael. However, Michael ignored the fire and appeared right in front of Zachary. Without giving Zachary time to react, Michael swung his fist. Zachary raised his hands instinctively to block Michael's punch. The moment the punch connected with Zachary's hands, his hands went numb. The force of the punch sent Zachary flying. Before Michael could attack him again, Austin brought down a huge metal pillar upon Michael's head. Michael swung his leg, kicking the metal pillar away. Austin lost control of the pillar. It was at least 12 meters long and 3 meters wide. Due to the force of Michael's kick, Austin lost control of the pillar. Michael grabbed the pillar and swung it like a cricket bat at Austin. On the ground, Zanali and her men barely survived the fiery boulders raining down from the sky. Her sight was littered with blood and mutated bodies. Everywhere she turned, she saw burning bodies and bleeding soldiers. Images of Gaia's terror flashed across Zanali's eyes. All these lives, Zanali mumbled. Her heart ached to see the lives lost. Although the Thusian soldier was just doing their job, Michael didn't spare them. In his eyes they weren't innocent. This was war and everything was fair in a war. If Thusia was any other kingdom, Michael would have spared the soldiers because they did nothing wrong to him. But not Thusia. He would slaughter anyone who stands in his way of revenge against Thusia. General Austin and General Zachary hoped to slow down Ghost. Despite their soul-refining stage cultivation, they were best of the best and cultivated using cosmic energy. Booth sent them to monitor his battle with the elf. In case Ghost had defeated the elf, Booth ordered them to engage Ghost. Both Booth and the general knew they wouldn't be able to kill Ghost, but their objective was to slow him down, not kill him. To Booth's surprise, Victoria suddenly announced that King Maxim Barnes would trigger his heavenly tribulation in a few hours. They wanted to prevent Ghost from attacking King Maxim Barnes during his heavenly tribulation when Maxim would be at his weakest. Any hindrance to the tribulation could take his life. Austin's eyes went wide when seeing Ghost moving toward him with godly speed. Even a veteran like him shivered at the sight of an angry half-immortal. Michael didn't give any time for Austin to cast a spell. Instead, he grabbed Austin by his neck, retrieved his black shield, and bashed the shield against Austin's face. "Where is your general? Is he hiding like a rat?" Michael asked Austin while beating him with the shield repeatedly. "You can't stop us," Austin grinned. His teeth were completely covered in blood. He even lost some of his teeth. Yet he grinned. One could see no signs of fear or pain on his face. Meanwhile, Noah finally landed on Thusia's capital. He rushed toward the castle. "Shit, the energy fluctuation in the atmosphere is all over the place." Noah heard Andreas' words in his head. "I can sense it too." Noah looked up at the sky. To his surprise, the snowfall had stopped. Instead, a dark, powerful storm was brewing in the sky above the capital. The storm was big enough to cover the capital and the Duchy of Valeria. It was not because of the battle between Michael and the elf but because of King Maxim Barnes. "Stop right there." Noah heard a group of soldiers shouting at him. He noticed countless soldiers standing around the castle, preventing anyone from entering the castle grounds. "I am Noah Winston, Guardian Captain." Noah retrieved a gold plate engraved with the Guardian Guild's crest. Every soldier around the castle ground wore metal plate armor engraved with intricate runes. They were all armed to the teeth. Noah instantly recognized the runes. He had no doubt that these runes were the handiwork of Edith. The soldiers looked at each other for a few moments. "No one is allowed to enter the castle ground." Finally, the soldier shook his head. "I don't have time for this." Noah raised his hand as a bright light flashed across the area. Suddenly, the soldiers' bodies tensed up. A gentle layer of light covered their bodies. They stood like statues without moving an inch. Noah leaped into the air and landed right before the castle door. The two soldiers flanking the door quickly raised their spears to attack Noah. But Noah unsheathed his sword and swung it before they could even move an inch. A powerful wave of light hit the soldiers in a flash and knocked them out instantly. "Edith." Noah's domineering voice echoed through the air. His thunderous roar could be heard from every corner of the castle. The light petrification spell finally wore out as the soldiers rushed at Noah. They surrounded him from all directions. Luckily, Edith walked out of the castle door. "Stand down," Edith ordered the soldiers. "He's a friend," her voice swept across the soldiers. The soldiers reluctantly lowered their weapons. They didn't dare to piss off their princess best friend. "Return to your posts," Edith said. The soldiers slowly backed off, returning to their posts. When Noah approached her, she noticed a glimmer of uneasiness in his eyes. Coupled with the way Noah shouted at her and how he entered the castle created a bad feeling in Edith's gut. Her mind and heart both agreed that something bad had happened. "We need to talk somewhere private," said Noah. Edith had never heard Noah in such a serious mood. The usual alluring smile was nowhere to be found on his face. Edith quickly led him to her room in the castle. On their way, Noah didn't utter a word. "Where is your sister?" asked Noah. Edith closed the door behind her and looked surprised by Noah's sudden inquiry about her sister. He was one of the few who knew Layla Alden was her elder sister. Until now, Noah had never tried to get close to Layla using Edith as others would have. "She went to Valeria with the queen," answered Edith. "We need to find her," said Noah. "What happened, Noah? You seem worried." Edith gently placed her hand on Noah's shoulder. "Someone kidnapped the spirit child from the Rainbow Islands, Edith." Edith's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't believe what he had just said. Edith stumbled backward as Noah caught her before she tripped down. What? Edith's face went pale. Noah didn't beat around the bush because he didn't have much time. The spirit child had a strong connection with the Dark Lord. It might be the only way for Noah to find out who is the Dark Lord behind the mask and bring him to the light from the dark. More than that, Noah wanted to save the child. I was on the Rainbow Islands. Someone knocked out your sister's students and took the child, said Noah. But. Edith stuttered. Layla made her promise Edith wouldn't tell a soul about the spirit child or its father. This promise prevented Edith from uttering a single word. We don't have time, Edith. If you wish no harm to the child, you need to tell everything you know about the child. While Noah was on his way to meet Edith, he wondered whether Edith knew about the child or not. However, when he revealed the disappearance of the spirit child, Edith didn't act like someone who had no clue. This meant Edith knew about the child. The question in Noah's mind was how much she knew. Who took the child? Tears rolled out of Edith's eyes. For some reason she felt like it was her fault. That's what I am trying to figure out. First, you must tell me everything you know about the child. Noah shook Edith's shoulders. I can't. I made a promise to Layla. A child's life is at stake here, Edith. A broken promise is better than a dead child. Noah leaned closer to Edith and lifted her face to look her in her eyes. Trust me, just like Michael, Noah also had an effort on people. If Michael made people scared of him, Noah made people trust him. Hence, when Noah looked Edith in the eyes and asked her to trust him, she completely trusted him. His words soothed her soul and calmed her down. Finally, Edith took a deep breath. Forgive me, Layla, Edith mumbled under her breath. She began to tell everything Layla told her to Noah. Edith started the story from how Ghost and Layla met to their visit to the treacherous ocean. Andreas and Noah listened to Edith in utter shock. But Noah couldn't feel very surprised. If one could soul-walk Layla and survive, it was Ghost. But how Ghost survived didn't matter compared to the fact Ghost might be the real Dark Lord. Noah simply couldn't believe it. His whole body trembled for some reason. Noah knew the day they found the Dark Lord's real identity, everything would change. Both Andreas and Noah didn't believe the Dark Lord would go down without a fight. Noah and the Guardian Guild were nowhere close to fighting the Dark Lord. The last time Noah met the Dark Lord face to face, he almost killed Noah's family. Why did Ghost save his family if he was the Dark Lord? Noah was unable to think of Ghost as the Dark Lord. Noah heard Andreas' voice. No, I don't believe Ghost is the Dark Lord, teacher. We both knew the Dark Lord tried to kill Ghost, Noah telepathically said to Andreas. Even Andreas started to have doubts. Noah, you must find the child. I don't know how I would face Layla after this. Edith's words brought Noah back from his shocked state. Looking at the tears rolling out of Edith's face, Noah sighed. He gently wiped off the tears from her face. Booth. Suddenly, a thunderous roar reverberated through the entire capital. The castle literally trembled. Ghost, Noah recognized the voice. Edith's body tensed, hearing the echoes of Ghost's shout. Noah immediately exited the room and headed outside of the castle. Where is Booth? Asked Noah on his way outside. With Queen Valeria and my sister. Shit, Noah cursed inside. Chapter 735. Booth vs. Ghost. Noah rushed outside with Edith. The castle grounds looked darker than when he first arrived. He looked at the sky to see a storm brewing. It was like Michael brought a storm everywhere he went. The reason for the storm was the energy radiation from Michael. It messed with nature itself. The soldier poised to defend the castle with their lives. However, Ghost seemed not to give a damn about the soldiers. Noah took a closer look at Ghost to see he was carrying two bodies. Since he was so far in the sky, Noah couldn't recognize the bodies. A few representatives of Thusia dared to fly toward Ghost to negotiate. Ghost, a golden-haired man, led the group. His body jerked when Ghost threw the bodies up in the sky and dashed at him. Where is Booth? Asked Ghost. The killing intent radiating from his tone made the golden-haired man tremble. If you don't answer me, I will kill you and your family and throw their bodies in the sewer. That's a promise? Michael asked. His voice was cold. The man felt a chill running down his spine. Michael didn't even have to sue the fear toxin as the man already looked terrified. He went to Valeria. Good. Noah thought Ghost would let the man go. On the contrary, the moment the man answered Ghost truthfully, he snapped the man's neck and threw the body at the three men hovering in the sky behind him. They were stunned by the death of their colleague. Before they could do anything, Noah saw a wind blade cutting their bodies in halves. He wasn't playing anymore, Noah heard Andreas. Noah tried to shoot toward the sky to stop Ghost from taking more lives. To his surprise, Andreas stopped his body from doing so. "We don't know enough about Ghost and you are not ready to fight a half-immortal," Andreas growled. At that time, Ghost disappeared into the clouds. He caught the bodies he threw in the sky in midway. "We need to go to Valeria," Edith said. She panicked. Although she had seen Ghost murder people, his tone was strange. He seemed really mad. "He'll go there. You go to Diamond Valley, get Zanali and find a way to evacuate everyone in the capital and Valeria," Noah ordered Edith. With a flick of his wrist he took out a teleportation scroll. "Take this. It will get you to Diamond Valley," Noah gave the scroll to Edith. Without wasting any time, Noah shot toward the sky like an arrow from a bow. He flew in Ghost's direction, leaving a light trail. As he was leaving the capital, a group of holy guards from the church approached the castle. Finally, the Holy Church received the recording where the Blood Prince admitted working with King Maxim. Leaving the capital, Michael headed straight toward the Duchy of Valeria. It was time to end Booth's pathetic life. Duchy of Valeria, previously known as Bernia, was a beautiful countryside with hills and lush green fertile land. The terrain was littered with small ponds, lakes and majestic rivers. Ever since Booth became the Duke of Valeria, he transformed it into a powerhouse with tourism, businesses and farming. In a few months under his rule, the Duchy of Valeria became a tourist destination. King Maxim named the duchy after his wife, Valeria, because when he first visited the place, he was mesmerized by its natural beauty. It reminded him of the first time he laid his eyes on Valeria. Most of the population of Valeria was concentrated around the castle on top of a hill. On the hill there were two castles. One was recently built by Booth, and the other belonged to the royal family of Ithalin. From either castle, one could see the entire Valeria and the adjacent duchy Diamond Valley. Unlike Booth's castle, the castle of the Ithalin royal family had 6 strong round towers built on various tactical spots for an ideal defense. They were connected by reinforced, heavy walls made of yellow stone. Refined windows were scattered generously across the walls in an asymmetric pattern, along with symmetric holes for archers and artillery. A great gate with broad metal doors, a drawbridge and strong defenses protected the castle grounds. Almost all the citizens of Valeria lived surrounding the castle. Hence, small buildings, houses and other structures populated the grounds outside the castle walls. This castle had clearly stood the test of time. The walls' rocks were aged and vines and plants grew inside the cracks. Several builders were working on renovating the castle. Booth's castle was at least double the size of this castle. Inside this smaller castle, Queen Valeria headed for her room, following General Booth. To her surprise, he was in his famous battle armor forged from the scales of a royal dragon. The armor had a flat top helm, half a pointed face guard and 2 pointed openings for the eyes. Attached to the forehead area was a longhorn. The shoulders were rounded, tall and enormous. They were decorated with a wolf's head on each side. The rest of the armor was made from many layers of smaller scales of a crimson-red dragon. It covered the entire front and back side, but the attachment straps left the sides under the arms exposed. "Why am I here and not with Victoria?" asked Queen Valeria. "This is the safest place you can be, Your Royal Highness," said Booth. "Why is that?" asked Valeria. "Because this is my domain," Booth said. He didn't dare to say he has the spirit child in his castle as a protective measure against Ghost. Because Layla was with them, Booth had to bring them to this castle instead of his own. He was ordered to keep Queen Valeria safe until King Maxim Barnes completed his heavenly tribulation. If Booth was at the capital, Ghost might attack them outright, interrupting the heavenly tribulation. Therefore, Victoria planned to keep Ghost as far as possible from the capital. Victoria guarded the fact Maxim Barnes would trigger the heavenly tribulation in a few hours with her life. Only Booth and a few closest members of King Maxim Barnes knew about this. Even Michael thought it would take a few days to trigger the heavenly tribulation. Eventually, Booth, Layla and Queen Valeria reached the room designated for her. Layla could sense countless runes around the room. But she doubted they would keep Queen Valeria safe if Ghost decided to kill her. After seeing the anger in his eyes, she was unsure whether he would let Valeria live. Anyone else might forgive Valeria and only kill Victoria and Maxim Barnes but not Ghost. The cozy room had one large bed with comfy red blankets. The fireplace burnt, radiating the needed warmth to fight the coldness in the air. Layla could hear the howling wind and noticed the snowfall getting worsened by the second through the window. Judging by the look of the weather, anyone could tell a storm was not far. Booth, Queen Valeria looked Booth in his eyes. For the first time, Valeria saw a hint of uneasiness in his eyes. Not that Booth worried about his life but Victoria's and her family's. He was strong but not strong enough to take on a half-immortal. "Are you worried?" asked Queen Valeria. She knew Booth from little. They practically grew up together. So it wouldn't be an understatement to say Booth was kind of Valeria's best friend. Deep down, she blamed herself for turning a once innocent, sweet little boy into a killing machine. If she hadn't introduced Booth to Maxim Barnes, Booth would have lived his life in peace and never would have destroyed the sanctuary under the order of Maxim Barnes. "Your Highness, why would I be worried?" Booth shook his head. Layla was not in the mood to see the two of them whine. As far as she was concerned, they were just facing karma. She walked toward the window. The people of Valeria were still here. Apparently, Booth rejected the idea of evacuating his people as it would show a sign of weakness. Until now, Victoria or Booth didn't think Ghost would be ruthless enough to harm innocent citizens. In Booth's mind, these people were like a protective shield for him. Neither of them knew how utterly wrong they were. "Nothing will happen to you or anyone as long as I am here, Your Royal Highness," said Booth. "We just need a few more hours. After His Majesty comes out of his heavenly tribulation, he will take care of Ghost himself." "Don't be too sure," thought Layla, still looking at the city outside. "Ghost is not a fool. He knows interrupting the heavenly tribulation is the best way to ensure his victory," Layla said to herself. Who is with Victoria? Queen Valeria was worried sick about her daughter. After all, Victoria was Ghost's main target. Suddenly they all heard a rumbling noise in the sky. Layla looked at the sky to see several flying ships on the horizon. Valeria and Booth joined Layla at the windows. Booth could vaguely see the symbol of Guardian Guild on the sails. The Guardians. Queen Valeria looked a bit relieved to see the Guardians finally making their appearance. At this point she could take any backup she receives. The flying ships slowly sailed toward the castle. Layla could count 12 ships. However, they didn't seem like they were built for war. Instead, these ships were built to carry large amounts of cargo. To be honest, Layla was surprised to see the Guardian ships. It was not a secret the Guardians were financially in crippled state due to their affair with the vampires. Since they had sent these ships despite their political feuds among themselves, Layla could tell someone powerful and influential has involved in this. Mutrad stood on one of the ships. He was in Thusia to capture the Dark Lord as he received a piece of news that the Dark Lord would make his appearance in Thusia from an anonymous source. Since Mutrad had no other clues to follow, he had no choice but to come to Thusia. On his way, he noticed the destruction caused by Ghost at Diamond Valley. He almost turned the entire duchy into ruins. "Go down and evacuate the people as soon as you can." Mutrad turned his gaze over to the red-haired girl on the ship next to him. She managed to put together a team to save the people in a short amount of time. Mutrad was surprised to see a non-crooked guardian in the guild. Chapter 736. Booth vs. Ghost 2. Mutrad noticed the Guardians jumping down from the ship to evacuate everyone in Valeria. He couldn't care less of the people. The only reason he was here was to capture the Dark Lord, or at least get a good look at the Dark Lord with his own two eyes. After hearing from his elders how powerful the Dark Lord was when he attacked Ghost in Royal Land, Murad doubted he could stand a chance against the Dark Lord. Unless his elders bring in the ancestors who have been cultivating in seclusion for centuries, no one he knew could stop the Dark Lord. Compared to the Dark Lord, all the other threats seemed childish in his eyes. "We have no time, people. Bring everyone you can to the ships before he arrives," Zanali's dominant voice echoed through the air. Until she saves the people of Thusia, she chose to forget about apprehending Gaia. After Zanali stopped barking orders, everything became deathly silent. This was an eerie silence. The calm before the literal storm. A sudden thunderclap cut through the silence. The sky kept rumbling. Mutrad slowly turned around. He noticed the horizon turning darker and darker. Icy blue lightning struck across the sky, forming a bright web of light in the otherwise dark sky. Even from a mile away, Mutrad could feel the intensity of the approaching storm. The snowfall stopped as though it was terrified of what was coming. The howling wind gradually sounded louder and louder. It brought enough force to make the ships tremble. Murad had never seen or experienced such an intense storm before. It was early in the morning, yet no one would believe that. The darkness made the day look like night. The storm slowly approached them. The trees leaned to a side, almost getting uprooted by the wind. Even Mutrad had to hold onto the ship's rail to prevent himself from losing balance. The gentle light peeked through the winter clouds slowly disappeared. Instead, darkness occupied the sky. Everyone, including Mutrad, thought the storm created this darkness. However, it was the darkness that created this storm. When the god of darkness was furious, nature itself suffered his anger. Only a few minutes later did Mutrad notice a figure beneath the storm clouds. He was surrounded by crackling golden lightning bolts. His hair stood up due to the electricity in the air. As seconds passed by, it became harder to keep the ship steady. The wind was too powerful. "He is here," Zanali shouted. All the guardians and Mutrad saw Ghost surrounded by crackling lightning bolts. He was literally bringing a storm to the Thusians. When Ghost flew past the grass field around Valeria, his speed uprooted the trees on his way. The trees flew chaotically in the air like paper birds. If the storm was not bad enough, many lightning struck the ground. Mutrad noticed the trees that survived the wind turned into ashes when lightning struck them. All the elements wreaked havoc in Valeria. The captain of Mutrad's ship turned the rudder using all his might. He finally managed to move the ship away from Ghost's path. Mutrad kept his hand in front of his eyes to stop the dust from getting into his eyes. The closer Ghost got to them, the more violent the wind became. He only got a glimpse of Ghost before he flew past Mutrad's ship. Mutrad's ship barely managed to avoid him. Something trickled down Mutrad's cheek. He whipped it off and brought his hand before his eyes. Blood? Mutrad didn't think the blood came from his face. He closed his eyes for a moment, replaying the image of Ghost flying past him. His mind vaguely remembered a body in Ghost's hand. He realized the blood must have come from the body. Within the castle, Layla saw Ghost getting closer to the castle. Booth shielded Queen Valeria with his body as the royal guards surrounded the castle to fight Ghost. Zanali, on the other hand, leaped to Mutrad's ship. "Aren't you going to help them?" asked Zanali. "It's not my duty to meddle in a war between the kingdoms," Mutrad shrugged. "So you're going to stand here and do nothing? Then why did you come here?" Exnali looked furious. "That's what I am exactly going to do," Mutrad calmly said. He didn't give a damn about this war, especially when the Thusians started it. There are countless people who are worse than the Dark Lord. But you need him to be the hero. Zanali's words made Mutrad frown. She stood on the edge of the ship and turned her head slightly. "A true hero is one who chooses to save lives than fight his foe," said Zanali before diving down. At that moment Edith and Noah appeared in the sky behind Booth's castle. The moment Noah arrived at Valeria, he was greeted by the approaching storm. He immediately raised his hand as a wave of light swept across the land, including the two castles. There, Noah pointed at the smaller castle behind Booth's castle. He and Edith rushed toward the castle. Many soldiers of Booth ascended to the sky to form a human shield around the castle. Mages began to cast barrier spells as a giant glowing dome appeared around the two castles. They hoped the energy shield would slow down Ghost. They were all ordered to keep Ghost busy for a few hours until their king finished his heavenly tribulation. Everyone hoped the heavenly tribulation would last for 5 days, like Ghost's heavenly tribulation. The golden barrier glistened in the darkness. A couple of fusion stage warriors hovered behind the barrier to fight Ghost. Although they knew they don't stand a chance against Ghost, they still obeyed General Booth's orders. They were soldiers and it was their duty to follow their generals no matter the outcome. When Michael was just 50 or so meters away from the barrier, dark beams shot out of his eyes and struck the barrier. The barrier itself trembled as several cracks formed around the point where Michael's dark beams hit it. Soon the barrier shattered, creating a meter-radius hole in it. Layla stepped aside from the windows, looking at something soaring through the air. The window shattered as something landed on the floor with a loud thud. "Arg!" Queen Valeria shouted. They all saw two bodies flayed off their skin lying on the ground. One body had the name Austin and the other had Zachary engraved and burnt in their chest. Booth had spent decades with Austin and Zachary. But at that moment she couldn't recognize either of them. Layla was stunned by how ruthlessly Ghost killed them. As a healer she could tell they were flayed alive. She never expected Ghost was capable of such violence and brutality. "Booth!" A thunderous roar shook the entire castle. The soldiers trembled. Michael's gaze was fixed on the castle. Using his X-ray vision he could see everyone in the room. He was furious beyond words. Before killing Austin and Zachary, he learned it was none other than Booth who ordered them to kidnap the spirit child as a safety measure. The two generals managed to keep Booth's location a secret until Michael began to flay their skin off alive. Pity they didn't know the location where Booth is keeping the child. But Michael planned to extract the information from Booth one way or another. Seeing no one coming out of the castle, Michael clenched his fist. Immediately, golden bolts of lightning covered his fist. They crackled around his hand like buzzing bees. The mages poured their energy into their spells, strengthening the barrier. The hole created by Michael's eyes of doom slowly closed up. Michael raised both his hands toward the barrier as a lightning bolt shot out from each hand. The moment the lightning bolts hit the barrier trembled. Ripples appeared in the barrier. "If I come there, I will kill everyone inside," Michael threatened Booth. The mages sweated uncontrollably. All of them shivered, trying to keep the barrier intact. However, the barrier slowly lost its glow. Many cracks appeared in the barrier. His eyes slowly turned black before the dark beams shot out of his eyes. He used Ignitia and Eyes of Doom simultaneously. Instead of focusing the beams on where the lightning bolts hit, Michael armies the beams at one of the mages. Since the dark flame strengthened Eyes of Doom, it penetrated the golden barrier faster than the lightning bolts. "Jurj," a mage coughed up blood. He looked down to see the dark beams penetrating through his chest. He fell down from the sky dead. Another mage fell down from the sky with a hole in his chest. Michael's beam cut through the golden barrier and killed several mages. Ultimately, the barrier flickered as the lightning bolts shattered the shield. Michael was about to enter the castle through the broken window when Booth decided to show himself. Finally, Michael and Booth met each other after almost 2 years. The last time they met, Booth almost beat Abras to death. However, when the two of them fought, Abras was mortally injured. It wasn't a fair fight just like now. The dark beams and the crackling lightning bolts disappeared from Michael's body. Silence once again enveloped the place. Only the howling wind dared to raise a sound. "Where is the child?" asked Michael. A devilish grin emerged on Booth's face. "Believe me when I say this, if you harm a single hair of anyone in the royal family, you won't find the child ever," said Booth. Noah watched their interaction from the ground. He was helping Zanali evacuate the people. Suddenly, Michael disappeared from Booth's sight. The soldiers were startled by Ghost's sudden disappearance. To Booth's shock, he appeared once again with Queen Valeria in his hand. Booth was stunned. "You will die whether you tell me where the child is or not." Michael squeezed Valeria's neck as her feet frantically squirmed. "The question is, are you willing to let her die?" asked Michael. Looking at Michael squeezing the life out of Valeria, Edith tried to fly toward him, but Noah stopped her. He listened to the conversation between Ghost and Booth and concluded that Booth was the one who took the child. Noah wanted to stop Ghost, but Andreas had other plans. Andreas wasn't willing to let Noah fight Ghost and die before they could confirm for sure that Ghost is the Dark Lord. Even if they confirmed it, Noah wasn't strong enough to fight him. Deep down, Andreas wanted Ghost to kill Valeria because he wanted Noah to see what he's capable of. Unless Noah truly believed that the Dark Lord is an evil that must be uprooted, he wouldn't have the resolve to defeat him. Chapter 737. Booth vs. Ghost 3. Seeing their queen in mortal danger, the soldier rushed out of the golden dome. Some dashed at Michael with their swords raised while some cast spells. However, the moment they came out of the dome, a circular wave shot out of Michael. The soldiers screamed as they turned into ashes in a split second. Queen Valeria's face turned purplish. Her legs slowly stopped moving. "Stop!" Booth cried. "I will kill that child if something happens to her," Booth roared. Hearing their words, Layla shivered. Ghost and Booth were talking about a child, and fear clenched her heart for some reason. She flew out of the hole to meet Ghost. She wanted to know whether her child was safe or not. Booth noticed Layla flying towards them. With lightning speed, Booth grabbed Layla and put a dagger in her throat. Layla was caught off guard. Not only her, even Noah and Edith didn't expect Booth to make such a move. "Now I have the mother and the child," Booth growled as Michael loosened his grip around Valeria's neck. Layla's body trembled. The temperature around them dropped by several degrees. Her calm eyes turned bloodshot. Soon, her bloodshot eyes turned watery. She may be a cold, tough woman, but she was also a mother. So when her child was in danger, she couldn't be her usual self. Seeing the tears rolling out of Layla's eyes, Michael's killing intent shot through the roof. "Where is my child?" asked Layla with a stuttering voice. "Booth, you kidnapped a child?" Valeria asked Booth. She was still in Michael's hold. "It's for everyone's safety, Your Highness. This is wrong, Booth. I order you to release the child this instant." Queen Valeria's words warmed the hearts of the Thusian soldiers. Their courage to rescue such a kind queen grew out of bonds in their hearts. "Sorry, Your Highness. I can't do that. As long as His Majesty comes out of his seclusion, I won't release the child." Layla clenched her fist. Michael realized she was trying to get out of Booth's hold. However, Michael looked Layla in the eyes, wordlessly telling her to stand down. Even if Michael controlled the spider on Layla's neck and made it bite Booth, there was a high chance of Booth cutting Layla's throat. The blade in Booth's hands was engraved with various runes. He couldn't take the risk of letting Booth cut her throat and then try to heal her. Layla. Suddenly they all heard a panicked voice. They looked in the voice's direction to see Edith and Noah ascending to the sky. Let her go. Edith screamed at Booth, but Booth didn't even look Edith in the eyes. Are you happy now, Edith? Asked Michael. You successfully endangered a child and your sister's life with your naivety and loyalty towards Wuxia. Edith couldn't find a word to respond to Ghost. His voice was filled with such rage and anger that everyone around him felt it hard even to take a breath. You cannot blame her for your fault, said Noah. I can, when she was the one who forced Layla to tell her about the child, which led to one of his lackeys eavesdropping on their conversation, said Michael. Everyone calm down, Zanali joined the scene. We don't have to resort to violence. Just let Queen Valeria and Lady Alden go. We can find a peaceful solution to all this. Zanali tried to calm everyone down. She saw hundreds of soldiers around her. Once Ghost had started to wreak havoc, who could tell how many lives would be lost as collateral damage? Booth, I am ordering as your queen. Let her go and release the child this instant. Queen Valeria raised her voice. However, Booth just shook his head. Layla looked at Michael. Every fiber in her body told her to fight back for her child's life, but Michael ordered her not to move an inch. Trust me. I won't let anything happen to you or the child. Layla suddenly heard Michael's words in her head. She was shocked. Layla didn't know how he was able to talk to her telepathically despite her mental fortitude. Don't try to be a hero, bitch. You stood there watching him slaughter people without lifting a finger. You incompetent fools could do nothing. The Guardians are just a waste of space, Booth growled. You started this war, Zanali snarled. And you did nothing then and you're doing nothing now, Booth snickered. Noah couldn't disagree with Booth because Booth was right. This was the reason why Noah decided to reform the Guardians from the ground up. It was once an institute that instigated peace and kept the world in order. Now, the Guardian Guild was nothing but a corrupted organization with a bunch of political snobs running the place to the ground. If he had been in charge of the Guardian Guild, he would have stopped Maxim Barnes from waging war against other kingdoms in the first place. But the guild let King Maxim Barnes do whatever he wanted, saying the guild had no right to meddle with the kingdom's affairs. This will end in only one way. The destruction of Wuxia. You just ensured the death of every single person you care for, said Michael. His words made every single Wuxian soldier panic. Please let her go, Edith pleaded as tears gushed out of her eyes. Michael noticed Noah slowly moving his hands behind his back. Noah looked at Michael from the corner of his eyes as though he was trying to say something. Michael could tell Noah was about to cast a spell to stop Booth. Although Noah was his mortal enemy, Michael knew Noah wasn't incompetent. Hence, Michael trusted Noah to get Layla out of Booth's hold. Everyone stood still without even lifting a finger. Layla felt the cold blade against her throat. The orb of light shined brighter and bright behind Noah's back. Noah made a fist and released his index finger, then his middle finger as though he was counting. Michael noticed his fingers, and when Noah released his ring finger, completing the count of 3, a bright light flashed across the sky. The light petrified everyone that it touched except Michael. In a blink of an eye, Noah dashed at Booth, grabbed Layla and dashed away from him. Everything happened in a split second. Unfortunately, the petrification lasted long for only a second on Booth. He didn't even realize what had just happened. His eyes widened seeing Layla with Noah. Noah immediately tried to dash toward Ghost to save Valeria, but he was too slow. Michael tightened his grip around Valeria's neck as her head exploded into a bloody red mist. No! Booth's roar echoed through the sky and made the entire kingdom tremble. Valeria's blood splashed across Noah's face, turning his white robes red. The soldiers were stunned by the brutal yet sudden death of Queen Valeria. Her lifeless corpse slowly fell down into the sky. Without wasting any second, Michael dashed at Booth. Wind blast! He cast a spell while moving toward Booth and blasted away everyone around him, including Noah. Noah was thrown off balance and so was everyone. Booth and Michael clashed in the middle. Michael didn't cast any spells but used his fists to beat Booth. The two of them flew through the castle. Boulders and stones crumbled down as they cut through the castle. Michael punched Booth without holding back. Just like Michael, Booth too didn't cast any spells because he was too furious to do so. The castle trembled while the towers slowly tilted to the side, threatening to crumble down. Get everyone to safety. Zanali roared. She noticed hundreds of soldiers who were unable to fly standing on the ground. Layla. Edith immediately dashed toward Layla and embraced her. Where is my child? Layla raised her voice. Noah. Edith turned her gaze toward Noah. If anyone could find the child, it was Noah. The castle tower finally collapsed down as the soldiers on the ground tried to run away as fast as they could. However, the tower fell right on top of them, crushing them to death. Zanali was able to save some but not all. At that moment, Noah had two choices: saving the child, which might be somewhere in the castle, which was currently crumbling down, or saving the soldiers. Save the child, Noah. The soldiers and the people have Zanali and the guardians. The child has no one, said Andreas. Noah didn't waste any time because every second cost a life. He didn't think he could stop Ghost and Booth from destroying the castle completely. In fact, he couldn't even see them. Teacher, you are a spirit. You can sense another spirit, right? Noah asked Andreas. Layla has given the child a body, but I can manage to find it. But it will take all my soul energy. I won't be here to help you until you replenish my soul energy, Noah. Find the child, teacher. I got your back. Andreas left Noah's body in a flash of light. The light blinded everyone for a moment. Layla noticed a thin layer of light covering the area around her. Layla was about to rush into the castle when Noah stopped her. Found the child. Follow me. Noah led the two young women into the crumbling castle. The castle trembled uncontrollably. The interior of the castle was in a mess. All the portraits fell off the wall and many pathways were blocked by broken walls. Some parts even caught on fire. The fire slowly spread through the castle. While following the light trail only Noah could see, he saw his path was blocked by boulders. With a single punch, Noah destroyed the boulders, clearing the path. Noah could still feel the effects of the battle between Ghost and Booth. The screams of the soldiers from the outside echoed through the castle walls. Many who were trapped in the castle ultimately lost their lives. Even with several dozen guardians and Zanali, they couldn't save all the Thusians. Noah wanted to stop hearing the cries for help. The echoes of their howls made Noah tremble with anger and helplessness. How far? Edith asked. We are getting closer, said Noah. He led the girls into the dungeon. Many of the steps crumbled down in front of their eyes. The torches lit the dark path to the underground dungeon. The area sickened Layla. She couldn't even imagine what her child is feeling in a place like this. They climbed down the spiral steps as fast as they could. Suddenly, the wall nearby shattered, almost robbing them of their balance. A powerful gust of wind went from one end to another. Noah could swear it was Ghost and Booth fighting like madmen. They endangered the life of the child trapped within the underground prison because of their anger. Harry! Layla's shout echoed through the dark dungeon. No one responded from the dark dungeon as they climbed down the stairs. The eerie silence brought tears out of Layla's eyes. Mother! Finally, a child's voice emerged from the dark underground. Chapter 738. Booth vs. Ghost. Final. Michael and Booth did not give a damn about their surroundings. No one could see the two of them but a blur. All the crashes tore Michael's shirt and long coat into the castle. His body had several cuts. Booth looked worse. His armor may have protected his body, but Booth's face looked swollen and bloody. Michael grabbed Booth and shot toward the sky. For a few moments, the destruction on the ground level stopped. Using this momentary stop, Zanali quickly ordered her men to take the civilians to the ships. Thunder rumbled in the sky. Mutrad saw Ghost and Booth going all out in the sky. Arg! Booth roared as he punched Michael in the face. He felt like he was punching a concrete wall. Still, Booth didn't stop. He vented all his anger on Michael's face. He covered his fist with sparkling white energy. Every punch he threw had enough force to destroy a building. Up to this moment, neither of them cast any spells. This was a bloody street fight rather than a battle between two cultivators. Casting a spell could finish the battle sooner than Michael wanted. So he chose not to. He had been suppressing his anger for almost 3 years. Hence he wanted this fight to be bloody, brutal, and long. Michael took all Booth's punches and spat the blood out. After letting Booth punch him almost 20 times, Michael finally grabbed Booth's fists. He headbutted Booth, breaking Booth's nose with a sickening crunch. He grabbed Booth's left ear and ripped it off. Michael wasn't using any fancy kicks, punches, or technique. Instead, he fought with his primal rage. Booth growled in pain as Michael threw his ear into the air. Michael slapped Booth with the same bloody hand. The slap sent Booth flying onto one of the guardianships. All the captains realized it was too dangerous to stay afloat near the two of them. Booth crashed onto the ship, making the ship tremble violently. Michael shot toward Booth with the intention of stomping his chest. Booth managed to roll away at the last second, barely evading Ghost's feet. Michael's feet broke through the upper deck as he got stuck. Booth kicked Michael on the back of his head. When his leg made contact with Michael's head, it created a clattering sound as though Booth had kicked a metal pillar. Even though Michael was a half-immortal, a light flashed across his eyes. The cosmic energy made Booth extremely powerful. If Michael hadn't reached level 8 of the half-immortal stage, Booth would have had the chance to really hurt Michael. The Guardians panicked seeing Michael and Booth on their ship. Every time Booth kicked Ghost, the ship swayed left and right. The captain could barely keep the ship afloat. Michael suddenly grabbed Booth's leg and shot toward the sky from the ship. He swung Booth against the ship's sail mast with enough force to split the mast in half. Booth coughed up blood as Michael picked up the broken sail mast. It was at least 10 feet long, thick log, and he brought it down on Booth. Booth was on the ground. He blocked the sail mast instinctively. Mutrad quickly held onto the rails tighter. The sail mast hit Booth with such force that it split the entire ship in half. Seeing the strength of a half-immortal freaked out Mutrad. He had heard about how strong a half-immortal could be, but seeing it with his own eyes stunned him. He lifted the sail mast and hit Booth like it was a stick. When the Guardians built the ship, it took 5 fusion stage cultivators to raise the sail mast, yet Michael lifted it with his one hand. Booth's dragon armor cracked. The destruction of the ship caused a dust cloud. All the Guardians on the ship flew away, but the poor souls who weren't at the core formation stage fell to their death. Their cries still echoed through the air. Michael shook his body with pure rage as all the cuts on his body closed up. He tore off the shirt and long coat and threw them away. After getting hit by the mast, Booth fell through the crack. From the ground, Zanali saw 2 giant halves of the ship soaring down the sky. She immediately shot toward the sky to destroy the 2 halves before they hit the ground. To Zanali's shock, Ghost grabbed the edge of the 2 halves. He lifted them up. Mutrad was completely caught off guard. His eyes widened. "Don't tell me," Mutrad mumbled, seeing Ghost raising the 2 giant halves of the ship. Michael's body turned reddish. Every muscle in Michael's body bulged up. Even for a half-immortal, raising a giant flying ship was not an easy feat. The ship weighed at least 800,000 tons. The cargo ships were one of the biggest ships in the Guardian Guild. Seeing Ghost lift the halves using his raw strength freaked out every single one, including Mutrad. He had never seen such a humongous display of strength before. Michael threw each half at Booth. The weight of the halves, coupled with the friction in the air, lit the pieces. Like 2 fiery meteors, the 2 halves soared down the sky. Booth's eyes widened. He wanted to fly away, but the injury he sustained prevented him from doing so. The first half hit Booth and the second one hit the first half, doubling the speed. The combined pieces soared down the sky and finally hit the ground. The moment they landed on the ground, the collision force formed a crater with a half-a-mile radius. The shock wave destroyed everything in another half-mile radius from the crater. The ground itself formed cracks in all directions. Half of the duchy was turned into a ruin by Michael and Booth. Still, Michael wasn't done with Booth. He dashed down from the sky to find Booth among the debris. Under all the rubble, Booth remained still. He couldn't move a muscle. The images of him and Valeria playing as children flashed across his eyes. When death was at his doorstep, Booth regretted many of his life's decisions. The biggest regret was not taking a brass head. One head cost another. He could see Valeria's kind and gentle smile. She did nothing wrong. Among everyone in the royal family, she was the only one who tried to stop Maxim Barnes from slaughtering everyone in the sanctuary. Instead, she opted for diplomatic relations with the sanctuary. "She didn't deserve to die," Booth mumbled. "Wake up. You have to save my daughter," Booth heard Valeria's voice in his head. Strangely, the voice sent a bolt of electricity through Booth's body. He felt revitalized. The light of life immediately returned to his eyes. His mind sent cosmic energy to every corner of his body and healed his wounds from within. The magical cosmic energy came to Booth's aid once again. Booth roared, lifting the debris up just enough for him to roll away. The debris flew in all directions as Booth punched through them. Once again, Booth and Ghost clashed in midair. Even after suffering so many devastating attacks, Booth fought like an enraged beast. His ferociousness surprised Mutrad. The 2 of them once again shot toward the castle grounds at lightning-quick speed. They kept exchanging blows while flying at high speed. Finally, they landed on the ground. At that time, Noah exited the castle. He saw Ghost holding Booth's head against the ground and flying forward. Michael scraped Booth's face using the ground. He suddenly threw Booth up high and flew toward him. In the mid-sky, crackling lightning bolts coiled around Michael's fist. He punched Booth toward the ground. Even though cosmic energy revitalized Booth's body and gave him the strength to fight, Michael was too strong. Cosmic energy couldn't close the gap between them. A thunderous shock wave pulsated in the sky after Michael punched Booth. Blood and spit flew out of Booth's face. The dragon armor he wore completely shattered, revealing Booth's blood-stained body. The houses that were fortunate to survive the initial shockwaves when Michael and Booth destroyed the castle crumbled down. When Michael landed beside Booth, not a single building in Valeria remained intact. Their battle left the duchy in ruins. Smoke and cries of people filled the air. Everywhere Noah turned, he saw nothing but destruction. The sky itself split open, pouring down rain to put out the flames. Yet, Michael's eyes still glimmered with rage and killing intent. He slowly walked toward Booth, who tried to crawl away. To the rain that stopped the flames from engulfing the duchy, it failed to put out the fire within Michael's heart. The anger within burned as hot as ever. Most of the Thusian soldiers who guarded the duchy were either on the guardianships or under the rumbles. Even the guardians trembled to even look Ghost in the eyes. They had never seen such a devastating battle in their lives. The duchy seemed like a violent storm had passed by. Noah took a step forward to stop Ghost from killing Booth. Whatever Booth had done, killing him wasn't justice but murder. However, Noah felt dizzy. The world around him began to spin. The effects of Andreas leaving his body and losing the soul energy took a toll on Noah. Everyone was focused on Ghost and failed to notice Noah collapsing down. The rain washed down all the blood off Michael's body. He bent down and lifted Booth by his neck. "Revenge has its own taste, doesn't it?" asked Michael. Booth lost all the strength in his body. Booth's handsome face was completely messed up by Michael. Half of his face had no skin whatsoever. "I am the vengeance of 158 people you brutally murdered in front of my eyes." Michael slowly squeezed Booth's neck. "Valeria's death is nothing compared to what I did do to Victoria," said Michael. No one dared to utter a word or even take a step forward. "Take solace in knowing you will meet everyone you care for in the afterlife soon." Michael grabbed Booth's head. The people felt a chill running down their spine when they heard flesh tearing. In a few seconds, Ghost ripped off Booth's head from his body. Blood gushed out of the neck, splashing on Ghost's body. Zanali took a step back in utter fear seeing the severed head in Ghost's hand. The fact that Gaia might come seeking revenge with the monster before her eyes scared the shit out of Zanali. Michael dropped the head and stepped on it, crushing it into a paste. He turned his gaze toward Booth's headless body. He left the body untouched to let Victoria and the whole world see what would happen if someone crossed his path. Chapter 739. Vampire Problem. After Michael left the Duchy of Valeria, the Guardians were tasked to rescue the people stuck under the ruins and make a report of all the casualties. Normally, the kingdom itself would do that. However, the current circumstances put the Guardians in charge. The biggest reason for this was Victoria ordered all the troops to guard the capital. The news of her mother and Booth's death still hadn't reached Victoria. Zanali ordered a group of soldiers to find Valeria's body even though she knew it'd be like finding a needle in a haystack. The battle completely flattened the smaller castle behind Booth's castle, and only a couple of towers remained tall in Booth's castle. Zanali stood atop one of the towers, gazing at the destruction left behind by Ghost. A few days ago this duchy buzzed with people and life. But now only ashes and ruins remained. People's cries for help replaced the songs of early birds and the noise of crickets. She couldn't even imagine what would have happened if Noah hadn't helped her bring the guardianships to rescue people. Thinking of Noah, she looked all over the place but he was nowhere to be found. "Guardian Captain." Zanali looked over her shoulder to see Evan landing behind her. He had a silver scroll and a quill in his hand. "I got the names of everyone on the ships. If we can get the record of everyone in the duchy we can cross off who's dead and missing," said Evan. "Also, I received some disturbing reports from Diamond Valley in the capital." "What could possibly be more disturbing than this, Evan?" Evan took a deep breath and really hoped the reports he received were false. "Vampires attacked the Thusian soldiers stationed at the Diamond Valley." Zanali turned around with a bewildered face. "That's what the reports are saying," said Evan. He was just as shocked as ex-Zanali when he heard the reports. To him it seemed like the Thusians were really stuck in a mess. Ghost was destroying Thusia from one. Now the vampires may have joined in the battle. "Do the reports say why they assume it's the vampires?" asked Zanali. "Apparently, some of our men saw black-cloaked figures biting the soldiers in the neck and found a couple of dried bodies." Zanali rubbed her temples. Of course, the Guardians had many captains and Alpha Guardians to deal with new threats. However, she felt the pressure because of Edith's connection to Thusia. Zanali didn't wish Edith to get hurt by the destruction of Thusia. As far as Zanali could see, the war wasn't going in Thusia's favor. The Thusians bet on King Maxim Barnes' breakthrough to the half-immortal stage. After witnessing how powerful Ghost was, Zanali doubted even if Maxim Barnes reached the half-immortal stage, he would be strong enough to beat Ghost. That's not it, Guardian Captain. Holy Guards have reached Thusian capital with His Holiness of Azare continent. Why? Frowned Zanali. For some reason, she didn't think the head of the Holy Church in the Azare continent came for Thusia's help. The Holy Guards are keeping the reason for their visit a closely guarded secret. But our spies learned that the Holy Church has recently received a disturbing recording of a high-level vampire breed called the Blood Prince admitted to working with King Maxim Barnes. Zanali's eyes widened. This was a strong allegation. The Guardian Guild and almost all the Great Eight clans had branded the vampire clan as mortal enemies. Anyone who was in relation to the vampires would be severely punished once found out. So if King Maxim Barnes was working with the vampires, it would brand Thusia as an enemy of all Great Eight clans and kingdoms. Simply put, Thusia would be isolated and marked as the betrayer of all lives. Rumor has it that the deal between this Blood Prince and King Maxim Barnes went south, which was why the vampires had suddenly launched an attack on the Diamond Valley. Guardian Captain, if this was true, Thusia's in a whole world of trouble. Zanali shook her head. Something's not right here. I can't say what, but we are missing something. After we clean up here, we must go to the capital. This time, we have to be prepared to minimize the casualties as much as we can when Ghost arrives at the capital, said Zanali. Seeing all this destruction, even Evan felt a pain in his heart. I had no clue Ghost was capable of doing all this, Evan sighed. He always was so calm and peaceful. Something really messed up must have happened between Thusia and him. No matter what, he can't justify the lives he killed. Zanali shook her head. Guardian Captain, a guardian leaped onto the tower. We have found Queen Valeria's body, said the guardian. Zanali took a deep breath. She didn't know Queen Valeria much, but her death made Zanali a bit sad. Her death was sudden and brutal. Zanali could only imagine what Victoria would feel when she saw her mother's body. At least Zanali could bring the body to Victoria and help her give Valeria a proper funeral. Evan, go to the Diamond Valley and investigate that matter. What would you do, Guardian Captain? Asked Evan. I'll take Queen Valeria's body to the capital. Zanali jumped off the tower to reach the ground while Evan headed for the Diamond Valley. Not a single building remained intact. When Zanali landed on the ground, she saw the guardians and healers they brought running around, tending to the wounded. Fortunately, the guardians managed to drag out people stuck under the rubble. After a long time, people actually thanked the guardian with their whole hearts. The casualties would have hit the sky if it wasn't for the Guardian Guild. It was apparent that Ghost did not give a damn about innocent people being collateral damage. Zanali followed the Guardian in silence to Queen Valeria's body. The Guardians blanketed the body with a white cloth. Zanali squatted beside the body and slightly lifted the cloth. The strong stench of blood and mud nauseated Zanali. She saw a headless body with crooked arms and legs when she lifted the cloth. Since Valeria's body hit the ground from the sky, her bones were shattered. No one could recognize her body, and if it wasn't for her robes, even the Guardians would have failed to find her body. Zanali quickly closed the cloth and exhaled heavily. She didn't deserve this. Zanali closed her eyes for a moment, praying for Queen Valeria's peace in silence. Take her body to my ship and set a course to the capital, Zanali ordered one of the Guardians. She then turned her gaze to a Guardian girl in golden robes. Leave a group of Guardians and healers here and tell the rest to board the ships. We are going to the capital, ordered Zanali. Finally, Zanali threw the last glance at once beautiful duchy before ascending to the sky. To her surprise, Mutrad was waiting for her on her ship. Zanali slapped Mutrad. The Guardians on the ship were stunned by her action. Her slap caught even Mutrad off guard. You could have prevented all this. If this was your people, would you have stood here and watched? Zanali growled with rage. Her eyes turned red as her body trembled. One day he will do the same to your people and you will feel their pain, Zanali said. She didn't bother to wait to hear what Mutrad was trying to say. Instead, she walked into the captain's quarters and shut the door with a bang. A few hours later, Evan finally arrived at Diamond Valley. Since his reports said they found the soldiers dead near the diamond mine, it was Evan's destination. As she arrived at the mine, he saw the mine entrance was blocked with large boulders. It would take more than one man and spells to clear the path. So Evan had no way but to look around the area. The entire duchy seemed desolate, with little to no people. It was not a surprise to Evan. Who would stay in a place where two immortals went all in? The Thusian were lucky Zanali evacuated most of them before Ghost fought another half-immortal. After seeing Ghost's vengeance against Thusia, Evan had a feeling he purposefully led the half-immortal to the Diamond Valley and destroyed the duchy with little effort. Evan, a smile emerged on his face when Evan heard the gentle yet dominant voice. He slowly turned around to see Victoria walking toward him. Not Princess of Thusia Victoria but Victoria of Golden Valley Sect and Evan's lover? Are you all right? Asked Victoria. Evans felt a warmth in his heart, seeing a glimmer of concern in his girlfriend's eyes. 2 years ago they were at their throats trying to beat each other. At that time, Evan had never thought they would fall in love. Why wouldn't I be? Asked Evan with a smile. I heard explosions and saw signs of intense battle on Valeria, said Victoria. Evan sighed deeply. Tell me what happened there? Asked Victoria. Seeing no reason to hide what had transpired on Valeria, Evan began to tell everything he had seen and heard that Ghost did. A few minutes later, drops of sweat appeared on Victoria's forehead. She felt a chill running down her spine. Ghost was always an asshole and low-key bully in her eyes, but she had never thought of him to be such a cruel and vengeful guy. Deep down she really felt lucky that she didn't come across him too often. Do you happen to see the Guardians on your way here? Asked Evan. He didn't want Victoria to pay too much attention to the destruction of Thusia. Yeah, they set a temporary campsite over there. Victoria led Evan to their campsite where the Guardians preserved the bodies of the Thusian soldiers. Where is Zanali? Asked Victoria, leading Evan to the campsite. Went to hand over Queen Valeria's body to the princess. Man, I really feel bad for her, said Evan. So even after all this, no one is willing to stop Ghost? But what's the history between him and Thusia? He must have some kind of reason to go crazy on them, said Victoria. Although she hated Ghost even more after hearing Evan, she couldn't help wondering about the reason behind his vengeance against Thusia. In fact, every single newspaper and sect had the same question. Eventually, the two of them reached an open barren land with a large tent erected in the middle. Evan nodded at his fellow guardians around the tent and followed Victoria into it. The moment he stepped into the tent, he was welcomed by a shocking sight. Chapter 740. Back with a vengeance. A couple of guardians stood around a wooden table, covering their faces with cloth masks. To Evan's surprise, he saw a shriveled body that looked like it had been in the ground for at least 50 or so years. Surprisingly, the body didn't reek. Evan slowly stepped toward the body. It's the vampires, Evan, said Victoria. She unsheathed her sword and moved the dead Boda's head to the side. She pointed her sword at the neck as Evan saw a bite mark on the neck. Despite the shriveled mummified body, the bite was distinguishable. How many bodies? Asked Evan with a deep frown. 12. We sent the rest to the guild for further examination. But it's definitely the work of vampires. Witnesses claimed they saw suspicious black-robed figures in the woods a few hours before the attack, said Victoria. Do you think it's a pre-planned attack? Asked Evan as Victoria nodded. I hate to be Princess Victoria now. If Ghost wasn't enough, they now have a vampire problem, Victoria sighed. Have you tried to clear the rubbles blocking the entrance to the mine? We tried to use some spells but no use. I am afraid we might collapse the entire mine if we continue to do so. I don't think it's smart to clear the mine without King Maxim's or Princess Victoria's permission, said Victoria. Evan's gaze swept across the tent as the fellow guardians seemed to agree with Victoria. Sometime later, Zanali finally reached the outskirts of Thusia's capital. The snowfall took a turn for the worse and threatened the kingdom with a violent blizzard. The howling wind and the thunder rumbling created an ominous feeling. Zanali stood atop her ship, looking at the golden energy dome around the entire capital. Countless chakras and runes glowed within the dome. The Thusian soldiers constantly patrolled the air inside and outside the dome while armored soldiers guarded the ground inside. The dome covered the noble district adjacent to the castle and left the commoner house unguarded. The streets and houses seemed empty to Zanali. As the guardian ships were getting closer to the capital, a group of crimson-robed mages flew straight toward Zanali's ship. Halt! Zanali raised her hand as the ships came to a halt. She waited for the mages to approach her. The capital is close for everyone, the mage who led the group said in a thick voice. He was an old man in his late 70s. With a long white beard, a pointy hat, and a staff in his hands made him look like a wizard out of a storybook. Despite his look, the old man's eyes glimmered with power. We are here to help you evacuate the citizens to safety, said Zanali. No need, Her Royal Highness has already taken care of that. Now, if the guardians have nothing more, please leave the kingdom, Zanali didn't like the mage's attitude, not even for a bit. However, she controlled her emotions. I want to meet your princess or Edith. Tell them Zanali is here to see them. Miss Edith has yet to return from Valeria, said the mage. Zanali was surprised to hear his answer. The mage and the men behind him looked clueless about what had happened in Valeria. How long have you been inside the dome? Asked Zanali. 2 days, the mage answered with an annoyed look on his face. His tone was so unwelcoming. I am sorry to be the bearer of bad news. The Duchy of Valeria is no more. It's destroyed by ghost. The mage was stunned. Please tell Princess Victoria to come and receive the body of her mother, Queen Valeria. The mages trembled. For a few moments no one uttered a word. Silence fell over them. Zanali hated to break the news about Queen Valeria's death to them. To be honest, she thought Edith would be the one to reveal the news. However, it seemed like Edith didn't come to the capital. The last time Zanali saw Edith, she was leaving Valeria with Layla Alden. She thought Layla and Edith were heading for the capital. If they didn't come here, where did they go? Zanali questioned herself. I don't believe you. Her Highness was with General Booth. The mage stuttered. It was obvious that Zanali Victoria had put the capital under lockdown. Since Booth or anyone made it back to the capital, they were oblivious to everything that had happened in Valeria. Still, Zanali couldn't believe a powerful kingdom like this had been reduced to such a sorry state. He's dead. Ghost killed them both, said Zanali. And he's probably on his way here, so why don't you go back inside and tell the princess? Let her receive her mother's body for God's sake. Zanali's voice turned colder. Guardians. Zanali raised her voice as a couple of guardians came running to her. Bring Queen Valeria and General Booth's bodies. The mages were in a kind of shocked state. They waited for the guardians to bring the bodies covered in white cloth in silence. Seeing the bodies, the old mage descended from the sky, landing on the ship. He squatted beside the bodies. The old mage swallowed. Sweat drops broke out on his face. Zanali even noticed the mage's hands shivering. Slowly he lifted off the cloth. For a brief moment, the mage couldn't recognize the body. But eventually he saw the gold necklace on Valeria's body. He closed his eyes as a golden chakra appeared on the mage's hand. The small chakra floated toward Valeria's body before shining its light on the pendant. His heart skipped a beat when the pendant on her necklace radiated an icy blue light. Your Highness, the old man lost control of his body as he collapsed down. The staff slipped out of his hand while tears rolled down his eyes. Soon the rest of the mages joined the old man. They all had the same reaction when they saw the icy blue light from the pendant. They were saddened beyond words. Every single one in Thusia adored and loved Queen Valeria. She was the kindest soul they had ever known. Seeing her mutilated body, their hearts couldn't take it. They broke into tears. Zanali felt sorry for the mages. The old mage finally managed to stop sobbing. He slowly moved his hand toward the body next to Queen Valeria. His hands trembled as he lifted off the cloth. The old man showed no expression as he couldn't recognize the body instantly. It took the mages a few seconds to locate a tattoo of the kingdom's emblem on the bloody chest. As expected, the mages didn't shed tears for Booth as they did for Valeria. Please, you have to let Princess know about this, said Zanali. Meanwhile, Gaia and Azazel arrived at the castle of vampires with the help of Michael's runic teleportation. The place looked as ominous as ever before. The gray castle stood under the red sky. Countless black bats flew around the castle to add an extra layer of creepiness to it. Gaia cracked her neck. She was in her dark queen armor so that no one could see her face. But behind the mask she was grinning. What? Because Michael had specially built something for her to deal with the Blood Prince herself. She really insisted on Michael killing the Blood Prince with her own hands. Since Michael was busy with something else, he built a device and sent Gaia to the castle along with Azazel for backup. He didn't think Gaia needed backup, but he didn't like letting Gaia go alone. As though the vampires had sensed their presence, a group of black-clothes vampires rushed toward her. Magnificent creatures, Azazel exclaimed. The vampires had long black hair, fangs protruding out of their mouths and pale faces. Their speed was beyond any average cultivator. They moved like the wind. Gaia didn't even move a finger. She waited for the vampires to get close with her hands folded. Stop! Suddenly Saber's voice echoed through the desolate, barren grounds. The vampires immediately halted their steps. Gaia looked up at the sky to see Saber slowly descending down. Unlike the rest of the vampires, Saber did not cover his face with a dark hood. In fact, Saber's face glowed with delight. Dark Queen, Saber dropped to his one knee. How is your life free of any weakness? Asked Gaia. It's a gift I won't forget forever, Dark Queen, Saber bowed. He had been trying to find a cure for the vampire's weakness for sunlight for ages. He lost count of how many people he had killed, how many ruins he ventured into, and how many scrolls he had collected throughout the years. He literally put his blood and sweat into finding a cure. Yet, the Dark Lord offered him the solution in the form of a potion in exchange for his loyalty. Saber had no problem bending his knee before a god who could change the fate of his entire race in a few minutes. Of course, the Dark Lord's promise to make him the leader of the entire vampire clan played a big part in Saber's decision to serve the Dark Lord. Rise, Gaia gestured at Saber to stand up. Saber glanced at the man behind the Dark Queen with devilish wings and crimson-red eyes. Although he seemed calm, Saber sensed an overwhelming power from the man. Saber didn't think he could win against this man in a direct battle. The Dark Lord's power truly freaked out Saber. He felt agreeing to serve the Dark Lord was the best decision he had made in his life. He just hoped Trista would follow his steps instead of opposing the Dark Lord. On the contrary, he didn't even think about Ingram serving the Dark Lord. Unlike Trista and him, Ingram was an old-school vampire. He would rather die than serve the Dark Lord. This is Azazel. Azazel, this is Saber. Gaia introduced them to each other before walking toward the castle entrance. The vampires looked totally confused. They had never seen their master bend his knee before anyone. However, they were too afraid to question Saber. Hence, they just followed their master, the woman in black armor and the man with wings. Gaia climbed the stairs like a queen, guarded by vampires. Saber himself opened the steel door, letting her in. The vampires who saw the sudden appearance of Saber with Gaia and Azazel were caught off guard. They looked confused just like the vampires behind Saber. She followed Saber with her hands behind her back. On her way, she looked around the dimly lit castle. This place could use a bit of touch-up and a lot of chandeliers, commented Gaia. Some of Trista's vampires slipped into the darkness to inform their mistress. Saber noticed that yet did nothing to stop them. Since Gaia was in no hurry to meet the Blood Prince, she took her sweet time exploring the castle. She often stopped to look at the portraits, rooms and even made some comments about how a vampire should really dress. Eventually, Gaia reached the meeting hall with the big round stone table in the center. The last time she came here, the Blood Prince almost killed Michael with a single punch. At that moment, the seats were empty. Instead of waiting for the elder vampires to arrive, Gaia climbed on the table and sat with one leg atop another. "I'd be really disappointed if the Blood Prince isn't here," said Gaia. Chapter 741. The Blood Prince meets the Dark Queen. Gaia calmly waited for the Blood Prince. Despite the vampires surrounding them, Saber saw no signs of fear in Azazel's eyes. The vampires cowered in the shadows. Since Saber and Elder brought them to their castle, the vampires dared not to raise a finger. However, they all waited for the Blood Prince to appear, wondering what he would do when he saw these new guests. After a while, a new group of vampires entered the castle. Unlike the vampires that welcomed them, these looked like savages. They wore nothing but black tunics to cover their privates and painted themselves with blood. The moment they entered the hall, the strong stench of blood nauseated Azazel's senses. The black-clothed vampires took a step back, making way for this new group. Gaia noticed a sliver of disgust in the black-robed vampire's eyes. Judging by how the two groups hissed at each other, it was obvious to Gaia that they hated each other. Something told Gaia this new breed of vampire belonged to the Blood Prince. Soon, the hall began to tremble as Gaia heard heavy footsteps. The temperature in the room slowly rose. Saber took a step to the side. His eyes glimmered with fear. All the vampires knelt down when they saw the Blood Prince. But the Blood Prince himself trembled with fury looking at Gaia. The Blood Prince looked a bit weaker and lacked an arm since Michael ripped it off. Thanks to the dark flames, the Blood Prince could not heal or regrow his limb. Seeing how brazenly the woman sits on the table, the Blood Prince's killing intent shot through the roof. At the same time, the smell of their blood mesmerized him as though he was slowly getting high by the aroma. He knew one thing for sure: these two weren't humans. How does the Blood Prince win a battle? Single-handedly, Gaia chuckled. The vampires were stunned to see the woman ridiculing the Blood Prince in his own castle. Although she had a powerful aura around her, it was nothing compared to the aura around the Blood Prince. Yet, the woman had the guts to make fun of him. "Oh, sorry, I really shouldn't do that. I came here in peace. I am unarmed," she emphasized the word unarmed, raising her two hands. The Blood Prince's body began to tremble. "Okay, I know this situation looks out of hand. Jeesh, I need to stop doing that." Gaia suppressed her urge to laugh. She seriously couldn't stop herself from making amputated jokes after seeing the Blood Prince with only one arm. The Blood Prince couldn't take any more as he tried to dash at Gaia. He was about to grab her and crush her to death when suddenly a bright golden light shot out from her hand. Arg! The Blood Prince screamed as his skin began to smoke. Saber saw a large cube in the Dark Queen's hands. The golden light came through the hole in the cube. The light mimicked the sunlight. Hence, the Blood Prince started to cover his face as his body was slowly burnt by the light. The vampires immediately leaped away from the Blood Prince. They hissed at the sunlight, hiding in the corners of the hall. As seconds passed, the light glowed brighter and brighter with high intensity. Gaia threw the box in the air as it floated right above the Blood Prince, out of his reach. It created a spotlight on the Blood Prince, trapping him within. The Blood Prince couldn't move a muscle. All of his strength was redirected to keep himself from burning. Although the sunlight wasn't enough to kill a half-immortal like the Blood Prince, the longer he was exposed to the sunlight, the higher the chance of his body entering into a slumber to recover. It would take centuries for the Blood Prince's body to head, and that too if he was kept in complete darkness. The Blood Prince roared. "Who are you?" The Blood Prince managed to growl. "Stop, it hurts." Gaia didn't give a damn about the Blood Prince's pain. In fact, she wanted him to suffer before he died. Plus, she wanted the vampires to witness absolute power so they would follow the Dark Lord with loyalty and fear. "This is what happens when you mess with the wrong people," said Gaia. "Saber," she turned her gaze towards Saber. "Why don't you show your gift to everyone in the room?" Saber nodded. Everyone locked their gazes with Saber as he slowly walked toward the spotlight and the Blood Prince. On his way, Saber rolled his sleeves to his elbow. Under everyone's gazes, Saber put his exposed hand into the light. The vampires expected Saber's hand to burn to a crisp. However, on the contrary, nothing happened to his hand. The vampires were stunned. Some even wondered whether the light was really harmful to a vampire. Thankfully, the Blood Prince's body kept smoking. Otherwise, the vampires wouldn't have believed the light was indeed harmful to them. The Blood Prince could hardly move his head. Still, he managed to glance at Saber's hand. Just like the vampires, the Blood Prince was stunned. The light burnt his skin as the same as the sunlight, yet it did not harm Saber. "Did you see that, Blood Prince? Saber is not harmed by the light. We would have given you this gift if you weren't such an asshole," said Gaia. "I never even met you, bitch," the Blood Prince growled. Gaia almost forgot that the Blood Prince met them as Ghost and Elia, not as the Dark Lord and the Dark Queen. Gaia did not respond to the Blood Prince. Instead, she took out the golden spear Michael used to kill the half-immortal elf from her space ring. She jumped down from the table, gracefully walking toward the Blood Prince. She fiddled with the golden spear on her way. She poked him with the spear when she got close to the Blood Prince. The Blood Prince hissed but couldn't do anything to stop her. "What the hell are you waiting for? Kill this traitor and this bitch," growled the Blood Prince. Immediately, the red-painted vampires of the Blood Prince dashed forward to attack Gaia and Saber. Instead, Saber could order his men to retaliate. A bolt of lightning struck the red vampire. The bolt flew past Saber's face, sending a chill down his spine. The bolt struck the vampire and penetrated his head. The bolt went through another vampire before disappearing. Two vampires collapsed to the ground with fist-sized holes in their heads. The red vampires halted their steps as they were stunned. Saber utilized their shock and dashed at them with inhuman speed. His figure became blurred as two fangs grew out of his mouth. The next moment, Gaia only noticed several bloody veils of mist above the red vampires' heads. Even she couldn't see him killing the vampires. He was simply too fast. In a blink of an eye, Saber killed all 5 red vampires. When he returned to his previous place, his entire body was drenched in blood. Just the sight of Saber covered in blood made the vampires tremble in fear. "It's time to put you out of your misery." Slowly, Gaia grabbed the Blood Prince's throat before slowly sending the spear through his chest. The runes on the spear glowed brighter and brighter as the Blood Prince growled. Blood slowly tricked down his chest. He couldn't move a muscle. His life flashed across his eyes. The vampires he created died within a few seconds. Saber, one of the elders, betrayed him and his minions never came to his aid. Gaia twisted the spear to inflict more pain. Surprisingly, Trista, the brunette vampire and friend of Lenora, appeared in the hall. Her eyes widened at the sight of Gaia killing the Blood Prince. "Calm down, Trista," Saber quickly said before Trista did something she would regret later. Trista was unable to comprehend what was happening before her eyes. Saber, of all people, stood beside a creepy-looking woman and man and watched the Blood Prince slowly getting stabbed to death. Not that she had any love for the Blood Prince, but it was shocking to Trista. To be honest, Trista hated the Blood Prince to the core since he killed Lenora. Little did Trista know that the Blood Prince kept Lenora's head in his room. In a sense, Lenora was still alive. But no one except Ingram and the Blood knew about her state. At least that's what the Blood Prince thought. The blood trickled down from the Blood Prince's chest, forming a blood puddle under him. Usually, the vampires wouldn't drink another vampire's blood, but the sweet aroma from the Blood Prince's blood really made it hard for them to resist. Even Trista's fangs slowly grew in size. Gaia saw the light of life slowly leaving the Blood Prince's eyes. The new device built by Michael and Eladir surprised Gaia. She had her doubts when Michael said this device would create a light as powerful as the sunlight. But looking at the device at work, she was surprised. With this device, the vampires could pose no threat to them. Not only vampires but even the undead would also be powerless. Trista was afraid even to take a step forward. She stood at the entrance with the rest of the vampires. At that moment, Gaia slowly drew the spear out of the Blood Prince's chest. She swung the spear, splattering the blood across the hall. Afterward, she stabbed the Blood Prince in the throat. "Arg!" the Blood Prince growled. She forcefully cut the Blood Prince's throat to sever his head clean off. Since the Blood Prince was a half-immortal, it took almost every bit of strength in Gaia's body to cut his head off. Blood sprayed out of his neck, painting her black armor red. Yet she didn't even flick as she continued to cut his head. Trista shivered. She watched the Blood Prince brutally getting butchered in his castle surrounded by his men. She simply couldn't believe it. However, she trusted Saber enough to stay still. Finally, Gaia lopped off the head and raised it in the air for everyone to see. The Blood Prince's eyes were still wide open and filled with pain and anger. "Now we can talk about the future of all the Night Walkers," said Gaia. Chapter 742, The Blood Prince's Bloody Collection. Gaia showed the severed head to every vampire around her. The vampires took a step back in utter fear. She had killed their strongest. These vampires were more terrified than furious at her for killing the Blood Prince. "His body belongs to us. Anyone got a problem with that?" asked Gaia. As expected, no one dared to utter a word. With a flick of her wrist, she took out a silver scroll from her space ring. She put a sliver of arch energy as the runes glowed within the scroll. The next moment, a bright light enveloped the Blood Prince's body and disappeared along with the body. "Everyone please leave the hall," said Saber. The vampires looked a bit flustered for a few moments, but ultimately they left the room, leaving Trista behind. "Azazel, look around the castle and get the feel of the layout." "As you wish, my lady." Azazel deep bowed before leaving the hall. Gaia sat down on the chair facing Saber. "You can take your seat beside Saber." Gaia gestured at Trista to sit. The brunette vampire looked confused. Despite being one of the oldest and the most powerful elder vampires, Trista couldn't help feeling weak in front of the black-armored woman. "You want to know what the fuck just happened, right?" Gaia asked Trista. Trista slowly nodded. "I think it's better if Saber explained everything to you." Gaia turned her gaze toward Saber. She patiently waited for Saber to tell everything that had happened after he met Ghost to give an immortal killing weapon to him as part of their deal. 2 days ago, Saber took out an immortal killing weapon from his personal collection. He went to meet Ghost but met the Dark Lord instead. At first, Saber was completely off guard. Everyone in the vampire clan was terrified of the Dark Lord. So when Saber saw him, he thought he was going to battle the Dark Lord for his life. However, the Dark Lord revealed his identity and shocked Saber. It was Ghost. He offered Saber something he couldn't refuse: immortality and a permanent solution for the sunlight problem. The Dark Lord kept his word as he gave more potions to Saber. But he also offered a permanent solution if Saber was willing to serve him. When Saber felt reluctant to agree to bend his knee, the Dark Lord attacked him. Compared to a half-immortal, Saber was weak. He couldn't even react in time before the Dark Lord injected a potion into his neck. Saber lost consciousness. To his utter shock, he woke up on a beach in Royal Land. The sun didn't hurt him at all. Furthermore, he didn't feel his bloodlust at all, even when there were bleeding humans before him. Only then did he realize the Dark Lord wasn't lying about a permanent solution. Saber had never felt so powerful in his life. At that moment, Saber could see his kind's bright future. Without a weakness to the sun and blood craving, they had the chance to become a whole new powerful breed. This new power came at the cost of Saber and his kind following the Dark Lord. The Dark Lord exposed their existence because Haken was stupid enough to try to kill him. The Dark Lord explained how similar his kind and he is. The vampires drew power from darkness, and the Dark Lord was the god of darkness. In a way, the vampires were born to follow him. Saber felt the true extent of the Dark Lord's power when he turned the day into night. His power grew out of bounds. After everything was said and done, following the Dark Lord seemed to be the best option. Therefore, Saber agreed to serve the Dark Lord. Saber had a feeling choosing otherwise would mean the death of him and his kind. But Saber focused on more positive things. When Saber finished his story, Trista was in complete shock. First, she still couldn't believe Saber could survive the sunlight. Second, she never expected Ghost to be the Dark Lord, and Saber agreed to serve him. Although Saber was an elder like her, he was more of a leader than an elder. Ingram, the oldest vampire who should offer guidance, was always absent when they needed him. Hence, Saber became a leader of the elders. Now Trista had to make the choice of whether to follow Saber and thus by following the Dark Lord or not. Gaia noticed a sliver of reluctance in Trista's eyes. She was truly amazed at how easily Michael could predict others' behavior. He told her Trista would be hesitant to join them or even chose not to. There was a reason why Gaia brought Azazel to the castle. She was expecting Azazel to return with something that could make Trista come to the dark side. Any moment now. Gaia mumbled under her breath. A few minutes later, Azazel finally showed up in the hall. He had a sack in his hand. He handed over the sack to Gaia as Saber and Trista smelled blood in the air. "Where did you find this, Azazel?" asked Gaia as though she had no idea. She wanted to entertain Trista and Saber. "In the Blood Prince's room. I found several others, but I thought you would want to see this," said Azazel. Trista and Saber curiously stared at the sack. Trista looked at Saber with doubtful eyes. Judging by the look on his face, Trista could tell Saber had no clue of what was inside the sack. Under their curious eyes, Gaia slowly pulled the sack up. Surprisingly, they saw a head when she removed the sack. Their surprise soon turned into utter shock as they recognized the head. It was none other than their fellow elder Lenora. "Lenora!" Trista shouted in shock. The last time she saw Lenora, she was a puppy mess under the feet of the Blood Prince. She didn't find her head because Trista thought the Blood Prince crushed it with his foot. Lenora's eyes and mouth slowly moved, but no words came out of her mouth. The Blood Prince was a sick psychopath who kept the heads of vampires on a shelf as his personal collection. Thanks to Michael's spiders all over the vampire castle, Azazel learned this juicy information about the Blood Prince. The one who should have protected you had a secret collection. He was keeping heads of your kind in his closet. "Talk about skeletons in a closet," Gaia exclaimed. Gaia handed over the head to Azazel and gestured at him to give the head to Trista. Azazel gently grabbed the head. Trista shivered, looking at her best friend's severed head. Her hands trembled as he took the head from Azazel. Her head was cut off from her body and kept in a cold place for too long. I'd give it a day or two before her brain completely shuts off. "He was a sick bastard," said Gaia. "He gave just enough blood to keep her barely alive." "Lenora?" Trista's eyes watered for the first time in a long time. Anger and sadness overwhelmed her heart. She couldn't see her best friend like this. "My lady, is there a way for us to heal Lenora?" asked Saber. Even he felt pity for Lenora after seeing her like this. Plus, helping the Dark Queen kill the Blood Prince seemed like the best decision in his mind. "That depends on Trista." Hearing Gaia, Trista slowly raised her head. "You want me to serve you just like Saber?" asked Trista. "Bingo. You're a smart girl. That's why we are hoping you will join us and change this world. Trust me, this is not some fancy word or offer. We actually have a god with us. As you can see, only a god can bring Lenora back to life. So what's it gonna be?" Saber placed his hand on Trista's shoulder, wordlessly reassuring her to make the same choice as him. To be honest, Trista saw no cons of serving the Dark Lord. If it was before, Trista would have refused to bend her knees. But after what happened with the Blood Prince, she realized even the elders were just pawns. What made the difference was what kind of pawns they would be. At least serving the Dark Lord came with perks and a chance to heal Lenora back to life. "I'd follow you, but only if you heal her," said Trista. Saber was shocked. The Dark Lord and the Dark Queen were not the kind of people one should negotiate with. To his surprise, the Dark Queen chuckled. "As I said, you're a smart one. Constructing a body for her will take time. But as a gesture of faith, I can ask the Dark Lord to heal her head. You'll be able to talk to your friend. We will heal her completely once we are confident you have no ulterior motives or doubts about serving us. How about that?" Gaia paused for a moment before continuing. "You have no other option, really? You can say yes and see your friend again, or you can say goodbyes to her. Either way, it's time to make your choice," said Gaia. Trista stared between Lenora's head and Saber. Saber nodded as Trista took a deep breath. You want me to kneel before you? Asked Trista, rising from her seat with Lenora's head in her hands. No need. The Dark Lord will arrive and you can do that before him. Saber was surprised. He didn't know the purpose of the Dark Lord's visit to the vampire castle. But one thing was sure, the fate of the vampires would change forever from today. Saber, the Dark Lord would like to meet the head of your experiments and research projects. Bring that one here, Saber nodded. As for Trista, why don't you go there and take a look at the Blood Prince's collection? I feel like you should know how wrong of you all to follow a Blood Prince without knowing their nature. Gaia rose from her seat and turned her gaze back to Saber. The Dark Lord also wants to meet all the elders including Ingram. Summon them all here. I assume you have a way to do that. Yes, my lady, said Saber. Great. I'll see you in 5 hours with the Dark Lord. Try to convince your minions about the new hierarchy. Only those who fully deserve will get the gift from the Dark Lord. Chapter 743, Biggest and Baddest Castle. After Gaia met with the vampires, she teleported herself back to the Dark Forest, where she met Michael. He remained in the pocket dimension working with Eladir. Nightmare and Vidora slept by the waterfall peacefully. When she entered the place, she saw Michael staring at a map. What are you looking at? Asked Gaia. She slowly removed her black skull mask and put it on the table. One of my armor pieces. Michael pointed at a small island in the southern continent. He used 200,000 badass points to find out one of his armor pieces. This armor was crafted by the Dark Lord and sent to the future using a time machine. Michael had no idea how difficult this task was. All he knew was his past self did this by using the system. Are we going to get this before or after we destroy Thusia? Asked Gaia. After. I am heading to the capital at dawn, said Michael. He preferred to attack Thusia when there was no sunlight. The darkness would greatly increase his power. Not that Michael wanted any power boost to kill Victoria. However, Michael liked to be at his strongest. How was your meeting with the vampires? Asked Michael. When as we planned. I just gave my word you'd be able to make Lenora's head talk before we completely heal her. That's doable? My lady, you finished off the Blood Prince? Asked Eladir. Michael was surprised to see the glimmer of excitement in the dark elf's eyes. Judging by the look in his eyes, Michael could tell Eladir had some kind of plan for the Blood Prince's body. It should be in the storage room with the dragon skeleton, said Gaia. Michael was too busy to assemble the dragon skeleton. He teleported from the treacherous ocean. He needed additional 100,000 badass points to assemble the skeleton. He wished he was able to teleport the wise dragon skeleton too. It was a pity that the system absorbed its body to reveal Adelia's teleportation destination. Still, Michael was confident he could make millions by auctioning the skeleton. According to Arya, the next big auction in the Ara continent would happen in 3 months. So Michael planned to auction the dragon then. Until then it could stay in the storeroom. My lord, can I take a look at the Blood Prince's body? Asked Eladir. You seem rather excited. What's the matter and why do you want to see his body? Michael asked Eladir. I want to study such specimen, my lord. You talk like Dalar. Normally he was the one who messes with dead bodies. True, Eladir nodded. But the Blood Prince's body is different. I might make use of his body to create some new runes. You got me at new runes. Go crazy, Michael dismissed Eladir. The elf almost ran away from the place full of excitement. It was extremely rare for Michael to see Eladir this excited. After finding all the armor pieces, he hoped the elf could develop some powerful runes to enhance his armor. You should give me new armor. Now that I think about it, you haven't given me an engagement gift. Some fiancé you are? Gaia rolled her eyes. Didn't I tell you I would get you your throne of Nagaland? You're kidding me, right? After we reveal our identities, do you think I can peacefully rule Nagaland as the queen? The Sky Hall and the Guardians would be at my neck if I ever stepped into my own kingdom. Michael's brows arched up. It was such a simple thing, but he completely forgot about that. This was the reason Michael wanted to put an end to keeping 2 identities. His brain power diverged into too many things as he started to overlook the obvious things. Michael took a deep breath. Although he didn't utter a word, Gaia could tell how sorry he was by looking at his eyes. She smiled. You don't have to worry about that. I know you have so many things to deal with. It's okay, Gaia gently said. The moment she said these words, Michael hated himself. She asked for one thing for him, but he failed to give her that. Michael calmed himself with a few deep breaths. Quickly, he remembered the floating mountain given to him by Eve's father. I am going to build you the best and baddest castle this world has ever seen and give it to you as my loving gift, Michael said, taking her arms into his. He slowly moved over the strand of hair on her face and felt her smooth, soft skin. You are the best thing that happened to me in this life. Michael meant these words with all of his heart. Little did he know that Gaia was the biggest and the main reason why the past Dark Lord chose to reset the entire universe. She was cursed and slowly dying. To be honest, the Dark Lord didn't think he could live and fight without his wife. The only way to save her was to travel back in time. Michael did that in a heartbeat. Fortunately, that fate had been avoided the moment Michael retrieved the curse-breaking artifact from the treacherous ocean. You better, Gaia ruffled Michael's hair playfully. As seconds passed by, Michael prepared for what could be his final battle as Ghost. He flicked his wrist as his usual black attire appeared on an armor stand. He touched the clothes, sighing. Finally, Michael put on his robes and sheathed a silver sword with several crimson-red engravings on it. This was the sword Saber gave him. With this sword, Michael possessed 2 immortal killing weapons. I will come with you, said Gaia when he finished putting on his robes. Before you say anything, let me remind you that Zanali knows who I am. You need backup. However, Michael shook his head. I can't afford you with me on the battlefield. Instead, I need you to go to the river town to ensure Eve and everyone's safety. I will take care of Zanali. Don't play me for a fool, human. I know you are sending me away so no one could take me hostage and turn the table on you, Gaia snickered. You know how Maxim operates. I can't afford any fuck-ups, Gaia sighed heavily. Judging by the look in his eyes, she knew there was no point in arguing with him. Hence, she agreed to go to the river town. But let's go meet Saber and his kind first, said Michael. A few hours earlier, Zanali was granted entry into the capital by the mages. She entered Maxim's castle with the mages carrying Valeria and Booth's bodies. Victoria was talking to Terence, Minister Gordon, and some prominent nobles in the kingdom. All the nobles had one thing in common among them: fear. They were afraid of Ghost. Many of the nobles had already left the kingdom via their personal ships. Those who remained in the kingdom were either ordered to stay by Victoria or were too loyal to Maxim Barnes. Since Victoria didn't know about the death of her mother and Booth, she looked surprised to see Zanali. At first, Victoria thought Zanali was here to help the citizens. However, when she saw the mages carrying something covered in white cloth, her heart skipped a beat. Guardian Captain Zanali, Victoria greeted her as the mages placed the bodies on the ground. Princess Victoria? Zanali's voice trailed away. She was unable to form words. What is that? Victoria's hands shivered. The mages avoided direct eye contact with Victoria. Meanwhile, the nobles surrounded them. Minister Terence was the first one to approach the bodies. He squatted beside them and slowly lifted the cloth. Terence creased his brows. He turned his gaze toward the mages without saying a word. He couldn't recognize the headless bodies. Before the mages could answer Terence, Victoria sent a wave of wind with a flick of her wrist, removing the white clothes. Some of the nobles screamed. The headless bodies stunned everyone in the hall. Mother? Victoria mumbled. She needed no spells or runes to identify the body of her mother. Seeing Valeria like this, Victoria's mind couldn't handle it. As a result, Victoria fainted on the spot. Zanali was quick enough to catch Victoria. Your Royal Highness, the royal guards and Minister Gordon came running to Victoria's aid. Water, Zanali signaled the soldiers to bring her a glass of water. The soldiers quickly brought her a cup of water. Zanali gently sprinkled water on Victoria's face to wake her up. Victoria slowly opened her eyes. Realizing she was in Zanali's hands, she pushed Zanali aside and got back to her feet. Her body trembled uncontrollably. Terence and Gordon looked at the mages to see them nodding, wordlessly confirming it was Queen Valeria. No one could take their eyes off Victoria. She collapsed to her knees beside the body. She touched Valeria's pendant as tears gushed out of Victoria's eyes. I am so sorry, Princess Victoria, Zanali's voice stuttered. Since Zanali lost her best friend to the Dark Lord, she knew what Victoria was feeling deep down. Her death was sudden and quick. Queen Valeria felt nothing, said Zanali, although she knew nothing she could say would lessen Victoria's pain. Was it Ghost? Stuttered Victoria. Her voice contained unimaginable anger and pain behind it. Zanali nodded. Everyone became silent. If anyone else had killed Queen Valeria, they would bark orders at the royal guards to bring back the killer's head. But the one who killed her was Ghost, a half-immortal. Sending guards to him would be like sending sheep into a wolf's den. Honestly, no one knew what to do next. Instead, they just stared at Victoria. General Booth? Did he suffer? Asked Victoria. Zanali remained silent. Her silence spoke volumes, letting Victoria know the extent of pain Booth went through. Just the scars and wounds on his body were alone a clear indicator of how much he suffered at the hands of Ghost. When he arrives at the capital, everyone must stand down, said Victoria. Her face showed no emotion, as though she had lost her emotions. I will face him myself. I don't want any more deaths on my head for something I did. You royal dash, Terence tried to interject, but when Victoria turned her gaze toward him, he shut his mouth immediately. He felt a chill running down his spine. The murderous rage hidden within her eyes was terrifying. Just like Ghost had promised her, he had taken everything from her. The karma hit Victoria left and right. Everyone, including Victoria, knew what would be the outcome if she fought Ghost. Even Zanali didn't think she could stop the war between them anymore. Chapter 744. Michael vs. Victoria. The sun slowly set down on the horizon, giving way for the darkness to blanket the world. The raining snowflakes added a tinge of white to the gray atmosphere. Snow blanketed the city as far as one could see. The temperature dropped to dangerous levels. This winter had proven itself as the coldest one in recent centuries. If the winter wasn't enough, the Thusians had to face a vengeful half-immortal. Thusia prepared itself for the war against Ghost. They lost all the kingdoms they conquered in a matter of a few days. This showed the entire world how powerful a half-immortal was. It had been hundreds of years since the world had seen one. Thus, the world had forgotten about half-immortals and immortals. Ghost reminded the world with a tight slap. It wouldn't be an understatement to say the entire world was concerned about Ghost. Even the Empress of Aur gathered all her war gods and asked to formulate a plan to defend their land in case Ghost turned his murderous gaze toward them. She ordered everyone to raise their cultivation levels fast. In fact, the Empress ordered the royal blacksmiths, engineers and rune masters to build a special arena where a fusion stage cultivator could safely break through to the half-immortal stage. Of course, this arena wouldn't save them from the heavenly tribulation 100%, but it would certainly increase their chances of survivability. Finally, when darkness completely took over the day, Michael arrived at the capital. He didn't bring anyone with him because he didn't need them. He ordered King Gunnar, King Baldur and all his allies to leave the Ithilien island. They didn't dare to argue with Michael. They all heard what had happened to the Duchy of Valeria. It was indeed a pity they had to leave Golden Port. However, their lives and their soldiers' lives were more important than the city itself. The golden dome around the capital flickered, indicating Michael's arrival to the Thusians. Michael could have blocked these arrays with the system, but he simply didn't. In fact, he wanted them to know. Only that way would they feel helpless and afraid before losing their lives. Granted, he could kill Victoria, her family and destroy the kingdom in a couple of days. But he wanted every single one of them to suffer and live their last moments of life with fear. He wanted them to wish they were dead instead of living in constant fear. As for Victoria and Maxim Barnes, he had special plans. Michael's glance swept over the capital. Although he grew up in the forest far north of the castle, he knew nothing about the city. His whole world was the sanctuary and the people living in it. Up to this moment, he had no idea about the exact location of the cosmic stream. The system asked 3 million badass points to pinpoint the stream. However, Michael chose not to pay the system. Since King Maxim Barnes was using the stream to break through to the half-immortal stage, the location would be revealed automatically to him the moment Maxim Barnes triggered the heavenly tribulation. Unluckily for Maxim, Michael would be waiting to hinder his tribulation. Michael slowly flew toward the Golden Dome. It covered the entire city. As much as Michael hated Edith, he had to admire her talents in runes and arrays. Even Eladir was surprised by some of her runes. The closer Michael moved toward the energy dome, the more ripples appeared in the dome. Using his X-ray vision, Michael scanned the city. He found no life signs in the city except inside the castle grounds. The reports Michael heard were right. Victoria evacuated the citizens out of Thusia. Not that Michael would have cared if there were people in the city, but at least now he had a clear conscience. The soldiers within the castle came running outside. They all prepared the trebuchets, giant crossbows and flamethrowers ready. These machines were engraved with powerful runes to hurt cultivators. Michael couldn't care less about them. Even the immortal killing weapons failed to harm him. The only way to kill him was the god-killing arrows that Michael was still researching about. Michael had a feeling these arrows were somehow connected to the system and its origins. After all, as long as Michael had the system, killing him would be impossible. Michael shoved all those thoughts to the corner of his mind. At this moment he completely focused on one thing, the destruction of Thusia once and for all. To Michael's surprise, Evan and Zanali flew through the energy dome to him. The moment Evan saw his half-immortal level 9, his eyes widened. Thanks to Gaia killing the Blood Prince and some of the vampires who chose not to serve the Dark Lord, Michael gained enough experience points to reach level 9. His god-level cultivation speed startled Evan. It wasn't even a year since he entered the half-immortal stage. With this rate, Evan could tell Ghost would become immortal in a few months. Ghost, we need to talk about what you're going to do. You already killed Valeria, destroyed all their cities and took back the kingdom they conquered. Isn't it enough? Asked Zanali. Michael remained silent. If you let go of this feud, it'll release Gaia of all the crimes she has committed, said Zanali, only to see Michael fold his arms. First, it's not enough. I want this place razed to the ground. Second, Gaia didn't commit any crimes. You and your mother took the throne, which rightfully belongs to Gaia. You two drove the once powerful kingdom into a debt trap and robbed the kingdom of its status. Gaia only tried to save what you've been destroying. As far as I am concerned, you, your mother, and Gaia's father are the criminals. Zanali was about to respond to him when he raised his finger. I am not here to talk about Nagaland. I am here to settle some old scores. Get out of my way. A powerful gust of wind shot out of Michael's hand, blasting Zanali and Evan away. They were sent flinging back to the capital like kites without anchors. They couldn't regain their balance until they crashed onto the streets. Evan and Zanali growled. Blood trickled down their mouths. Evan's mind completely went blank. Ghost almost killed them with just a wave of his hands. His power simply terrified Evan. He used to think he could catch up with Ghost if he ventured into resource-rich places like the treacherous ocean or even the demon's grave. But now, attempting to reach his level seemed impossible. He didn't think anyone could match up to him. Victoria, Michael uttered the name in a creepy way. His tone sent shivers running down everyone's spines. Finally, Victoria walked out of the castle with her battle armor on. Royal guards and ministers surrounded her. However, she didn't take them with her to meet Ghost in midair. She hovered behind the energy dome just a few meters away from Michael. Michael slowly touched the shield as a bolt of energy hit Michael back. If anyone under the soul refining stage had touched the shield, they would have turned into ashes. But to Michael it felt like an ant's sting. Michael and Victoria looked at each other without uttering a word. None had any words for each other but only immense killing lust. How does it feel to lose everything? Asked Michael. Victoria trembled. Her eyes turned blood red within a few seconds. Michael enjoyed the pain in her eyes. When she put a dagger through his heart, she had no emotions. It was like she didn't give a shit about Abras or his love. She didn't raise a finger when her soldiers slaughtered everyone without mercy. Their deaths were not painless or quick like Valeria's. Instead, Booth and his men ensured the people in the sanctuary suffered. They vented their anger on the elders and the people for keeping the cosmic stream out of the world's reach for centuries. Of course, if Michael was in Maxim Barna's shoes and he found a power source like the cosmic stream, he would have coveted it. But Michael wouldn't have slaughtered innocent people in the process. He would have found another way, or if the push came to shove, he would have used the system to absorb the energy source forcefully. No matter what, he wouldn't have slaughtered children for power. No words, how? Michael snickered, seeing no words coming out of Victoria's mouth. You and I both know the shield cannot protect you. You're going to die today and so does everyone in your capital, said Michael. Afterward, he looked over Victoria's shoulder at the people on the castle grounds. Last chance to get out of here, Michael amplified his voice with arch energy. Hence, his words sounded loud and clear in their ears. He genuinely offered the soldiers and the nobles a chance to escape. Unfortunately, they all decided to stay with Victoria to their last breath. You are all betting on Maxim Barnes reaching the half-immortal stage, right? Guess what? Even if he becomes one, he has no chance of killing me. And Vicky, do you think I will let him become one? I heard messing with the heavenly tribulation will break someone's meridians. I have to test that theory today, Michael snickered. He still couldn't decide who to kill first, Victoria or Maxim. Nonetheless, they would both die at the end of the day. Michael devilishly grinned. He toyed with Victoria's mind just like how she played with Abras. While he was riling Victoria up, the soldiers prepared the war machines to fire at him. He didn't mind them at all. No matter how hard they tried, those poor souls had no chance of hurting him at all. Michael placed his hand on the golden dome, creating ripples in the shield. He leaned forward toward Victoria. Are you going to stare at me or try to avenge your mother? Michael grinned. As Michael expected, the moment he mentioned Valeria, Victoria dashed at him. Her armor lit up like a Christmas tree. The runes glowed in various colors. She could have fought a level 1 half-immortal with the cosmic energy in the armor, but she stood no chance against Michael. He simply flew backward, away from the golden shield. "Your Royal Highness," the royal guard shouted, seeing Victoria dashing outside through the shield. Finally, the battle between Ghost and Victoria began. She had a whole kingdom and an army behind while Michael faced them alone. Despite the advantage of numbers, they all feared Michael. In fact, they knew this was an unwinnable battle. Still, they fought for Thusia out of loyalty. Chapter 745. Michael vs. Victoria 2. In midair, Victoria and Michael clashed. She unsheathed her long sword and held it tightly using both hands. The sword was extremely heavy. But this sword was just for normal enemies. She could conjure a sword made of cosmic energy, which could cut through anything except Michael's body. That didn't mean the cosmic sword was completely useless against Michael. For some reason, Victoria fought with the big long sword instead of the cosmic sword. Victoria swung her heavy sword left and right. Michael wondered what length she went to reach the fusion stage in such a short amount of time. Judging by the unstable energy radiation around her body, Michael could tell she had used shortcuts to boost her power. Michael swayed his body to the sides, easily evading the sword. Victoria's figure was blurry to others, but to Michael, she moved in slow motion. He read all her moves before she made them. Victoria was trained to control her emotions. But how could she control her anger when she fights the killer of her mother? "Is this all you got?" Michael snickered. He put one arm behind and swatted the sword with the other. Victoria fought viciously. Each of her sword swings cut through the air, creating a sharp noise. While swinging the sword, she raised her hand. Immediately, the sword in her hand lit with fire. The flames were scorching hot. They vaporized the snow in a 5-meter radius around them. It felt like the snow had stopped for Michael and Victoria. Every time she swung her sword, the flames lingered in the sword's path for a few moments before fading away. Despite the flames on the sword, Michael swatted the sword like it was nothing. Suddenly, Michael grabbed the sword with one hand. "I am disappointed in how pathetically weak you are," said Michael. He clenched his fist and punched Victoria in the gut, sending her flying back into the dome. She flew in the air for a minute or two before crashing down on a wooden building. The sheer force of her collision made the house crumble down. Michael looked at the flaming sword in his hand. "Fancy sword," mumbled Michael. To his surprise, a couple of crimson-red runes glowed on the hilt. The sword dashed out of his grab. It flew straight toward Victoria, leaving a fiery trail in the air. He noticed the broken wooden planks in the house moving. Soon, Victoria managed to climb up the collapsed house with the flaming sword in her hand. "Your Royal Highness." The royal guards came running to her rescue. "Fire." Michael turned his gaze toward an old man in silver armor. The ashen-haired old man ordered his men to fire the trebuchets. Michael wasn't surprised by the old man's fusion stage cultivation level. At this point, Michael would be surprised if Thusia didn't have any more fusion stage cultivators. With this many fusion stage warriors, no wonder no one was able to touch Thusia. Maxim Barnes created a powerful dynasty in a short time using the cosmic stream. The boulders fired by the trebuchets soared through the air. In midair, some of the boulders froze while some lit up with flames. Michael hovered in the air, waiting for the boulders. When they were just a few meters away from him, Michael simply raised his hand. A ring of arc flames pulsated from Michael's body. Upon the boulders came into contact with the dark flames, they turned into ashes. The soldiers were stunned. In a blink of an eye, almost 20 boulders disappeared from their sight completely. Still, the old man did not lose hope. He barked another order to fire again. At the same time, Victoria shot toward the sky to resume her fight. A frozen boulder reached Michael before Victoria. He surprised everyone by catching the boulder. He lifted the boulder with one hand. He started to spin the boulder on top of his index finger. When he saw Victoria soaring through the air, he threw the boulder at her. She swung the sword, cutting the boulder in half. But when the boulder split open, she saw Michael's fist. She quickly raised the sword to defend herself. Michael's fist hit the sword. In return, the sword hit Victoria's face. Her vision became blurry for a moment. Michael utilized the opportunity by grabbing her by the shoulder and head-butting her. The helmet she wore formed cracks as she felt like she hit a stone wall. For a few moments, everything around her started to spin. Michael sent her flying back to the castle with a single slap. Blood and Victoria's wisdom tooth gushed out of her mouth. The royal guards couldn't see their princess getting beaten to death. Although they were ordered to stay out of the battle, the loyal Thusians broke the order for the sake of Victoria. All the 12 royal guards shot toward the sky with no fear but intense anger and killing intent in their eyes. Each of them was armed to the teeth and halberds engraved with various runes. Unlike Victoria, the royal guards began to cast various spells. In a blink of an eye, Michael saw various shapes and forms made of celestial energy materializing in front of his eyes. The spells lighted up the dark sky, and the boulders were the fireworks. Zanali leaped onto the air and caught Victoria in midair. The pressure began to get to Evan. Deep down he wanted to get the hell out of the capital to save himself. However, the oath he took as a guardian prevented him from doing so. Contrary to the Thusian soldiers, he had no loyalty toward Thusia. Even when Ghost wasn't casting any spells, Evan could feel immense pressure under the shield. The only silver lining was that at least Ghost didn't seem to have any intention of breaking the shield down. While Zanali was helping Victoria, Evan looked up at the sky to see the royal guards battling Ghost. The sky was littered with all the elements there were. Michael saw a lion made of fire roaring at him, a sword made of ice flying toward him, and ethereal hands trying to hold him down. Michael didn't flinch an eye. He just floated in the air with his hands folded. Instead of wasting his energy defending, he let the spells hit him. One by one the spells hit Michael. Of course, the responsive shield appeared around Michael in the form of a translucent shield and absorbed the attacks completely. As a result, not even Michael's robes were harmed by the spells. When all the shapes and forms disappeared from the sky, Michael shook his head disappointedly. What did you expect? You all come to the rescue of your princess like shining knights, eradicate evil and fly into the sunset? Michael's words echoed through the capital. Life is all about making the right and wrong choices and living with the consequences. By coming to her rescue you made the wrong choice and the consequence is death. Since the royal guards were floating closer to Michael, they heard an otherworldly vibration in the air. The very next moment 2 dark beams shot out of Michael's eyes. Those who were on the ground couldn't see the dark beams because of the dark sky above them. The dark beams went straight through a royal guard's head. He fell from the sky, and before the others could react, the beam took a sharp 90-degree turn and pierced another soldier's head. In a matter of seconds the dark beams killed all the soldiers. Evan was unable to tell how these soldiers were killed. One moment they were floating in the air, and another they fell from the air like dead bees. Everything happened so quickly. When Victoria opened her eyes, she saw her royal guards falling from the sky. She shook off Zanala's hands. Once again she shot toward the sky. This time Michael didn't fight Victoria. Instead he flew toward the golden dome. Dark flames enveloped his fists as he put on his hands. The shield trembled, creating several ripples. He slowly tore open the shield with his bare hands. The soldiers firing the trebuchets felt a chill. Everyone keeps firing. Do not let him through the shield. Mages attack. The Minister of Defense, Terence, barked orders. At that moment, Victoria aimed to attack Michael from behind while the mages and the trebuchets hit Michael from the front. Yet he ignored all of them. While tearing apart the shield, Michael turned back. The dark beams shot at Victoria. She reacted quickly and deflected the beams with her sword. She fought desperately to stop him from entering the shield. However, her attempts became futile as he slipped through the tear in the shield. Now let me slaughter your people before your eyes just like your men did, said Michael, looking over his shoulder. The next moment, he dashed toward the war machines with speed beyond any mortal comprehension. Victoria was only able to see the afterimages left by him. Terence's neck hair stood up. He may have decades of experience, the skill to operate under pressure, and Fusio stage cultivation to back all of it up. But, in front of a half-immortal, he was nothing. He only heard a whistling wind before everything turned dark. Michael didn't even know who this old man was. His head flew in the air with a single wind blade across his head. Michael landed right beside a trebuchet. Instead of casting a spell, Michael just punched the trebuchet toward the war machines behind it. The trebuchet crashed into the others at the speed of a train. It destroyed everything in its path and the soldiers. Zanali managed to save some soldiers but lost many. Blood and fire flew all over the place. The images of Valeria flashed across her eyes. Seeing the destruction, the nobles screamed as they ran back into the castle for cover. Poor souls had no idea the castle was Michael's main target. Victoria tried to keep up with Michael. She used cosmic energy to match Michael's speed to stop the destruction. However, even with the cosmic energy she was too slow. Michael picked up a broken trebuchet and threw it at Victoria. Just like before, Victoria sliced through the machine. Arg! She screamed as she brought down the sword upon Michael. Michael simply grabbed the sword, but the shock wave sent everyone around them flying, including Zanali and Evan. Michael felt the cosmic energy radiation from her body getting unstable by the second. It took great effort to keep himself from killing Victoria with a single punch. If he did that, it wouldn't be the proper revenge he had waited all these years for. The moment Michael grabbed the sword, he pulled it toward him. He grabbed Victoria's hand and began hitting her against the floor left and right like she was a piece of cloth. After a while, Michael threw her toward the cluttered houses around the castle. Zanali noticed Ghost raising his hand toward the sky. Suddenly she felt something strange. In the sky, several large fiery boulders slowly materialized. Evan's eyes widened in shock. The humongous size of the boulders cast shadows on the ground, darkening the city. Even from afar, everyone could feel the scorching heat. This meteor spell once belonged to Zachary, and now, Michael unlocked its true potential. Chapter 746. Michael vs. Victoria 3. At that moment, four giant boulders covered in scorching hot flames hovered over the city. "Please don't do it, Ghost," Zanali pleaded. Although Victoria had evacuated the city, there were still many soldiers and nobles who remained in the city. She was unable to see them dead. However, Michael didn't give a damn about Zanali's plea. He brought his hand down, releasing flaming meteors upon the city. The meteors created a terrifying buzzing in the air as they soared down the sky. The city trembled when they hit the golden shield. Countless cracks appeared in the shield. As a result, the shield flickered. It took only a few seconds before the shield completely crumbled down. The fiery meteors became closer and closer to the city. While they were falling down from the sky, these boulders lit up the sky in bright orange. Just the buzzing noise they created was enough to make everyone tremble. After casting the spell, Michael dashed forward. He saw Victoria trying to get back to her feet. When she saw the meteors, her heart skipped a beat. Her killing intent soared through the roof. With a flick of her wrist, she took a healing potion and emptied it down her throat. Seeing Ghost flying toward her, she threw the long sword to the side. Instead, she closed her eyes, conjuring a dark purple sword. It was none other than the cosmic sword. Michael felt the pure energy from the sword. The heat it radiated was just second to the dark flames themselves. Michael didn't try to block the sword with his immortal killing sword or the spear. He knew attempting to block the cosmic sword with those weapons would be futile. Victoria swung the purple sword with lightning speed. To her surprise, Michael blocked her sword with a black shield. The moment the sword hit the shield, it created a powerful shock wave that decimated everything in a 10-meter radius. The force of it knocked back Victoria and even sent Michael back flying for a few meters. Michael regained his balance. He looked down at the shield to see a cut on the shield's surface for the first time. The cut was not deep enough to break it, but the sword cut the shield nonetheless. Victoria did not give Michael any time to retaliate. She shot toward the sky with her sword. She began to cut down the meteors using every bit of her strength. Zanali joined Victoria in destroying the meteors. Some of the soldiers also joined them in their fruitless attempt to save their city. They failed to understand that Michael could cast the spell again and again. However, Michael watched them waste all their energies for nothing. "Oh, Victoria," Ghost said from the ground. His voice echoed through the city. "It seems like you are in a bit of a blunder. I am going to destroy your precious castle along with everyone in it." "Even with the cosmic energy, you cannot be in two places at once." Victoria's body froze as he turned around to see Michael moving toward the castle. She was stuck between destroying the meteors and saving the castle. Michael wasn't kidding when he said he would destroy the castle and everyone in it. When he reached the castle, he covered himself with the dark flames and flew straight into the castle. He punched through the walls and pillar with such force and speed as the castle slowly crumbled down before Victoria's eyes. The giant front door collapsed down, blocking the entrance. Victoria couldn't locate Michael within the castle. Evan stared at the castle with a blank mind. The ground itself trembled beneath his legs. Maxim Barnes built the castle with the strongest of materials and runes to withstand devastating natural disasters and attacks of all sorts. However, the castle completely failed to withstand Michael's onslaught. Zanali dived down to help the nobles stuck within the castle. She heard their cries for help and saw some boulders flying away due to someone casting spells from within. While Zanali tried to help the nobles, Victoria destroyed the boulders. Tears flew out of her eyes. Her entire kingdom was getting decimated before her eyes, and she could do nothing to stop it. Zanali saw a statue hit the ground and splatter into pieces. The statue's head rolled onto her feet. She picked it up to realize the head belonged to King Maxim. The king's ego made him put a statue on top of the castle. It symbolized he rules over the world from high above. Michael destroyed the statue as well as what it symbolized. When Michael reached the top of the castle, he flew away from the castle. He patiently waited for Victoria to turn around and look at him. It didn't take long for Victoria to notice him. Michael slowly raised his hand. Under Victoria's murderous gaze, Michael simply snapped his fingers as the castle collapsed completely. Zanali and Evan leaped out of the way. Many nobles were not so fortunate to escape. As a result, the walls and stones crushed them. Arg! Victoria roared like a cornered beast. The energy radiation around her body shot through the roof as she dashed at Michael. She swung her cosmic sword left and right while Michael blocked the attacks with his black shield. Still, Victoria managed to cut him a few times. Each cut was a couple of inches deeper. Blood trickled down Michael's chest. Yet he didn't mind them at all. He finished toying with her. "Give me all you got, bitch," Michael snickered. The battle between them intensified. Michael couldn't go all out because she would be dead in a second if he did. Hence, Michael suppressed his power. Despite suppressing his power, he still proved way stronger than Victoria. She swung her sword left and right like a crazed beast. Michael evaded some and blocked many with the black shield. Arg! Victoria swung her sword across his neck with a roar. Michi bent backward in the air, turned his body and kicked her in the head. The kick sent Victoria flying. She coughed up dark blood. Michael didn't wait for her to dash forward. Instead, he flew toward her. He grabbed Victoria by her hair and punched her repeatedly in the face. She tried to stab him with the sword, but Michael grabbed her wrist, twisting it in the process. The cosmic sword disappeared from one hand and appeared in the other. She tried to stab him. In fact, Michael was caught off guard. However, before she could stab him, Michael cast the Sileni's spell, slowing down the time around him. She pulled the sword out of her hand. She didn't even realize the sword was not in her hands anymore. Michael grabbed Victoria by her neck while capturing the dark flames to burn the cosmic sword down. Victoria's eyes widened, seeing the dark flames engulfing the cosmic sword. After Michael ripped off her armor, she lost major protection. Michael didn't show her any mercy as he punched her in the chest, breaking several ribs. Blood gushed out of Victoria's mouth. He knew he should feel some kind of mercy or pity for Victoria, but he simply couldn't. She didn't raise a finger when her men slaughtered everyone in the sanctuary, including children. Because of her and her father's lust for power, thousands of people lost their loved ones, homeland, parents, and lives. All of this could have been avoided only if Maxim Barnes, and in this world, only the primordial flames had the power to fight cosmic energy. That was why Maxim Barnes sent Victoria to Mazeroth. He tried to covert all the flames to himself. But the poor man managed to get no primordial flames. The primordial flames were believed to be sentient. They chose its bearer and not the other way around. Hence, why the dark flames chose Michael over Victoria even when she was the one who found it. Michael grabbed her chest plate and ripped off the armor with his bare hand. He tossed the armor to the ground. I loved you so much, yet you gave me nothing but pain," Michael slowly said. "Why did you have to kill them?" Michael threw Victoria into the rubble. Some of the soldiers who survived the castle's destruction rushed to save their princess. But Michael raised his hand, sending lightning bolt after lightning bolt to kill them in a few seconds. Evan stood at a safe distance from Michael. "Stand up," said Michael. He landed near Victoria and picked her up by her hand. Thunder rumbled above Michael. Soon the snowfall stopped. Instead, the sky split open as nature brought its wrath in the form of heavy rain. He dragged Victoria out of the rubble before throwing her a few meters away. "Look at your kingdom," said Michael. Only Evan and Zanali remained still unscathed. Michael put his arms behind his back, looking at the ruin before him. As far as he could see, there was nothing but rubble. Even the heavy rain couldn't put out the flames spreading through the kingdom. "What built from fire shall be reduced to ashes," Michael recalled the words of his elders. He saw the elders smiling at him from above. He let the rain wash over his face in silence. Victoria tried to stand up, but Michael sent a sliver of lightning bolt through her chest. Zanali wanted to help Victoria, but her legs refused to move. She had to think about Nagaland. If Gaia wanted, she could come up to Nagaland and destroy the kingdom with Ghost's help. The last thing Zanali wanted was the destruction of her kingdom. The Guardian Guild didn't save one of their own, so how could she expect them to save a kingdom of Nagas? "You could have built a powerful nation without the cosmic stream," said Michael. "You took something from me. Now I have taken everything from you except your father's life." As soon as Victoria heard these words, she clenched her fist. She wanted to get up, but her body gave up. "Don't die. I haven't killed your father yet," said Michael. He was waiting for Maxim to trigger the heavenly tribulation. Killing Maxim Barnes would be the last thing he does as Ghost. Afterward, Ghost would fade away from existence, and the Dark Lord would rise from Thuja's ashes. Chapter 747. King Maxim's arrival. Michael moved his hands as several boulders lined up before him. They formed a long pillar almost the size of a 5-story building. Michael picked up Victoria, shot toward the sky, and banged her against the pillar formation. Soon, golden chains appeared around her, pinning her in a T-pose on the pillar. From this position, Victoria could see the entire city. "I wish I had taken your head," Victoria groaned. "Good. I want you to regret every decision you've made," Michael snickered. He slowly turned around. Dark clouds slowly gathered in the sky, darkening the place. It wasn't Michael's doing but the result of energy fluctuation in the air. An outside force messed up the balance between celestial energy and arch energy around the world. Suddenly the sky started to rumble. Purple lightning streaks struck across the sky. The heavy rain became worse by the second. Coupled with the howling wind, the heavy rain put out the fire in the city. As a result, darkness took over the place. Their only light source was the streaks of lightning in the sky. Everyone, including Zanali, could feel the pressure in the atmosphere. Out of the blue, a thick purple lightning bolt hit the forest north of the castle. Unlike a typical bolt of lightning, it didn't disappear. Instead, the lightning bolt lingered in the air as though it was frozen. They all looked at the bolt of lightning with bewildered faces. Michael's lips curved upwards, revealing a devilish grin. "It seems like your father has begun his heavenly tribulation," said Michael. Victoria struggled against the chains to escape. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't escape. First, she was too tired and exhausted her energy fighting Michael. Second, there were runes engraved on the chains to keep her weak. Michael wanted her to watch the death of her father. At that moment, Victoria only had her father, and Michael wanted to take that away from her. Michael patiently waited for Maxim Barnes to trigger the heavenly tribulation. He knew the first lightning bolt was just a phenomenon before the actual tribulation. As Michael expected, the sky was lit with hundreds of lightning flashes. The lightning bolts formed a web in the sky as thunder kept rumbling louder and louder. Michael still didn't lift a finger. He watched the heavenly tribulation begin with Zanali and Evan. "Is that heavenly tribulation?" Evan mumbled. "The elders would sense it in a few minutes," said Zanali with a heavy sigh. She knew even if the elders appeared here, there was nothing to achieve here. Ghost had decimated the kingdom, and it would only take a spell from him to disrupt the heavenly tribulations. The damage had already been done. To be honest, Zanali didn't think the Guardians would be able to stop Ghost. He didn't even give a damn about the Council of Immortals. "The Guardians will kill you if you do something to my father," Victoria growled. Michael slowly turned around. "What? Because they want another human to be a half-immortal?" Michael tilted his head. "You and I both know your father doesn't give a shit about the Guardians. All he wants is power and control. You can't stop him. He has the cosmic stream," said Victoria, only to receive a tight slap to her face. Michael leaned closer to her ears. "Not for long. The cosmic stream will be mine." Zanali, who had heard the word cosmic twice, wondered what the hell was that. She had no idea what they were talking about. However, she had a feeling it was connected to whatever happened between Ghost and Thuja. "What? You want to protect the stream so no one can benefit from it? Your people could have ruled this world and led it to a golden age. You are just a dog that doesn't eat and let others eat. Oh, darling. I'm going to use the shit out of it. You think this is only about revenge? Well, it's mostly about vengeance, but the cosmic energy is a cherry on top." Michael ran his fingers through her face as she growled. Finally, an ear-piercing thunder rumbled in the sky. Following the thunderclap, a strange buzzing noise resonated throughout the city. At that moment, another lightning bolt hit the forest several meters away from the first lightning bolt. Like the one earlier, the second lightning bolt froze in the air. Electricity crackled around the two bolts. Several smaller streaks of lightning bolts branched out from each, forming a net in between. Michael cracked his knuckles. Unlike everyone expected and hoped in Thuja, Maxim's fate would be a bit anticlimactic. Michael waited for the lightning to strike from the sky. Victoria noticed golden bolts of lightning crackling around Michael's fist. She shivered. A single bolt of lightning from his hand could disrupt the entire heavenly tribulation and make his father a cripple. "No. Kill me, no. Please don't do anything, Abras, please." Victoria panicked. Her fear and panic only made him happier. "Beg me more. It feels so refreshing." Finally, Michael sensed Maxim's presence in his environmental scanning. But Michael didn't go after him. Instead, he just raised his hand. He looked at Victoria with an amused smile. This is your father's end. Look closer. No. Victoria's scream echoed through the air as the lightning bolt shot out of Michael's finger. The bolt of lightning traveled in slow motion in Victoria's eyes. Zanali immediately waved her hand, casting a defense spell around her and Evan. The bolt of lightning soared through the air and hit the frozen lightning bolts. As soon as they clashed, an explosion went off. This explosion made nuclear explosions look like mere candlelight. For a few moments, Zanali and Evan couldn't open their eyes. Moreover, they were blasted away by the explosion's effects. The temperature rose in the air to the point that the rain droplets evaporated before reaching the ground. It didn't even take a few minutes for the snow to melt down and vaporize. A few long, brief moments later, Zanali opened her eyes. Her ears rang with a strange buzzing sound. To her shock, everything around her turned into ashes. She slowly moved her head upwards to see Ghost and Victoria floating in the air. Zanali could barely see them through all the dark ashes in the air. "Father!" Victoria screamed. She noticed the lightning strikes had disappeared from the sky, and the atmosphere had returned to normal. Michael dashed forward into the forest with thousands of charcoal trees. Although Michael wasn't a natural guardian, he hated destroying nature. This world's beauty was its forests, lakes, mountains, and every piece of nature. However, it was a necessary sacrifice to stop Maxim Barnes from breaking through to the half-immortal stage. Of course, Michael could defeat Maxim Barnes even if he had reached the half-immortal stage, but Michael didn't want to complicate things. Why would Michael want to battle Maxim Barnes when he could cripple him with a single spell? Zanali wanted to rescue Victoria and let her escape. That's the least she could do for Victoria as a guardian. However, before she could move toward her, Ghost returned to Victoria. This time he had a bleeding man in his hand. Ghost held him by his neck like he was handling a rabbit. "Father!" Victoria screamed. But Michael ignored her. "Where am I?" Maxim Barnes slowly opened his eyes. Blood slowly trickled down from the corners of his mouth. One moment he was near the cosmic stream and the other he felt excruciating pain from every corner of his body. "Little puppy forgot its kingdom," Michael snickered. With a flick of his wrist, he took out a healing potion from his space ring. He forcefully poured the healing potion into Maxim Barnes' mouth. Otherwise, Maxim wouldn't survive the pain Michael was about to inflict on him. After the healing potion entered his body, all the wounds and pain in his body disappeared. The light of life glimmered brighter than before in Maxim's eyes. Michael raised Maxim by his neck and stared at him from top to bottom. Although Maxim was Michael's nemesis, this was the first time he had seen Maxim with his own eyes. With striking red hair, a muscular build, and a stubble beard, Maxim was quite a handsome king. More than that, Maxim really did have a kingly aura around him. Even when his meridians were broken, Maxim had an imposing aura. However, a king's aura was nothing compared to a god's aura. "Victoria?" Maxim's eyes widened, seeing his daughter chained to a pillar. It took his mind a few moments to realize everything around him. Michael let King Maxim Barnes soak the beautiful sight of his kingdom. "This is your capital," said Michael. Tears gushed out of Victoria's eyes. She couldn't see her father so powerless and weak. Maxim Barnes tried to reach out to his daughter. Michael squeezed the back of Maxim's neck. Maxim Barnes' eyes were blood red with uncontrollable rage. He punched and kicked Michael furiously. How does it feel to be a cripple? Initially, Michael planned to let Maxim Barnes fight him with the unstable cosmic energy that would turn Maxim into a ticking nuclear warhead. Michael wanted to use Maxim to destroy the kingdom. However, he recently learned from Aladir that making Maxim explode would not only destroy Ithilin but also mess up the energies in the atmosphere. As a result, the entire world could be littered with natural disasters such as storms, tsunamis, and droughts, to name a few. Hence, Michael was forced to change his plan. He didn't feel right to sacrifice millions of people to destroy Thusia when he literally had many options. One of them was using Victoria to destroy the kingdom instead of Maxim Barnes. Since Victoria wasn't crippled by Ghost, he could force the cosmic energy to become unstable to the point she turns into a sticking nuclear bomb. But first, Michael needed to vent his anger on Maxim Barnes. Maxim Barnes' body shivered. His eyes were full of shock. He tried to conjure his energy, yet he simply couldn't. And one more thing, Michael grabbed Maxim's chin and turned his head to look him in the eyes. "I am Ghost." Chapter 748. Toying with the prey. A sliver of shock glistened in Maxim's eyes. Soon his shock turned into absolute horror. He slowly realized what had happened to his kingdom while he was cultivating in seclusion. He hoped the Guardians and his men would keep Ghost away from him until he broke through to the half-immortal stage. In his shock, he didn't try to escape from Michael's hands. He felt too weak. "This is payback, bitch." Michael threw Maxim down. "Father!" Victoria screamed. Her father hit the ground with a small thud. "Save him!" Victoria shouted at Zanali. King Maxim Barnes coughed up blood several meters away from Zanali. However, her body refused to move an inch. The killing intent radiating from Ghost petrified both Zanali and Evan. Victoria was just an arrow. In Michael's mind, Maxim was the one who fired that arrow in his direction. So King Maxim Barnes deserved worse. He landed beside Maxim Barnes before kicking Maxim in the face. Blood splattered across the ash-covered floor. Michael lifted Maxim by his torn robes and repeatedly punched him in the face. Michael heard the crunching noise of bones breaking in his face. Victoria screamed and begged from the pillar, yet Michael ignored her completely. He was completely focused on destroying Maxim Barnes. "Come on. Fight back," said Michael. He grabbed Maxim's hands and crushed his palm. King Maxim screamed. Michael noticed Maxim's eyes closing. Quickly, Michael took out another healing potion and emptied it onto Maxim's mouth. "There you go. Healed up again." The wounds on Maxim's body closed up as the rosiness returned to his face. Michael grabbed Maxim by his neck and slammed him against a block of stone behind him. The rubble collapsed by force. Michael began to punch Maxim Barnes as though the king was a punching bag. Each of Michael's punches broke a bone in his body. Victoria's throat ached because of her screams and shouting. She saw her father getting beaten to death. Maxim Barnes managed to muster his strength and threw his fist at Michael. Again, instead of blocking the punch, Michael let Maxim's punch land on his face. He grabbed Maxim's hand and slapped himself like a crazy person. Michael's face reddened. Zanali and Evan felt a chill seeing Michael slapping himself with Maxim's hands. Suddenly Michael stopped slapping. He squeezed Maxim's hands until Maxim began to scream in agony. Michael grabbed Maxim's throat before pulling his right arm toward himself. The skin on Maxim's arm stretched as much as it could. Michael's force slowly tore the skin as blood seeped through the skin. Maxim Barnes screamed. He began to bite Michael's hand to escape his clutch. However, Michael didn't even flinch. Zanali saw Michael twisting Maxim's hand slowly. She felt sick hearing the shoulder bone breaking. Michael suddenly pulled out his arm with enough force to separate the arm from the shoulder. Blood sprayed out of the joint as it should. The blood sprayed in all directions, including Michael's face. His face turned red, making him resemble a demon. Victoria and Maxim screamed. But no matter how hard they screamed or yelled, no one came to their rescue. Even Zanali was in a petrified state. Michael threatened them with an onslaught. "Save him, please." Victoria's screams kept ringing in Zanali's ears. Finally, Zanali couldn't see Ghost beat Maxim to death. She mustered her courage to face Ghost. He had already destroyed the kingdom. If Ghost wanted to kill Maxim Barnes and his family, he could do it without torturing them like an animal, no worse than an animal. Zanali didn't think an animal could be so brutal with its prey. Michael tore off Maxim's second hand. Evan felt a chill seeing Ghost hitting Maxim with his own bloody hand. All of his generals and ministers were either dead or stuck under the rubble. Unless the Guardian Guild comes with several immortals, Evan knew there was no stopping Ghost. He wondered where the heck did Edith go. Not that Evan believed Edith could stop Michael, but at least she would be stupid enough to try to stop him. "Stop." Zanali raised her voice. Michael ignored her completely. Maxim Barnes coughed up blood. Michael slammed Maxim Barnes' head against the wall. Whenever the light of life began to fade away in Maxim's eyes, he forcefully emptied a healing potion down Maxim's throat. Zanali approached Michael. She grabbed his shoulder trying to stop him. Michael shook his shoulder as Zanali fell backward. Evan saw Victoria screaming from above, helplessly, while Maxim groaned in utter pain. He saw Zanali get back to her feet. Once again she tried to stop Michael. This time, Michael stopped hitting Maxim Barnes. Instead, he grabbed Zanali by her neck and slammed her against a pillar next to Maxim Barnes. "Look, Snake. The only reason you're alive is Gaia doesn't want me to kill you. You already destroyed them. At least kill them. You tortured them enough," Zanali said. Michael tightened his grip around Zanali's throat. "Why the fuck are you even here?" Michael said, gritting his teeth. He clenched his fist. Before Zanali could finish her sentence, Michael punched her in the face. A single punch knocked out Zanali cold. Evan's subconscious mind forced him to dash forward. He thought Ghost had killed Zanali. When Evan saw Ghost suddenly turn his head in his direction, Evan's legs put a brake automatically. Michael kicked a football-sized stone on the ground. It soared through the air and hit Evan right in the face. The sheer force sent Evan flying back into the rubble. Michael threw Zanala's unconscious body aside. "Let my daughter go." Maxim Barnes managed to utter these words. Michael laughed out loud. "Did you know I killed your precious wife?" Maxim Barnes was stunned. His face was covered in too much blood to make out his expression. However, his eyes glistened with rage. The poor man could do nothing without his two arms. On the other hand, Victoria slowly lost her strength to scream out loud. Michael slowly walked toward Maxim. He stared at the king without lifting a finger. After a few moments, he grabbed Maxim by his neck and shot toward Victoria. When he arrived before her, he grabbed Victoria by her neck with his other arm. Michael pulled Victoria out of the bonds before flying toward the burnt forest. The explosion flattened the entire forest. Everything looked nothing but burnt. However, something was glimmering under all the burnt trees and ashes. The dark beams shot out from Michael's eyes, hitting the ground. As soon as the beams hit the ground, ripples appeared in the air. Soon, the scenery before Michael changed from a burnt forest to a small pond filled with glistening liquid. The pond was barely 7 feet wide and 5 feet thick. But it contained the most powerful energy source in this world, cosmic energy. No one knew how this pond of cosmic energy came into existence, not even Michael's sanctuary. The origin of cosmic energy was still a mystery to them. Our feud started because of this. So it must end here. Michael released the two. They hit the ground, groaning in pain. Victoria immediately crawled toward her father. She embraced him tightly. "Father," tears rolled out of her eyes. At that moment, she had no interest in the cosmic energy that she had killed and fought so many people for. In fact, she hated cosmic energy. Because of this, she lost everything. If her father hadn't found a secret note in a meteor that hit Wuxia, he wouldn't have found out about cosmic energy. Everything began with that mysterious purple meteor. Michael won and successfully exacted revenge when she regretted everything she had done. But it wasn't enough for Michael. He collapsed to his knees and looked around the place. He could see the buildings made of wood, children running around, the elders feeding the little ones, and his friends playing with him. A painful smile appeared on his face. "Protect the stream." Maxim Barnes coughed up blood. Seeing the glistening energy made Maxim lust for it. He was like a possessed person. He wanted the cosmic stream for himself no matter the cost. This was the reason why the elders had never touched cosmic energy. Whoever uses it would lose everything. The cosmic stream was cursed. In a sense, the sanctuary didn't protect the cosmic stream from the world but the world from the cosmic stream. As a disciple in the sanctuary, Abras knew this. Victoria shook her head after hearing her father's words. "It's over, father. We lost. We lost everything. Even after all this, he still wants this, huh?" Michael snickered. "If you're going to kill us, kill us. Get it done," Victoria growled. "I hope you'll rot in hell, Abras." Michael didn't respond to Victoria. "Azazel, gather all my subordinates and teleport to my location," said Michael. "Yes, my lord." Michael heard Azazel in his head. Slowly Michael stood up. He turned around to look at Victoria and Maxim in her arms. With a flick of his wrist, Michael took out a crimson-red dagger. He tossed it toward Victoria. "You want this to end?" "Do it," said Michael. Victoria stared at the dagger on the ground without batting an eye. Her hands trembled as she reached for the dagger. "No. Fight him." "No." Maxim Barnes mumbled. He looked completely pale after all the blood loss. Since Michael hadn't given him a healing potion for a few minutes, his body started to lose vitality. Compared to being tortured to death by Ghost, killing her father and herself with her hands seemed the better option. Michael waited for Victoria to kill herself. The despair and helplessness in her eyes quenched the thirst for revenge. He didn't feel like torturing her anymore. Instead, he wanted to absorb the cosmic energy. Victoria finally grabbed the dagger. Even if she could fight back, she didn't want to because there was nothing to fight for. Her kingdom was gone, her mother died, and her father was on the verge of death. If she kept fighting, it would make only her people suffer more. At least with her dead, Ghost would let the Thusians live. She slowly moved the dagger toward Maxim's heart. She placed the dagger's end on her father's chest. Tears gushed out of her eyes like a flood breaking out of a dam. She was about to plunge the dagger into Maxim's heart when they heard a shout echo through the place. "Stop. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.